Chapter 1. Chen Mu found himself transported to the flourishing martial world of the Great Zhou, endowed with the peculiar ability to extract cards from corpses. Son the thief, I shall slay you. Chen Mu abruptly sprang up from the ground, his fists clenched tightly as he struck ferociously. His teeth gritted as if he longed to devour his adversary. Yet, in the next moment, he gazed in bewilderment at the scene before him. A narrow alley. Its blue brick walls splattered with dark red blood, lay strewn with a dozen men, some groaning, others motionless. Where am I? Chen Mu was taken aback. Suddenly, a torrent of unfamiliar memories surged into his mind. Who is not dead. A coarse voice echoed from the right. As Chen Mu pressed his head to absorb the memories, he turned to see a burly man with a face full of scars and a knife wound over his left eye grinning at him. The man bore a glinting short knife at his waist, its tip still dripping blood. Rustling footsteps approached swiftly. How's it going, Huzi? A tall, dark-skinned man, whose features were sharply chiseled and whose frame was lean yet tall, crouched before Chen Mu, concern evident in his bright eyes beneath bushy brows. Brother, Chen Mu blurted out. I'm fine. You should be more concerned about yourself, the scarred man remarked, glancing at Huang Feiyang's shoulder, where two gory wounds were oozing blood. Spitting on the ground, he added, if you don't tend to those injuries, you might lose your entire arm. Yes, brother, you must take care of your wounds, Chen Mu urged. Not a big deal, Huang Feiyang exhaled, rising to his feet. What was who shouting just now? A lean, tall accomplice leaned in, visibly excited. Son the thief, I shall kill you. How bold of you to challenge Sun Kuei directly. Sun Kuei is infamous as a madman of the Blood Wolf gang. Who, your ambition to slay him is remarkable. The surrounding gang members displayed admiration, some even giving Chen Mu a thumbs up. Haha, Chen Mu chuckled dryly, but within, a tempest of emotions surged. What he had shouted was not Sun Kuei, but Sun Jindong. Sun Jindong was indeed his, no, more accurately, the original body's nemesis. Indeed, upon absorbing the strange memories, Chen Mu realized he had crossed over. Awakening from slumber, he found himself in an entirely different realm. This was an ancient, martial arts world, where the martial way flourished, the strong soared through the skies, and the weak were as insignificant as ants. The body he had inhabited also bore the surname Chun, sharing the name Mu. The Chun family was once a prominent household in Nanyuan Prefecture, with carriages at their disposal and servants in attendance. A decade prior, the master of the Four Directions Martial Arts Academy, Sun Jindong, had launched a sudden assault on the Chun family, resulting in the tragic demise of all 37 family members. Only the original body, a mere 5 years old and distracted by play, had managed to escape the calamity. The one who saved him was none other than the 13-year-old Huang Feiyang. For 10 years, in the dead of night, the original body would occasionally awaken, shouting to slay Sun the thief. However, the reality is that Sun Jindong not only survived, but has grown increasingly formidable. A decade later, he has become a renowned innate master, and the reputation of the Four Directions Martial Arts School resonates throughout the city. The original self was merely a lowly pawn, a bottom-tier member of the Dadao gang. Today, the original self accompanied the gang's leader, Xing Yong, to ambush members of the Blood Wolf gang in the alley, leading to an intense battle. In the heat of the moment, the original self advanced too recklessly and was struck down by Sun Kuei, the leader of the Blood Wolf gang, known as Mad Demon Stick. The blow proved fatal. Death is but a trivial concern, whether it be Sun Kuei or Sun Jindong. They hold no significance to Chen Mu. Yet, the original self's obsession inexplicably lingered, to slay the treacherous Sun. Does this imply that Chen Mu must periodically rage against Sun Jindong, even if he refrains from killing him? The dilemma lies in the fact that Sun Jindong is a celebrated innate master throughout the city, while Chen Mu is merely a small fry with no means to take him down. Who is quite impressive. A deep voice resonated as a man of modest height, just over 5 feet, with robust limbs and sinewy muscles approached. A ghastly scar traversed his right cheek from forehead to chin, and his gaze was as sharp as an eagle's. Big brother. The surrounding gang members hastily paid their respects. The newcomer was none other than the leader, Xing Yong. Your earlier declaration displayed great courage, he remarked, eyeing Chen Mu before addressing the crowd. In today's skirmish, we lost 3 brothers, yet 6 of Mad Sons fell. You all demonstrated commendable valor, especially you, Who, for daring to challenge Sun Kuei. Such audacity deserves recognition. We must all learn from his example. Only through collective effort can we vanquish Mad Sun and seize Chonglu Street. Once we claim Chonglu Street, we shall revel in wealth, drink heartily, feast on meat, and indulge in the company of women. Laughter erupted among the crowd. They then unified in their chant, slay Mad Sun and seize Chonglu Street. Satisfied, Xing Yong nodded and departed. Is that all? This grand vision seems overly ambitious, Chen Mu muttered to himself. rising from the ground and watching Xing Yang's retreating figure with skepticism. Be more cautious next time. Huang Feiyang patted Chen Mu on the shoulder, saying nothing further as he turned to tend to his wounds. Chen Mu was about to retort but hesitated. Huang Feiyang was even more dedicated, being Xing Yang's top enforcer. Reflecting on the original self's taciturn nature, Chen Mu decided to temper his response. A change in character is inevitable when one assumes a new identity. However, patience is paramount. One must proceed slowly. The other gang members began to clear the battleground, and Chen Mu, adhering to past behaviors, lent a hand. As he passed by a lifeless body, a prompt suddenly appeared. Discover a corpse. Do you wish to loot? Chen Mu paused, glancing around to see everyone preoccupied with their tasks. This prompt seemed to be visible only to him. Loot a corpse? Or perhaps extract something from it? After ensuring no one was watching him, he silently consented. Yes. The prompt has faded, leaving behind a profound silence, as if nothing had transpired. Was it merely an illusion? Chen Mu pondered in confusion. In the next moment, he felt a subtle sensation and reached into his pocket. Indeed, his fingertips brushed against a thin, rigid object. Simultaneously, an insight emerged within his mind. An energy card. The slender piece in his pocket was a functional card. By silently invoking its use, Chen Mu could acquire a surge of energy by murmuring the command to disintegrate. The card would vanish automatically. Was this a golden finger? An essential auxiliary for a transmigrator? Chen Mu's heart swelled with delight. Containing his excitement, he withdrew his hand, choosing to temporarily set the card aside as he assisted others in tidying the scene. As he passed by 2 additional corpses, he received notifications. Corpse detected. Would you like to collect? Corpse detected. Would you like to collect? Approaching within a meter of the bodies triggered the alerts. Chen Mu affirmed his choice and collected 2 more functional cards. One remained an energy card, while the other was a stamina card. 2 cards with distinct capabilities. With energy and stamina secured, he wondered if there were other abilities available. Perhaps a divine power card? The energy and stamina cards, when utilized, could instantly restore his vigor and resilience. However, no matter how robust his energy or stamina, they would not enhance his strength. Divine power, on the other hand, would be different. If he were to acquire a divine power card, would it grant him divine strength? Chapter 2. The third card, Strength of 1,000 pounds. There is hope. To slay Sun Jindong, there is indeed hope. Chen Mu suppressed the exhilaration bubbling within him. In this realm, death was commonplace. Gang wars, martial artist conflicts, rampant banditry, and even the authorities would periodically execute criminals in the marketplace. It could be said that corpses were never in short supply. Near the city, the place with the highest concentration of bodies was the unmarked graveyard. In an instant, Chen Mu made a resolute decision. He would venture to the graveyard outside the city. With a clear objective, he worked with renewed vigor. After assisting Huang Feiyang with the application of medicine, he, alongside others, transported the bodies of 3 fallen comrades back to their families. Those with relatives would have their remains returned. In the aftermath, a compensation of 10 taels of silver would be provided. For those without kin, the 10 taels would be saved, and the body would simply be wrapped in a tattered mat and buried hastily outside the city. Such was the devaluation of the lives of those at the lower echelons. Upon his arrival, Chen Mu helped carry the 3 corpses, a lingering shadow of gloom in his heart. Yet this also ignited his motivation to grow stronger. This endeavor was not merely to dispel the lingering attachments of his predecessor, but also to safeguard his own existence. Should he perish again, who could say whether another chance at transmigration awaited him? Nanyan Prefecture governs 9 counties. The prefectural city, with a resident population of 300,000, swells to over 500,000 when including transient individuals. Naturally, such a populous area necessitates multiple city gates, of which there are 4. This count excludes the inner city, where dignitaries and wealthy families reside, focusing solely on the outer city where the impoverished dwell. Chen Mu resided in the eastern district of the outer city. Exiting through the eastern gate and walking northeast for several miles led him to a desolate burial ground rarely trodden by human feet. In the afternoon, while the sun still hung in the sky, the grove of the burial ground was shrouded in an eerie gloom, with various foul odors permeating the air, most notably the stench of decay. Gritting his teeth, Chen Mu navigated through the myriad of corpses, each in a different state of demise. Before long, he received a notification. Discover a corpse. Would you like to collect? Yes, Chen Mu responded, retrieving a translucent card the size of a playing card. Encircled by a glow, during his exit from the city, he had tested the functionality of the card by waving it in front of others, only to find that no one could see it. This realization further assuaged his apprehension. A stamina card. Another stamina card, which he temporarily stowed away. Discover a corpse. Would you like to collect? Yes. Discover a corpse. Would you like to collect? Yes. He continued to walk, incessantly gathering cards. Energy card, stamina card, energy card, stamina card. His path was littered with these two types of cards. Initially, the thrill of acquiring functional cards had helped suppress his fear. But this repetitive gathering began to dampen his spirits. Was it possible that he could only collect these two types of cards? Chen Mu furrowed his brow. Energy cards and stamina cards, in excess of which would merely serve as mere trinkets. Discover a corpse. Would you like to collect? Yes, he instinctively replied. Obtaining yet another new card. A power card. At last, a new addition. Chen Mu halted, holding the new card, absorbing the information that materialized in his mind. Power card. It promised robust physique and increased strength. Increased strength. Excellent. Chen Mu rejoiced. Although it was not a divine power card, a power card was still commendable, capable of continuously fortifying his physique and augmenting his strength. The upper limit remained unknown for the moment. Use. Silently reciting the command. The power card transformed into a cascade of shimmering light that surged into Chen Mu's chest. In the next instant, his body tightened. Beads of sweat trickled down his forehead, face and back. The invigorating energy that coursed through him was cool and soothing, rapidly diffusing throughout his entire being, fortifying every limb and cell with an exquisite baptism. Once he had steadied himself, Chen Mu exhaled a deep breath. His strength had indeed increased. This much was evident to him. However, the precise extent of the increase remained uncertain, requiring further validation. Onward. Relaxing his body, Chen Mu continued to weave between the scattered corpses and rudimentary graves. After thoroughly exploring every corner of the burial ground, he had collected an additional 19 power cards, alongside several energy and stamina cards. During his gathering, Chen Mu noted that not every corpse yielded a card. Only corpses that have been deceased for approximately 3 days and have yet to undergo significant decomposition may be collected. This revelation led Chen Mu to understand that the so-called functional cards must pertain to abilities possessed by the deceased in life. What capabilities do ordinary individuals possess? Aside from physical strength and energy, essentially, it boils down to sheer force. To acquire other cards, one must seek out martial artists, preferably those who have recently passed. It seems he ought to explore the city further, Chen Mu pondered. With 20 powerful cards enhancing his being, he was uncertain of the extent of his current strength. Noticing that time was slipping away, Chen Mu departed from the unmarked graveyard and made his way back to the city. There was also a similar graveyard to the west of Nanyuan Prefecture. He resolved to visit that area tomorrow. Upon returning to the city, Chen Mu took a circuitous route, entering a street that was sparse with pedestrians. Glancing around to ensure he was unobserved, he approached a corner, spread his legs apart, and grasped a stone lion that was positioned against the wall with his right hand. Lift, he uttered in a low voice, and his arm muscles swelled as he effortlessly hoisted the stone lion with one hand before gently setting it down. Throughout this entire process, he made scarcely a sound. With a chuckle, Chen Mu withdrew his hand, massaging his wrist with a smile playing upon his lips. This stone lion weighed 300 pounds, and he had lifted it with ease. His strength was undoubtedly at least 1,000 pounds. 1,000 pounds of might. The efficacy of the powerful cards was indeed remarkable. Martial arts training is categorized into acquired and innate realms, each of which is further subdivided into 9 levels. The first level of the acquired realm equates to possessing 1,000 pounds of strength. Chen Mu had merely ventured to the unmarked graveyard to attain this strength. Naturally, while physical prowess is paramount, the overall strength of an acquired martial artist encompasses various aspects, including techniques, martial skills, weaponry, practical experience, and combat awareness. With his current power, Chen Mu had successfully taken the first step. Techniques, martial skills, he would eventually acquire them. In the Eastern District, Chongping Lane, and Hongzhou Alley, as dusk settled, Chen Mu returned home. In the dimly lit confines of his modest abode, where the oil lamp had yet to be ignited, stood a gentle-looking woman, dressed plainly yet exuding a warm demeanor. She was standing by a table that had a corner missing, retrieving food from a basket. Upon hearing footsteps, she turned and smiled. "Tiger, you're back. Go wash your hands. Dinner is ready." "All right, sister-in-law." Chen Mu nodded in acknowledgement, calling out as he went to fetch water with a gourd ladle. "You said to call me Xiao, yet you've forgotten again?" The woman blushed slightly, playfully chiding him, though her eyes subtly darted towards Huang Feiyang. "Next month it will be done." Huang Feiyang spoke calmly. Calling her in advance is just a way to get familiar. This statement caused Miao Xiaoxiao's face to flush a deep crimson, her ears heating up as well. "What do you mean by familiar?" "I don't know what you're talking about," she stammered, hastily laying out all the food on the table before grabbing her basket and making a swift exit. "Please. You two eat first, I will tidy up later." With a tremulous voice, she fled through the small courtyard gate and vanished from sight. "Brother, you have finally come to your senses," Chen Mu remarked with an air of seriousness after washing his hands. "If you do not marry soon, by next year. When I have saved enough money, I shall propose to Sister Xiaoxiao myself. Get lost. Huang Feiyang retorted irritably. Why are you so chatty today? Usually, you can't even muster a word. Let us eat. Chen Mu's lips curled into a smile as he ceased speaking and picked up his chopsticks to enjoy dinner. Miao Xiaoxiao had grown up alongside Huang Feiyang, their bond akin to that of childhood sweethearts. After Huang Feiyang, an orphan, was rescued by Chen Mu and taken in as a distant cousin, Miao Xiaoxiao extended her care to him as well. These two individuals were undoubtedly Chen Mu's most cherished family in this world. The next day, before dawn, Huang Feiyang rose early, as was his custom, to assist Miao Xiaoxiao in grinding tofu. She had set up a tofu stall on the streets of Changpingfeng, and Chen Mu did not dissuade him. Though Huang Feiyang's injuries appeared severe, they were merely superficial. His other arm remained intact and capable of the task. The impoverished do not possess such luxuries. Chen Mu lingered in bed until morning before washing up and stepping out to the street for a bowl of soy milk and 2 steamed cornbreads. After greeting Huang Feiyang, he made his way to the city gate, heading towards the chaotic burial grounds in the west. As he passed a street corner, he suddenly heard a commotion. Who is this? Such a tragic death. The assailant was ruthless. It looks like the stomach was completely torn apart. Those who wander the underworld seldom meet a good end. It was only a matter of time before they ended up lifeless in the streets, and here it is, a grim reality. Voices of various discussions reached Chen Mu's ears, and his eyes brightened. Had a martial artist from the underworld met their demise? Chapter 3. A surge of kill intent. Resolutely, Chen Mu turned back into the street. Catching sight of a crowd gathered, pointing and murmuring towards the center, he hastened forward and squeezed into the throng. Soon, he beheld a middle-aged man, approximately 40, with a stubbly face and disheveled hair, lying on the ground. The man bore wounds on his chest, abdomen, and shoulders. His entire abdomen had been pierced countless times by a sharp blade, and nearly all of his internal organs lay in ruin. Vivid red blood pooled around him, congealed, indicating that death had come some time ago. Feigning curiosity, Chen Mu edged closer to the corpse. Discovering the body, will you collect? Yes. The card is in hand. Maintaining a facade of nonchalance, Chen Mu stepped back from the crowd. Upon exiting, he reached into his pocket and felt an additional new card with his fingertips. A skill card. It was indeed different. Suppressing his excitement, Chen Mu activated the card. In an instant, a surge of information flooded his mind, accompanied by a tremor coursing through his limbs. Gritting his teeth and holding his breath, he swiftly turned into a narrow alley, retreating to a corner to endure the transformation of his body. This skill card was unmistakably a martial technique. The heart-piercing sword is a lethal technique comprised of a singular, formidable strike. It emphasizes swiftness, ferocity, and precision. It does not require the innate energy typically possessed by seasoned martial artists. Even an ordinary individual, including a child, can achieve proficiency in this technique through diligent practice, enabling them to take lives. The middle-aged man who perished in the street had mastered the heart-piercing sword to an extraordinary level of skill. Chen Mu utilized a card, swiftly replicating this unparalleled technique within mere moments. Taking a deep breath to calm his exhilaration, Chen Mu tightened his fists and executed a powerful swing. The capabilities of the new card exceeded his expectations. The martial prowess possessed by the deceased martial artist was transferred to him upon acquiring the card, granting him the same level of mastery. This was exhilarating. He possessed the skill without the arduous training. After a series of deep breaths to stabilize his emotions, Chen Mu regained his composure. He glanced back at the position of the fallen man, offering a respectful bow. He then turned and strode away. At that moment, he heard the voice of the constables approaching, urging the crowd to disperse. Step aside, everyone. It's just a dead man. What is there to see? The heart-piercing sword is a sword technique, and though it consists of only one strike, it is still a form of martial art requiring a sword to unleash its power. However, weapons are prohibitively expensive. Even a simple iron sword costs several dozen taels of silver, with the cheapest still amounting to at least 10 taels. As a low-ranking member of the Blade Gang, Chen Mu earned between 3 to 8 taels a month, barely enough to sustain himself, let alone afford a weapon. Thus, Chen Mu devised a compromise. He visited the blacksmith and purchased a 3-foot-long iron rod, sharpening one end while wrapping the other with hemp rope for a better grip. Thus, a rudimentary yet effective stabbing weapon was born. Concealing it close to him, he felt a surge of courage walking the streets. For 7 consecutive days, Chen Mu traversed the area. After venturing to the western mass grave, he amassed 36 powerful cards, along with several energy and stamina cards. Utilizing all the strength cards, he significantly enhanced his physical condition, boosting his strength to over 2,000 pounds. However, following this bountiful harvest, the number of cards collected dwindled, as bodies were not discarded in mass graves every day. Chen Mu visited the two mass graves every 3 days, spending the rest of his time wandering through the city. Gang members were required to patrol their territory daily. However, the original Chen Mu had never patrolled. He charged into battles without heed for his life. With Huang Feiyong watching over him, the other gang members remained silent. Chen Mu thus inherited this reckless disposition, seeking out fights wherever they erupted, be it in the East District, West District, South District, or North District. Certainly, when venturing into other districts, a simple guise was adopted. Over the course of several days, encounters with brawls were frequent, with only one fatality, and by the time he arrived, the body had already been taken by the constables to the coroner's office, leaving Chen Mu unable to make contact. Lacking a corpse, Chen Mu's pace slackened. On this day, as he returned to Chongping Fong, passing by the adjacent Changlong Fong, he suddenly heard a loud shout, followed by a throng of people rushing out into the street. Onlookers hastily stepped aside. Chen Mu initially intended to avoid the commotion, but soon recognized the fleeing figures as members of the Big Knife Gang, led by none other than Huang Feiyong. Without hesitation, he quickened his pace to follow. "Zhou Shu, what has transpired?" Chen Mu queried as he caught up with a burly man in his 40s, whose face was marred by a scar over his left eye. This was the very man he had first encountered upon his arrival, surnamed Zhou. Though his given name remained unknown, the Blood Wolf Gang's pups have overstepped their bounds. Zhou replied while running. Dahu received word and immediately summoned us to deal with them. We cannot let this pack run amok. Indeed, such inter-gang conflicts did occasionally arise, and typically, the resolution required merely driving off the intruders without bloodshed. Chen Mu felt reassured as he followed the throng. Who was that who rallied the crowd just now? He inquired. At a nearby tavern, on a second-floor balcony, two men clad in long robes observed the departing members of the Big Knife Gang. One remarked, "What a compelling call to arms. It seems to be Huang Feiyong, from the neighboring Chongping Fong." The other responded with a chuckle. This Huang Feiyong, nicknamed the Mountain Tiger, holds considerable renown in the Big Knife Gang, famed for his audacity and willingness to fight. It is said he has taken several lives. Huh, what Mountain Tiger? Merely a street thug. Does he truly merit such a title? Scoffed the first man, his disdain evident. What does it matter how fierce he may be? He remains just a ruffian, perhaps the leader of ruffians, but still beneath the true hierarchy. Huang Feiyong isn't even a true leader yet. True. Yet he possesses a sense of loyalty that endears him to many followers. Just as we witnessed moments ago, a multitude rushed to his side to confront the Blood Wolf Gang. With such charisma, it is likely he will ascend to a leadership position in due time. What charisma? He will inevitably find himself lifeless in the streets, the first man retorted with scorn. Let us not dwell on these ruffians any longer. Come, let us continue our drinking. With that, he turned to re-enter the establishment. Very well, the second man acquiesced, following closely behind. Neither noticed that just above them, Xingyong leaned against the window, his expression dark and foreboding. A sense of loyalty? Many willing to heed Huang Feiyong's words? In due time, he might become a leader? Huang Feiyong was but a subordinate to him. Xingyong, the foremost enforcer, was also his underling. If Huang Feiyong were to ascend, what role would he, the elder brother, play? The street had returned to normalcy, the calls of various vendors rising and falling in the air. By the window on the third floor, Xingyong's face was as solemn as water, his hawk-like eyes radiating a murderous intent. Chapter 4. Special Skills. The Celestial Wolf Sniffs the Moon. After delivering a thorough beating to the fallen dogs, several members of the Blood Wolf Gang, bruised and battered, were expelled from the territory of the Blade Gang. This pack of wolves should have their legs broken if they dare to return. A robust man in his 30s, with a broad waist and sturdy arms, rubbed his wrist and coldly uttered a command. After speaking, he turned to Huang Feiyong beside him, grinning. "Thank you, Dahu, for rushing over to assist so promptly today." "Ah, I just happened to be nearby," Huang Feiyong replied modestly. "Now that the wolves have been driven away, let us not disturb Boss Yu any further. We should take our leave." "Leave? Not a chance." Yu Baoyong interrupted with a wave of his hand. "How can I let you go back with empty stomachs after helping out? Tonight, I shall treat you all, brothers. Follow me to the Spring Breeze Pavilion for a hearty drink." No, it's really unnecessary," Huang Feiyong quickly declined. Yet, Yu Baoyong, undeterred, draped his arm over Huang Feiyong's shoulder and forcibly guided him toward the tavern. The others excitedly followed, shouting their thanks to Boss Yu. Yu Baoyong, like Xingyong, was also a leader of the Blade Gang. Xingyong was in charge of the streets in Changpingfang, while Yu Baoyong oversaw the 2 streets in Changlongfang. The 2 districts were adjacent to one another. In terms of population, Changpingfang had more residents, but they were primarily impoverished and destitute. Only the central streets of the district had merchants, the other streets were devoid of business. In contrast, Changlongfang was far more prosperous. The two streets under Yu Baoliang's jurisdiction had more lucrative opportunities compared to those in Changpingfeng. Of course, when it came to foot traffic and shops, the East District was the most bustling, boasting the longest and most vibrant street, Changle Street. Chongping, Changlong, and Changde each had sections that bordered Changle Street. The territories of the Blade Gang in Chongping and Changlong faced off against the domain of the Blood Wolf Gang across the way. The two gangs frequently clashed over the ownership of the sections adjacent to Changle Street. Xing Yong was determined to seize the roads in Chongping, yet he had not succeeded thus far. Meanwhile, Yu Baoliang had already secured the streets in Changlong. With the responsibility of overseeing two streets in the marketplace and guarding the bordering section of Changle Street, Yu Baoliang found his manpower somewhat lacking. Specifically, there was a shortage of capable fighters. Huang Feiyong, the fierce tiger descending the mountain, was not someone he could afford to let slip away. Indeed, Yu Baoliang was intent on recruiting Huang Feiyong. This was evident to many observers. Chen Mu was not surprised. He had been careless. It was only after following out that Chen Mu realized Blood Wolf Gang members had encroached, and Xing Yong had not made an appearance. Yet, Huang Feiyong had charged in with a group. Since they were all members of the Blade Gang, it was no issue to lend a hand. The problem was, in Chen Mu's memory, Xing Yong was not a magnanimous individual. Huang Feiyong led a group to Changlongfeng, which can be interpreted as either a noble act of camaraderie in defense of the interests of the Dedeo Gang or as an overreaching presumption, disregarding the hierarchy. It ultimately depends on one's perspective. Yu Baoliang still sought to recruit Huang Feiyong. Regardless of the outcome, it would likely be a slap in Xing Yong's face. Brother, for similar matters in the future, it would be prudent not to involve yourself, Chen Mu suggested gravely to Huang Feiyong upon returning home after dinner, voicing his concern that Xing Laoda might overthink the situation. Huang Feiyong fell into a moment of silence before responding in a low voice. Understood. Observing this, Chen Mu maintained his serious demeanor and inquired, Brother, you don't truly intend to switch your allegiance to Yu Laoda, do you? Absolutely not, Huang Feiyong replied, raising his hand as he stood to fetch a towel. Don't overthink it. It was merely a routine assistance. The boss is not that petty. After saying this, he took the towel and stepped outside to wash up. Xing Yong not petty? Chen Mu scoffed inwardly, recalling the memories associated with Xing Yong. He knew that this leader was most adept at rallying slogans, driven by fiery passion, yet offering scant tangible benefits. With the exception of a few confidants, he seldom paid attention to others, let alone provided care, including Huang Feiyong, his chief enforcer. The only consistent support was the monthly stipend, personally distributed by those from the Diligent Affairs Hall, with each member collecting their share. If Xing Yong were to handle it, the subordinates would be fortunate to receive even half of their due. It was imperative to grow stronger. Chen Mu clenched his fists. Only by strengthening himself could he take control of his own destiny and eliminate Sun Jindong. Last night, he had roused the Dedeo Gang's Changpingfeng division with cries of vengeance against the traitor Sun. Yu Baoliang had invited Huang Feiyong and his companions to the Chunfeng Pavilion for a feast, where he repeatedly praised Huang Feiyong. It seemed Yu Laoda held Huang Feiyong in high regard. After receiving this report from his subordinate, Xing Yong let out a cold laugh, his already grim countenance growing darker. In the room stood 4 individuals, all of whom were Xing Yong's trusted confidants. As they listened to his derisive laughter, one of them slowly raised his hand and spoke. Brother, should we? He gestured as if to slice across his own neck. Fool. Xing Yong glared at him. Do you wish for the people of the punishment hall to linger here every day? The 4 confidants fell silent. Resorting to violence was the easiest route, yet it would lead to considerable complications. Within the Dedeo Gang's territory, should a life be lost, those overseeing the punishment hall would undoubtedly investigate thoroughly. Eliminating a foe need not always involve bloodshed. Xing Yong's voice turned low, his gaze sharp as a hawk's, revealing a glint of ruthlessness. As dawn broke, the sun rose into a clear sky, heralding a new day. Chen Mu awoke, washed, and after a modest breakfast, set off towards the city gates. He first visited the nearby Potter's Field, where he scavenged for a stamina card. He then turned towards the Western Potter's Field, where he found another stamina card along with an energy card. Departing from the mass grave, as Chen Mu made his way back to the city, he noticed a gathering of individuals at the foot of a distant mountain, faint cries echoing through the wind. Were there fatalities? Curiosity piqued. He veered off the main path toward the mountain's base. As he drew nearer, he could discern a flurry of discussion. Wu Matzi has acted in a most inhumane manner. How dearly old who cherished his dog. Does anyone in the village remain unaware? Indeed, that was a hunting dog, old who relied upon it for his pursuits. Now that it has passed, it deserves a proper burial. Yet, Wu Matzi had unearthed the corpse, seeking to consume its flesh. Would he perish if he did not partake of this meat? Strike. Strike hard. Such a beast, unworthy of life, must be dealt with. Chen Mu positioned himself at the rear of the crowd, listening for a moment, rendered speechless. The bond shared between a hunter and his dog is something that outsiders cannot fathom. The sorrow that accompanies the loss of a long-loved pet is profound. And how much more so for a devoted hunting dog, ever loyal and protective. Unearthing the body of a hunting dog to feast upon its flesh. He deserved to be punished. Observing the scrawny man with a face full of pockmarks being beaten mercilessly by a robust figure, Chen Mu shook his head, retracting his gaze. He turned to leave. Yet, from the corner of his eye, he spotted a black dog-esque corpse lying in a wooden box within an excavated pit, not far off. After a moment of hesitation, he approached. Discover corpse, will you collect? Could it truly be? As Chen Mu reached the edge of the pit, his eyes widened in astonishment. The dog was deceased, yet he could collect a card? No way. During the past few days, he had encountered the corpses of both cats and dogs without any notifications. Yet, this hunting dog had yielded one. Could it be? With a thrill of realization, Chen Mu glanced back at the dog's remains before turning away. Among the discussing crowd, a few noticed him, but paid little mind. Passers-by, attracted by the commotion, approached to witness the spectacle, deeming it of little consequence. As Chen Mu retraced his steps toward the main road, he reached into his pocket, feeling the newly emerged card with his fingertips. A skill card. Another skill card, but with a distinctive mark. A special skill? He silently invoked its use. And the card transformed into a stream of light that surged into his being. In the next moment, his body trembled as a flood of information filled his mind. Special skill, Heavenly Wolf Scent of the Moon. Chapter 5, A Surprise. Heavenly Wolf Scent of the Moon. Olfactory Prowess. This card bestowed upon Chen Mu an extraordinary sense of smell. Wolves are already known for their acute sense of scent, capable of detecting odors from 5 miles away. The Heavenly Wolf Scent of the Moon doubled that range to 10 miles. Within a 10-mile radius, Chen Mu could perceive all scents. What a delightful surprise. This was truly astonishing. Suddenly, Chen Mu bent over and retched violently. The activation of Heavenly Wolf Scent of the Moon unleashed a torrent of various scents that assaulted his senses, overwhelming his mind. The sheer intensity of this sensation was unbearable. He hastily deactivated it, narrowly avoiding fainting. With a gentle exhalation and a steady breath, Chen Mu stepped away from the main path and sought a secluded corner. He held his breath for a moment before gradually activating the celestial wolf's lunar scent, allowing it to unfurl little by little. This extraordinary skill, while powerful, required a period of acclimatization. If unleashed all at once, the overwhelming cacophony of various scents, sweet, foul, and decayed, would assail one's senses, proving unbearable for any human being. It took Chen Mu a full half-hour to barely adjust, and after another half-hour, he was completely accustomed to it. At this juncture, he endeavored to exert control over his newfound abilities. The nuances of distance, the discernment of sense, and the mastery of direction all demanded careful regulation. This trial consumed even more time. It was not until 2 hours had elapsed that he had achieved a basic level of control. By then, afternoon had arrived. Chen Mu did not feel hunger. He merely retrieved his water pouch and took a few sips. Revitalized, he stood tall and fully unleashed the celestial wolf's lunar scent. Gently closing his eyes, with his heightened sense of smell substituting for vision, he began to perceive his surroundings. The fragrances of grass and foliage, the earthy aroma of soil, and the scent of insects unveiled an entirely new world, gradually unfolding within his mind. However, it was not long before he had to pause once again. This time, it was not due to an overwhelming array of scents, but rather an inability of his mind to keep pace. To perceive the world through scent required not only an extraordinary olfactory sense, but also a substantial expenditure of mental energy. The mental fatigue accumulated rapidly. It was a drain that even the most potent restorative could not replenish, and even if one managed to catch up, the strain on the spirit could be significant, leading to potential harm. Thus, after a brief respite, Chen Mu activated the celestial wolf's lunar scent once more, this time disregarding all other odors and honing in solely on the scent of blood and decay. After 10 minutes, he indeed detected something. A flicker of joy crossed his eyes as he inhaled delicately. The next instant, he set off briskly, distancing himself from the open field and entering the forest. Arriving at the base of a rocky cliff, ahead lay a ravine with a nearly 100-meter drop. Tall trees and dense underbrush obscured the view, concealing the scene within the ravine. Nevertheless, the celestial wolf's lunar scent detected the unmistakable stench of decay emanating from within. The odor of rot was not overwhelming, indicating that the time of death was no more than 3 days past. Crucially, the number of bodies amounted to 5. Without hesitation, Chen Mu took decisive action. He returned to the forest and gathered several long, sturdy vines, weaving them into a makeshift rope. Tying one end to a large tree at the cliff's edge, He let the other end dangle down into the ravine. Grasping the vines, he descended slowly to the bottom, following the scent until he discovered the 5 bodies, 3 men and 2 women. Their appearances suggested they were wanderers of the martial world, and their conditions were eerily similar. As Chen Mu drew closer, he encountered a prompt. Body discovered. Will you collect it? Yes. Body discovered. Will you collect it? Yes. He collected 5 cards in succession. Touching each one, a smile crept upon his lips. Skill cards. Skill cards. Skill cards. 3 skill cards. There are 2 inner strength cards. This represents yet another novel type of card. The inner strength card grants Chen Mu a certain level of inner strength immediately upon use, eliminating the need for arduous training. One card lasts for 2 months, while the other extends just over a month. What does this signify? It means that upon utilizing these 2 cards, Chen Mu can instantly acquire just over 3 months' worth of inner strength. However, this externally sourced inner strength dissipates once consumed, as it does not originate from Chen Mu himself. Once depleted, it cannot be restored, nor can it remain within his body for an extended period, much less facilitate a breakthrough in his cultivation realm. The realm is indeed paramount. Fortunately, the 3 skill cards hold remarkable surprises. Among them, one skill card astonishingly records a profound internal cultivation technique. This method can cultivate inner strength unique to oneself, thereby facilitating breakthroughs in one's cultivation. The Changchun Gong is far rarer than martial skills. Among the thousands in the Dadao gang, many possess martial prowess, yet scarcely 10 have ever cultivated internal techniques. Should this Changchun Gong be presented externally, countless individuals would vie for it. However, there lies a slight drawback. While the entry into Changchun Gong is relatively easy, achieving mastery is exceedingly challenging. This internal cultivation is akin to a slow grind, emphasizing balance and tranquility, promoting longevity. It offers no enhancement for combat, though it does provide healing benefits. Typically, it may take several years to advance even a single level. The skill card detailing Changchun Gong encompasses only 6 levels, and Chen Mu can swiftly grasp the insights and experiences of the first 3 levels. Thus, for these initial 3 levels, Chen Mu need only follow the established method and replicate it. With the inner strength card, replication becomes unnecessary. He can simply duplicate the results. The combination of the internal cultivation skill card and the inner strength card is truly a match made in heaven. However, utilizing the inner strength card to transcend realms demands substantial consumption, as it relies on external inner strength rather than his own. This reverse cultivation through external inner strength differs fundamentally from traditional training. In a certain sense, the inner strength within the inner strength cards is akin to a medicinal pill. Yet this extraordinary medicinal pill carries no side effects, allowing for direct absorption, contingent solely on Chen Mu's capacity to assimilate it. Consequently, reverse cultivation through the inner strength card entails significant consumption. The higher the realm, the greater the quantity required for breakthroughs. The other 2 skill cards are also commendable. One details the meteor needle, classified as a concealed weapon technique, reaching the entry-level stage. The other describes the gecko technique, a form of light footwork, achieving a comprehensive understanding. There are several variations of light footwork, including combat-oriented evasive maneuvers, supportive high leaps, short bursts of speed, or long-distance sprinting specifically for travel. The gecko technique allows for effortless climbing, as if traversing flat ground. Chen Mu sequentially employed these 2 cards, experiencing a delightful tremor throughout his limbs, tendons, muscles, and bones, all receiving fortification. He swiftly mastered the 2 martial arts. In the next moment, with a swift motion, Chen Mu lightly pressed his toes against the ground, propelling himself into the air. He danced upon the underbrush, tree trunks, and rocky cliffs, performing several leaps until he found himself aloft above the mountainside. The vines were no longer necessary. Such is the advantage of possessing lightness skills. One can depart at will, suppressing the upward curl of his lips. Chen Mu untied the vine secured to the tree, casting it into the ravine before brushing off his hands and turning to leave. Upon returning to the city, he discovered Huang Feiyang was not home. Chen Mu entered the room and sat cross-legged upon the bed. He retrieved an internal energy card, silently invoking its power. In an instant, a wave of refreshing energy surged within him, coursing through his meridians. Chen Mu immediately commenced the practice of Changchun Gong, guiding this energy to refine his physique while converting it into his own internal power. Again and again, he repeated the process, cycling the energy through his body. After 3 minutes, the external energy was depleted. Without hesitation, he activated a second internal energy card, summoning yet another surge of vitality within. Internal power is cultivated through the diligent practice of internal arts, refining blood and energy through repetition. Chen Mu, having first accessed external energy, then reversed the flow to propel his internal cultivation, thereby consolidating his personal strength. He truly was a pioneer in this endeavor. Consequently, the seemingly laborious Changchun Gong posed no challenge. In less than 5 minutes, Chen Mu achieved a breakthrough. With a swift transition of technique, as he mobilized his internal energy, his skin radiated a lustrous bronze hue. This was the hallmark of a practitioner who had reached the initial stage of postnatal martial arts. Chapter 6. Poison in the Dish. A martial artist at the first stage of postnatal power possesses skin as resilient as tanned leather, able to withstand ordinary blows without leaving a mark. Under the flow of internal energy, his skin gleamed with a bronzed sheen. He could lift weights of 300 pounds with a single arm. As he ceased his practice, Chen Mu took a deep breath. Becoming a martial artist did not evoke the excitement he had anticipated. Perhaps it was because he understood it was merely a matter of time. Gaining the ability to retrieve cards from corpses was a foreseen outcome. Yet, there remained a considerable distance to go before he could confront Sun Jindong. Nevertheless, with postnatal achievement secured, the innate stage was not far off. Voices echoed from outside the door. Huang Feiyong had returned, accompanied by Miao Xiuxiu. Chen Mu rose from the bed, stretching his limbs before striding towards the door. Upon opening it, he asked, "Is Huzi in the house?" Hearing his voice, Miao Xiuxiu turned and smiled, saying, "Quickly wash your hands. Dinner is ready." "All right, sister-in-law." Chen Mu replied casually as he stepped outside. Miao Xiuxiu's cheeks flushed, yet she refrained from stopping him, happily setting the table. As Chen Mu walked past the table, he suddenly halted, his nose twitching as he caught a whiff of something unusual. In the next moment, his expression shifted, and he swiftly snatched the chopsticks from Huang Feiyong's hands, who had just lifted them to pick up food. "Don't eat yet," Chen Mu said in a low voice. "What are you doing?" Huang Feiyong halted, frowning as he asked. "There are more than just these chopsticks. You could use another pair. The food is poisoned." Chen Mu replied calmly. Huang Feiyong suddenly rose to his feet, while Miao Xiuxiu's face turned pale as a ghost, her body swaying as tears welled up in her eyes. She gazed incredulously at Chen Mu. "What nonsense are you spouting?" Huang Feiyong's eyes widened in fury, trembling as he reached out toward Chen Mu. With a swift motion, Chen Mu dismissed his hand, his expression cold and composed. "This has nothing to do with your sister-in-law. The poison was added after the dish was prepared." This was the essence of the skill known as Tianlang smelling the moon, which allowed him to discern the aromas of all the seasonings and the ingredients themselves. Coupled with the fact that this was not his first experience with Miao Xiuxiu's cooking, he was intimately familiar with her culinary prowess. That evening, the 3 dishes bore an intangible scent distinct from the ingredients and seasonings. Furthermore, this scent had not mingled with the seasonings or ingredients, nor had it been subjected to the high temperatures of cooking. What did this signify? It indicated that the poison was added only after the dishes were plated. Huang Feiyong, momentarily at a loss, stared wide-eyed, his anger dissipating into confusion. "How do you know this?" Chen Mu disregarded his question and turned to Miao Xiuxiu, asking, "Sister-in-law, did you leave the kitchen after preparing the dishes?" "No," Miao Xiuxiu replied, momentarily baffled. But after uttering those 2 words, a realization struck her. Her eyes widened as she stammered, "I did leave for a moment. After finishing the dishes, Aunt Ju called for me outside the door, and I stepped out to see her." "Aunt Ju was trying to kill us?" Huang Feiyong exclaimed in shock, disbelief etched across his face. "Not her," Chen Mu replied, unfazed. As he analyzed the situation, "Aunt Ju is merely a pawn in this scheme, calling your sister-in-law away to facilitate the poisoning by another." There was an unspoken truth that Chen Mu refrained from voicing. Such a colorless, odorless poison would be beyond Aunt Ju's financial means or access. Then who could it be? Huang Feiyong forced himself to regain his composure. "We must seek out Aunt Ju for answers. The clues lie with her." With that, Chen Mu gathered the 3 dishes back into the basket, hoisting it up as he made his way toward the exit. "Let us also test the potency of this poison," he stated. "Test the poison? How do we do that?" Huang Feiyong questioned, following closely behind. Miao Xiuxiu, still in a state of confusion, instinctively trailed after them. The trio exited the courtyard, with Chen Mu leading the way toward Aunt Ju's residence. However, upon passing a dilapidated house, he came to a halt and poured the contents of the basket into a corner. Huang Feiyong and Miao Xiuxiu opened their mouths to speak, yet no words emerged. Having come this far, with the dishes discarded, further discussion seemed futile. In the silence that followed, the 2 followed Chen Mu until they found a spot to pause under an eave, watching from a distance as a gaunt stray dog emerged from the corner of the crumbling house. The dog cautiously surveyed its surroundings, ensuring no one lay in ambush, before pouncing upon the discarded food, devouring it voraciously. As a result, half of the meal remained untouched when, suddenly, a muffled gasp escaped, and the dog collapsed onto the ground, its limbs convulsing and its body twitching, black blood oozing from its mouth, nose, eyes, and ears. Miao Xiaoxiao covered her mouth, trembling uncontrollably, her legs growing weak, on the verge of collapsing when Huang Feiyong hurriedly caught her. Yet, unbeknownst to him, his lips and hands were also quaking. It was indeed true. Until the moment the stray dog fell, Huang Feiyong had clung to a flicker of hope, believing Chen Mu had merely been provoked, leading him to harbor suspicions. However, witnessing the stray dog consume the food and swiftly perish, bleeding black from all its orifices, extinguished any remnants of hope, confusion, or dissatisfaction, replaced instead by profound dread. Let us discuss this later, Chen Mu interjected, raising his hand. We must see Aunt Juhua first. Yes, yes, Huang Feiyong swallowed hard, gritting his teeth. Let us go see Aunt Juhua. Miao Xiaoxiao said nothing, tears streaming down her face. The thought that she had almost caused the demise of Huang Feiyong and Chen Mu pierced her heart with agony, leaving her breathless. Chen Mu noticed, but refrained from commenting. Such matters could only be endured by those directly involved. The journey was shrouded in silence, and soon they arrived at Aunt Juhua's residence. With a swift kick, Huang Feiyong flung open the closed door, barking, "Chen Juhua, come out." Startled, Aunt Juhua's elderly husband, upon recognizing the visitor, quickly approached with a forced smile, inquiring, "What seems to be the matter, Brother Dao?" Huang Feiyong ignored him, fixing his fierce gaze on Chen Juhua, who stood by the stove, head bowed. "Juhua." Huang Feiyong enunciated each word with clenched teeth. "I believe I have never wronged you." Before he could finish, Chen Juhua's legs buckled, and she fell to the ground, crying out, "It was not intentional. I was merely momentarily bewitched. It was Guzi. He offered me a large sum to persuade Xiaoxiao." As she trembled, she fumbled from her pocket, producing a coin and shakily extending it. "This is it." Huang Feiyong, Miao Xiaoxiao, and Aunt Juhua's husband were momentarily taken aback. The few words exchanged revealed a considerable amount of information, leaving the three in shock. Only Chen Mu remained composed, pulling Huang Feiyong aside and heading for the exit. "I will find Ergo. I will accompany you." Huang Feiyong snapped back to reality, promptly following, while also grasping Miao Xiaoxiao's hand. "Xiaoxiao, can you return? Go stay with Lily until I come back. Do not return home, nor to my place." "All right," Miao Xiaoxiao, in a daze, instinctively replied. After a moment, she regained her senses and tremulously added, "You must be careful." "We will." Huang Feiyong managed to smile, waving goodbye to Miao Xiaoxiao before striding away. Erguzi, whose full name is Wang Ergu, is notorious in Chongping for being a local ruffian, idly roaming about without engaging in any honest work. He is often found pilfering from one place or another. It did not take long for Chen Mu and Huang Feiyong to track him down. Upon spotting the two from a distance, Wang Ergu was startled and instinctively turned to flee. This sudden flight ignited the pent-up fury within Huang Feiyong, who let out a low growl and gave chase. Wang Ergu, having only sprinted a little over 100 meters, was swiftly overtaken and cornered in a narrow alley. Cowering and clutching his head, he cried out amidst Huang Feiyong's kicks, "It was Brother Bao who made me do it. I know nothing. It was all on Brother Bao's orders." Huang Feiyong, without the need for severe interrogation, elicited a confession from him after just a few blows. However, it is understandable. One cannot expect loyalty from a mere scoundrel. "Brother Bao?" Chen Mu pulled Huang Feiyong back and squatted down to look at Wang Ergu, softly inquiring, "Are you referring to Lu Bao?" Yes, yes, yes." Wang Ergu nodded vigorously. That's him. That's him. "Brother who?" "Brother Eru. I truly know nothing. I was just following Brother Bao's orders to send Chen Juhua to call people at Miao Xiaoxiao's door. I swear I know nothing else." By the end of his plea, Wang Ergu's voice quivered with a hint of tears. Yet, Huang Feiyong paid him no mind, stepping back, bewildered. Chen Mu straightened up, glanced at Huang Feiyong, said nothing, and turned to leave. The one who poisoned was Lu Bao, and Lu Bao is one of Xing Yang's trusted subordinates. The case is cracked. The mastermind behind the poisoning is none other than Xing Yang. Chapter 7. The Genius Persona. The scheme to poison Huang Feiyong and simultaneously eliminate Chen Mu was initially flawless. Since the meal was prepared by Miao Xiaoxiao, who personally delivered it, as soon as Huang Feiyong and Chen Mu finished eating, they would meet their demise, allowing the murderer to be apprehended shortly thereafter. Miao Xiaoxiao. As for the motive for the murder, it would likely go unnoticed. Even if it were acknowledged, there would be ample explanations. Chen Juhua might sense something amiss, but only a fool would voice it. Wang Ergu was no different. He wouldn't even have the chance to speak out. Once Huang Feiyong and Chen Mu were dead, Xing Yang would probably instruct Lu Bao to silence Wang Ergu. The disappearance of a petty thug would raise no concern. Unfortunately for Xing Yang, Chen Mu was fortunate today, having obtained the celestial wolf's keen sense. His plan was cut short, only halfway through. On the way home, Chen Mu led the way while Huang Feiyong followed closely, with neither uttering a word. Suddenly, Huang Feiyong broke the silence, his tone a mix of confusion, anger, and sorrow. "Why?" Because you threatened his position, Chen Mu replied calmly. Huang Feiyang's body tensed. And in the next moment, his fists clenched tightly. Indeed, Huang Feiyang posed a threat to Xingyang's leadership. The subordinates were far too powerful, and few were at ease in the role of a leader, especially one whose followers had considerable charisma. Xingyang is not yet in the twilight of his years. He is still in the prime of his life. He could easily maintain his position for another 2 decades. However, Huang Feiyang has risen rapidly, and he is remarkably youthful. To resort to assassination not only creates a significant uproar, but also invites considerable trouble thereafter. Betraying one's own and striking against kin is a grave taboo in the entire realm. Poisoning, however, is a far simpler endeavor. Miao Xiuxiu, the assassin, is readily available. After a brief moment of anger and astonishment, Huang Feiyang clenched his fists, his eyes ablaze with murderous intent as he ground his teeth, and declared, I will kill him. You and Xiuxiu must leave tonight. He was interrupted by Chen Mu, who noted, there are undoubtedly guards near the gate of Chongping Fong at this time, just as there are at Changlong Fong. They will not allow anyone to escape, especially since he has resolved to eliminate us. The murderous glint in Huang Feiyang's eyes intensified. Then we must hide. I know a secluded place. Hiding is only a temporary solution, Chen Mu interjected again. You may conceal yourselves for a moment, but not for eternity. As they spoke, the two entered their courtyard. Chen Mu strode directly towards the water vat in the corner. Huang Feiyang, still unwilling to relent, insisted, let us hide first. If I succeed, you will be safe. And if you fail? Chen Mu grasped the edge of the water vat and lifted it effortlessly. Fail. For a while? He wouldn't dare make a move. Huang Feiyang's words faltered as he gaped at Chen Mu, wide-eyed and dumbfounded. More specifically, he stared at the water vat that Chen Mu held aloft. The vat still contained a significant amount of water, weighing 300 to 400 pounds at least. Yet, Chen Mu lifted it with one hand, suspending it in midair. Is this real? Huang Feiyang gasped, his voice trembling. You are not mistaken. I have become a martial artist. Chen Mu replied calmly. While you were training at the martial arts school, I practiced in secret. One day, an elder passing by witnessed my training and deemed me a rare talent, claiming I was a genius seldom seen in a century. He took me as his disciple on the spot and taught me martial arts. I had no choice but to comply. Huang Feiyang. I understand this may be difficult to believe, but it is the truth. Chen Mu continued, his expression serious. After 3 months of training, I mastered 3 martial arts techniques. Discovering poison in the food was a manifestation of one of those skills. Just a few days ago, I broke through and officially became a martial artist. Upon finishing his statement, he set the vat down, sprang lightly on his toes, and leaped onto the roof. Huang Feiyang's mouth fell agape, his eyes widened in disbelief. The evidence speaks for itself. Regardless of how implausibly Chen Mu spun his tale, lifting a vat weighing several hundred pounds with one hand is undeniably true. As is leaping a considerable height from a standstill. Half a year ago, Huang Feiyang had spent money to join a martial arts school, and he had made modest progress in his palm technique. It was this very technique that earned him the moniker of Mountain Tiger. Training in martial arts is a costly endeavor. Currently, the monthly expenses for the two of them, aside from food and drink, can barely support one of them in their studies. Huang Feiyang's plan was to accumulate merit and rewards for half a year before inviting Chen Mu to learn alongside him. However, unbeknownst to Huang, Chen Mu had secretly taken on a master who taught him 3 martial arts techniques within a few months, allowing him to break through and become a formal martial artist. A once-in-a-century genius? Huang Feiyang stood speechless for a moment, then clenched his teeth, forcing himself to regain composure. He approached Chen Mu, who had just descended from the rooftop, embraced him tightly, and burst into hearty laughter. Good. Ha! My brother is a once-in-a-century genius. Ha! Chen Mu twitched at the corners of his mouth. The genius persona. This was the image he had crafted for himself, knowing that his cultivation would eventually be revealed. By setting expectations early, Huang Feiyang would be better prepared for the revelation. After the initial excitement, Huang Feiyang clenched his fists and declared, Su, your breakthrough as a martial artist is perfect timing for us to team up. Although Xingyong wields impressive blade techniques, they are merely adequate. Together, we can catch him off guard and surely have a chance to defeat him. No, I can manage alone, Chen Mu replied, shaking his head. While I act, you should find Uncle Zhou and create an alibi. What? You intend to go alone? Huang Feiyang initially panicked, but then took a deep breath to calm himself. Are you sure you can handle it? Rest assured, I am fully confident, Chen Mu stated earnestly. Among the martial arts I have mastered, one involves concealed weapons, specifically flying needles. You should go to sister-in-law's house and bring all her needles, with the concealed weapons clearing the path. Xingyong and Lu Bao need not come near to be vanquished. If I cannot kill them, I can escape using my lightness skill. Although Xingyong possesses commendable skills and has reached an advanced level in his blade techniques, he is still not a formal martial artist. Without the inner strength of a martial artist, he lacks explosive power, endurance, and lethal force. Huang Feiyong pondered for a moment before nodding in agreement. Just be cautious. If you find yourself in danger, retreat immediately. Understood, Chen Mu replied with a confident smile, with the meteor needles leading the way and the heart-piercing sword following. Coupled with strategy, I am certain I can defeat Xingyong. Having finalized their discussion, Huang Feiyong promptly set out to find Miao Xiuxiu. Moments later, he returned with a small pouch of embroidered needles, a collection that included those left behind by his mother before her passing. Chen Mu donned a night outfit and covered his face with a cloth. Armed with the embroidered needles, he took to the rooftops under the cover of night, heading straight for Xingyong's residence. Chapter 8. A Fatal Strike. Xingyong's abode was not at the Dadao gang's headquarters in Chongpingfang, but rather in a two-entry courtyard situated several hundred meters away from the base. In his first year as the head, Xingyong had invested in this property and married 7 wives and concubines. In the past, after nightfall, Xingyong would indulge in debauchery with his wives and concubines. However, this evening he remained still, guarding the front courtyard, accompanied by 4 trusted confidants, among them Lu Bao. Why is there still no news? One of the confidants could not suppress his impatience. What's the hurry? Lu Bao shot a glance at him. At this moment, Huang Feiyong is likely just dead. If our people were to arrive at the scene immediately, wouldn't that be too convenient? That makes sense, another confidant nodded. For safety's sake. Apart from leaving some men at the city gate, I have not stationed anyone in the nearby alleys of Hongzhou Lane, all to prevent any unforeseen circumstances. Rest assured, Xingyong said in a deep voice. With just Huang Feiyong and his brother, even if they sense something, they won't be able to stir up much trouble. Just as he spoke, a dull thud echoed from the courtyard. What was that sound? Lu Bao sprang to his feet, his gaze sharp as he directed it toward the window. I'll go take a look. One confidant strode purposefully toward the door, opening it, and stepping outside. Old Gao? Lu Bao called from inside. What is happening? The only response was another dull thud. Something's amiss. Lu Bao's expression changed, and he turned to Xingyong. Stop with the theatrics. Xingyong snapped, rising to approach the door. Lu Bao and the remaining 2 confidants followed closely behind him. The 4 exited the house and began to inspect their surroundings. Aside from a few lanterns, there was no sign of anyone. The 7 part-time servants and their wives were in the backyard. Old Gao? Lu Bao shouted into the empty courtyard. Old Gao, you suddenly. A barely audible sound sliced through the night. Ah, my eyes. Lu Bao and the other 2 confidants screamed in unison, collapsing to the ground, standing around Xingyong. They had shielded him from the attack, each suffering 3 to 4 flying needles embedded in their faces. One of Lu Bao's eyes was completely pierced through by a needle, and before he could utter a cry, he fell lifeless. With the cover of Lu Bao and the others, Xingyong quickly crouched down, avoiding 2 needles that shot in from the side. Then he rolled back into the house. Just as he instinctively reached out to close the door, a sudden gust of wind rushed in. Thud. Crouched down, Xingyong froze in place as a sharp iron spike pierced through the back of his neck, traversing his throat and reaching his chest. With wide-open eyes and pupils constricting, Xingyong's mouth opened as if to scream, but only a torrent of blood gushed forth. Thud. Chen Mu withdrew the dagger, flicking away the blood. The process of eliminating Xingyong went even smoother than anticipated. The flying needles had cleared Lu Bao and the others first. Although Xingyong had managed to retreat into the house, Chen Mu followed closely behind, unleashing his inner strength to execute the gecko technique, leaping forward in a single bound across several meters. While the gecko technique primarily emphasized high jumps, it also afforded considerable agility. In perfect harmony with the exquisite mastery of the heart-piercing sword, a single strike found its mark on the rolling figure of Xingyong, piercing through his neck. A swift, lethal blow. Xingyong had no opportunity to wield his blade. Body discovered. Will you collect it? Yes. Body discovered. Will you collect it? Yes. 5 cards acquired. Chen Mu did not even enter the house. He turned and departed. He neither disturbed anyone upon arrival, nor did he as he left. With a swift motion, he vaulted over the wall and landed gracefully, walking through the narrow alley. Chen Mu reached into his pocket to examine the 5 newly acquired cards: energy card, stamina card, energy card, stamina card, and a power card. Only the power card was of notable quality. Chen Mu silently invoked its use, and the card transformed into a stream of light, penetrating his body to enhance his physique and augment his strength. Upon returning home, Huang Feiyong had yet to arrive. It was only after half an hour that he returned. The moment he stepped inside, he inquired, "How did it go?" "All taken care of," Chen Mu replied. Huang Feiyong let out a long sigh of relief. With Xingyong's demise, it felt as though a mountain had been lifted from his shoulders. "And you? Are you injured?" taking a deep breath to steady himself. Huang Feiyang gazed at Chen Mu. No, Chen Mu shook his head. Brother, you should also learn the lightness skill I studied. The gecko technique is quite effective for climbing walls and mountains, and it poses no significant difficulty in training. Furthermore, the internal martial art Changchun Gong has no stringent requirements, however, to achieve mastery. It demands time and dedication. Is that wise? Huang Feiyang felt a twinge of interest, but managed to restrain himself. You want to impart your skills. But what about your master? No worries, Chen Mu interrupted, raising his hand. Neither of these martial arts is particularly exceptional. They are of a lower tier. When I learned them, I inquired, and passing them on to others would not have any repercussions. This includes both meteor needle and heart-piercing sword. However, the former requires a higher level of innate talent, while the latter demands tedious practice. Even more so than Changchun Gong. At least Changchun Gong can cultivate internal energy and enable one to break through realms. Whereas heart-piercing sword is purely about assassination, merely wielding a sword and repetitively stabbing thousands of times daily for several years to achieve any proficiency, making it wholly unsuitable for Huang Feiyang. In truth, even Changchun Gong may not be entirely fitting. It's not that Huang Feiyang lacks patience. Rather, he simply lacks the luxury of time. Indeed, this was the case. After Chen Mu elaborated on the two martial arts, Huang Feiyang opted to forego Changchun Gong and chose only the gecko technique. Although it was an internal martial art, Changchun Gong resembled a slow-paced turtle's approach. Without a few years, or even a decade, cultivating internal energy would be futile. Huang Feiyang realized, this internal technique can only be mastered by those of extraordinary talent. I think I shall pass. Perhaps next year, when I have enough funds, I will learn Yunjuan Gong instead. Yunjuan Gong was the signature martial art of the Falling Cloud Martial Arts School, where Huang Feiyang trained. That works, Chen Mu agreed without pressing. Thus, they proceeded with the study of the gecko technique, which was considerably simpler. One instructed, the other learned. The two individuals remained awake until dawn, only to be interrupted by a sudden knock at the door. Hu, something terrible has happened. Boss Xing is dead. What? Huang Feiyang exclaimed in shock. How could this be? How did he die so suddenly? He was silenced. Lu Bao and the others were also killed. The messenger, visibly anxious, reported that Boss Xie had already arrived and summoned everyone to gather. Boss Xie? Huang Feiyang paused, his heartbeat quickening, though his expression remained composed. Let us hurry, he urged. With that, he, along with Chen Mu, rushed towards Xingyang's residence. In the hierarchy of their gang, Xingyang and Yu Baoliang were merely minor leaders, while above them loomed the major leaders. The entire Dadao gang had 5 major leaders, each proficient in martial arts and internal cultivation. Xia Hong was the commanding major leader overseeing Chongping and Chonglong districts, and he was the superior of Huang Feiyang's own boss. Chapter 9. The new card at Xingyang's residence. The courtyard was filled with people. Upon entering, Chen Mu immediately spotted a robust man with a bushy beard, crouched down, examining the corpses of Xingyang and Lu Bao. Boss Xie. Chen Mu halted, and Huang Feiyang stepped forward slightly, cupping his hands in a respectful salute. Feiyang has arrived. Ah, Feiyang is here, the burly man replied without lifting his head, continuing his examination. Do you know if Xingyang had any recent conflicts? In response to Boss Xie, I am not fully aware, Huang Feiyang replied. Lu Bao and the others have been by Boss Xing's side for the longest time. He refrained from voicing further thoughts. Lu Bao and the others were trusted confidants of Xingyang, well aware of his dealings. Yet the troubling fact remained that Lu Bao and the 4 others were now dead. Fortunately, after years of fighting, Huang Feiyang had cultivated a strong sense of composure. Xia Hong did not display anger, nor did he unleash his martial aura. Otherwise, Huang Feiyang would have doubted his ability to maintain his facade. Ultimately, Xia Hong, upon finishing his inspection, concluded that no one from Chongping district could have effortlessly executed such a clean kill on Xingyang and Lu Bao. With needles covering their faces and iron piercing their throats, Xia Hong stood up and spoke with measured calmness. The one who killed Xingyang was undoubtedly a skilled player in the martial world. There was virtually no resistance, and it was a one-sided slaughter. Huang Feiyang fell silent, though his heart raced. Was it true? Xingyang died without putting up much of a fight? Chen Mu's assassination skills were formidable, indeed. A testament to his prowess as my brother. The valuables within the house remained untouched, as did the wealth on Xingyang and the others. Their 7 wives were completely oblivious to the events unfolding in the courtyard. Xia Hong continued. The murderer clearly came solely for Xingyang's life. This individual has crossed paths with the wrong people. Now that he is dead, one could only say it was deserved. Huang Feiyang lowered his head, suppressing the urge to cheer. Chen Mu also bowed his head, a slight smile appearing at the corners of his mouth. Deserved indeed, most deserved. Xia Hong's words effectively sealed the fate of Xingyang and his companions. He had provoked individuals he ought not to have trifled with. Their demise now falls under the realm of personal vendetta. Since it is a matter of personal grievance, it bears no relation to the knife gang, and thus, the matter will not be pursued any further. This undoubtedly comes as good news for Chen Mu and Huang Feiyang. It is understandable upon reflection. The one who killed Xing Yong was evidently a martial artist, adept in the use of concealed weapons and assassination techniques. Being targeted by such a person would render Xia Hong restless. It would be folly to persist in pursuing the matter. Although Xing Yong was one of his subordinates, their relationship was merely average, and in the face of a hidden assailant, it would be prudent to distance oneself. Chongping Fong requires vigilant oversight, and with Xing Yong's death, Xia Hong turned to face all the members in the courtyard, pointing at Huang Feiyang, and proclaimed in a clear voice that Feiyang would temporarily assume Xing Yong's position and oversee Chongping Fong. Once sufficient merit was accumulated, he would be formally appointed as the leader. What? The crowd in the courtyard was momentarily taken aback. The next instant, they regained their composure and shouted in unison, yes. Huang Feiyang was somewhat bewildered. This unexpected surprise rendered him momentarily speechless. Chen Mu, on the other hand, was astonished. The assassination of Xing Yong was a retaliatory measure, a means to eliminate future threats. Little did he expect that there would be an additional gang. Huang Feiyang was to temporarily take over as leader, responsible for Chongping Fong. Thank you, boss. Upon regaining his senses, Huang Feiyang knelt on the ground, offering a deep bow to Xia Hong. Haha, please rise quickly. Xia Hong gestured with a smile. Feiyang, your contributions are evident to all. Your temporary leadership will gain the group's full support, and once you assume your position, I hope you will continue to strive towards securing Changle Street. I will exert every effort to conquer Changle Street, Huang Feiyang declared emphatically. Haha, I shall eagerly await your good news. Xia Hong laughed heartily. Secure Changle Street. Secure Changle Street. The others echoed in unison. This reaction clearly indicated the group's sentiments towards Xing Yong. Even before the body had been cleared, they unanimously supported Huang Feiyang. Observing the smile on Xia Hong's face, Chen Mu suddenly had an epiphany. This fellow appointing Gu as the temporary leader was perhaps not entirely altruistic. A shield, perhaps? Chen Mu pondered thoughtfully. If the individual responsible for Xing Yong's death was targeting the knife gang, then with Xing Yong's demise, the next victim could very well be Xia Hong. With Huang Feiyang ascending to power, it would mean that if death were to come, it would first be to Huang Feiyang. In Chongping Fong, Huang Feiyang was the most capable fighter. Promoting him to temporarily take on the role of leader serves as a shield for Xia Hong, posing no detriment to him. On the contrary, he would gain Huang Feiyang's loyalty, a trifecta of benefits. With this realization, Chen Mu cast another glance at Xia Hong. Indeed, those who achieve the status of leaders are rarely simple individuals. Serving as a temporary leader is still being a leader. Huang Feiyang had become the new voice of Chongping Fong, and as the news spread, shopkeepers in the area began to present gifts at their doorsteps. For those running shops, this was an obligatory expenditure. It is important to note that the monthly contributions made by each establishment are not uniformly dictated by the Dideo gang, but rather determined by the respective leaders. A change in leadership equates to a change in approach. Should a more unscrupulous leader take charge, every shop would suffer significantly. Thus, offering gifts in advance serves to foster good relations, with the hope that the collection of contributions will not be too harsh. In response, Huang Feiyang accepted the gifts and indicated that the rules regarding the collection of contributions would remain unchanged, a statement that instantly brought smiles to the faces of the shopkeepers. In truth, Chen Mu had conversed with Huang Feiyang, and it was understood that no matter how heavily the shops in Changping Fang were pressured, substantial profits would remain elusive. To achieve financial success, one must seize control of Chonglu Street. However, conquering Chonglu Street is no simple task, and merely replacing Xing Yong with Huang Feiyang will not resolve the issue. It is contingent upon timing, and timing requires patience. In the ensuing days, Huang Feiyang utilized the gifts received to rent a spacious new residence and subsequently married Miao Xiuxiu. Indeed, it was a case of promotion, salary increase, and marriage all rolled into one. Huang Feiyang basked in newfound glory. Meanwhile, Chen Mu remained industrious, traversing the city and visiting the two chaotic burial grounds outside the city every 3 days to collect cards. Although he had not obtained any further inner strength cards or skill cards, he amassed a considerable number of powerful cards, each one enhancing his physique and steadily increasing his strength. In the span of half a month, his strength soared to an impressive 3,000 pounds. One evening, upon returning from outside the city, Chen Mu was passing by a street corner when he was suddenly engulfed by a cacophony of chaos and cries for help. The crowd on the street screamed and scattered in panic. As the throng dispersed, Chen Mu, who had taken refuge in a corner, witnessed two factions embroiled in a fierce battle. This was no mere scuffle. It was a brutal clash with real weapons, blood splattering the ground. Recognizing the attire, Chen Mu identified the two groups as the Qingxi Gang and the Shuelang Gang, both hailing from the eastern district of the outer city. The Qingxi Gang was outnumbered, with only 9 members compared to the 15 of the Shuelang Gang. The violence escalated quickly, and soon 3 members of the Qingxi Gang fell. The remaining 6 fled in haste, pursued relentlessly by the Shuelang Gang. In no time, both factions vanished into the alleyway, leaving 3 lifeless bodies sprawled on the ground. Chen Mu promptly approached and collected 3 cards before hastily departing. Once he exited the street, he reached out to examine the new cards: a stamina card, a powerful card, and a cultivation card. A cultivation card? Chapter 10. Breakthrough to the second layer of postnatal. The cultivation card, as its name suggests, allows for the practice of martial skills. Notably, it facilitates the cultivation of techniques such as the heart-piercing sword, meteor needle, and gecko skill. However, the breakthrough technique, Changchun Gong, which is essential for cultivating inner strength, proved ineffective. Nonetheless, it was still a delightful surprise. The martial arts skill cards, when acquired, inherently possess a certain level of mastery. Having achieved modest accomplishments, one enters a realm of proficiency, seamlessly integrating techniques, reaching an unparalleled level of expertise, and ultimately attaining the pinnacle of skill. Utilizing the card allows one to directly ascend to the corresponding tier. Now, with the advent of the cultivation card, this level can be further enhanced. The cultivation card acquired has a 2-year validity. Once activated, it enables instantaneous completion of 2 years of training in a specific martial art. For instance, with the heart-piercing sword, even if one cannot break through to the pinnacle, they will be near it after 2 years of training. The cultivation card replaces the need for prolonged practice. How exhilarating. Indeed, Chen Mu currently possesses 3 martial arts, which he feels are sufficient for the time being. The heart-piercing sword is, without a doubt, at the level of mastery. The meteor needle, being a concealed weapon, has no immediate target for assassination. The gecko skill is at a level of integration that suffices in the city. Most importantly, upon using the cultivation card, one can achieve instant enhancement. Thus, it can be temporarily stored for urgent situations that may arise. Chen Mu intends to reserve the cultivation card for offensive or defensive martial skills. The challenge lies in the fact that he currently lacks these skills, hence the necessity to keep it for now. The Green Snake Gang and the Blood Wolf Gang frequently engage in street skirmishes. Gang battles, including those involving the Broadsword Gang, are sporadic but common occurrences. Chen Mu remained unconcerned about this. However, upon returning home that evening, he was pulled into a corner by Huang Feiyang, who whispered urgently that the Green Snake Gang and the Blood Wolf Gang had initiated a gang war. For the next 2 days, he should refrain from venturing outside and stay at home or near the base. A gang war? Chen Mu raised an eyebrow, inquiring curiously about the sudden escalation. Occasional frictions between gangs lead to minor skirmishes with minimal casualties. A gang war, however, is vastly different. It involves extensive combat, with at least 1,000 participants clashing. Casualties are inevitable, and it is unlikely to cease until dozens, if not hundreds, have perished. The reason remains unknown. Huang Feiyang shook his head, stating that the conflict between the Green Snake Gang and the Blood Wolf Gang is fortuitous for them. Before returning, he had visited Boss Xie, who indicated that the gang leader had decided, once the moment is ripe, they would strike and seize a piece of the Blood Wolf Gang. At this, Huang Feiyang clenched his fist and swung it with fervor, his eyes brimming with excitement. He had been waiting for the opportune moment to take control of Chonglu Street. Now, that moment has arrived. With the Green Snake Gang and Blood Wolf Gang embroiled in battle, the Broadsword Gang would observe from a distance, seizing the opportunity to benefit from the chaos. Huang Feiyang was exhilarated, and Chen Mu couldn't help but smile. High casualties in a gang war. That suits him perfectly. The greater the number of deaths, the more cards to be collected. Naturally, it would be ideal for several leaders to perish. The cards picked up by ordinary gang members are often either stamina cards or energy cards, with powerful cards being exceedingly rare. As the gang war commenced, the Eastern District immediately descended into a state of minor chaos. During the day, things were relatively calm. However, as night fell, the members of the Green Serpent Gang and Blood Wolf Gang engaged in relentless skirmishes in the narrow alleys and broad streets. The Great Blade Gang remained motionless, biding their time. This conflict raged for 2 days and nights, resulting in dozens of casualties on both sides before it finally ceased. The relentless fighting had claimed the lives of high-ranking leaders from both the Green Serpent and Blood Wolf Gangs. Huang Feiyang was struck by a mix of emotions, bewilderment giving way to resolve. Without exception, the leaders of the gangs were martial artists. Yet, in comparison to other formidable factions, they were merely low-tier practitioners. Their realms limited to the first, second, or at most, the the third stage of acquired strength. Their deaths in combat stirred no significant ripples, akin to the fate of ordinary gang members. While Huang Feiyong felt a sense of sorrow, it only solidified his determination to grow stronger. Chen Mu, overhearing this, was elated. The deaths of high-ranking leaders? What splendid news! That very afternoon, Chen Mu set out from the city to the burial sites of the fallen members from both gangs. With dozens perishing in a single encounter for the gang, their bodies were not carelessly discarded in a mass grave. Each gang had chosen a patch of desolate land to dig pits for their fallen. Chen Mu activated his celestial wolf scent, tracing the scent to both locations. Upon discovery of the bodies, the prompts appeared. Body discovered. Do you wish to collect? Yes. Body discovered. Do you wish to collect? Yes. One by one, functional cards filled his pockets. The most numerous were energy cards and stamina cards, with several power cards as well. Most coveted were the 3 inner strength cards he acquired, corresponding to durations of 2.5 months, 1 month, and less than 2 months of inner strength. Additionally, he found a skill card detailing a martial technique named Spirit Serpent Steps, showcasing a modest level of achievement. Unlike the lofty gecko technique, Spirit Serpent Steps was a graceful lightness technique, suitable for combat. Chen Mu was overjoyed. He promptly utilized the skill card, attaining a modest mastery of Spirit Serpent Steps. Seizing the momentum, he employed his stored training cards specifically for Spirit Serpent Steps, instantly honing the technique over 2 years and elevating it to a level of integration. This refined state of Spirit Serpent Steps allowed Chen Mu to move with unparalleled agility through dense foliage, effortlessly weaving in all directions. Coupled with the gecko technique, even if he could not best an opponent, he could escape with ease. Of course, lightness techniques are external arts, while martial mastery forms the foundation. Thus, after a brief respite, Chen Mu utilized inner strength cards to reverse the flow of Changchun Gong, refining his physique and elevating his realm. 1 inner strength card was insufficient, so he used 2. When 2 proved inadequate, he resorted to a 3rd. Finally, after nearly 5 months of inner strength driving him, Changchun Gong successfully broke through to the 2nd layer. With a determined fist, Chen Mu struck fiercely at a nearby tree. Bam! A mature man, resembling the sturdy trunk of a great tree, swayed as a flurry of leaves cascaded down. With a single, forceful punch, Chen Mu penetrated the trunk. 1 blow shattered the wood. With a swift retraction of his arm, Chen Mu twisted at the waist and delivered a side kick. Bang! Crack! More leaves danced in the air, accompanied by a distinct sound of splintering. The trunk, at the point of impact, broke into 2 halves. The upper section wobbled precariously before crashing to the ground with a thud, sending a cloud of dust into the air. In a flash, Chen Mu darted toward a boulder standing half his height. With a decisive stop, he drew strength from the ground up, channeling it through his waist. As he summoned his inner power, a resounding explosion echoed as the boulder fractured, sending a multitude of small stones scattering in all directions. His fist shattered wood. His kick cleaved stone. He had reached the 2nd level of the acquired realm. Chapter 11. Blood Battle on the Long Street, a Breakthrough. The Changchun technique is indeed akin to the turtle technique. For others, it would take years of training to surpass a single layer. But not for Chen Mu, as he possessed the inner power cards. With sufficient inner power cards, even a turtle could outrun a rabbit. Unfortunately, in the conflict with the Green Serpent and Blood Wolf gangs, only 4 warriors had perished. 3 inner power cards corresponded to 3 warriors. The skill card recording Spirit Serpent Steps was likely scavenged from a warrior, as this martial art could only unleash its prowess when paired with inner power. Overall, Chen Mu felt quite satisfied with the outcome of the skirmish. On his way back to the city, he utilized the powerful cards he had collected, steadily augmenting his strength. From afar, he spotted the mass grave and decided to take a detour. To his astonishment, he received a notification. Discover corpse. Do you wish to collect? Where's the corpse? Chen Mu glanced around, but saw nothing. He was still several meters away from the burial ground, surrounded by overgrown weeds. Where could it be? Wait, had the earth here been disturbed? His gaze fell upon a patch of ground 3 meters to his left. He stepped forward and crouched down to investigate. Indeed, the soil had been turned. Was there a corpse buried beneath? Yet, I was just 3 meters away. How could I collect it? Pondering this, Chen Mu found himself prompted to collect a powerful card. Rising to his feet, he proceeded towards the mass grave. After some experimentation, he discovered that the collection range of the functional cards had indeed expanded, now extending to 4 meters. Was this a result of my realm breakthrough? Chen Mu mused thoughtfully. In the acquired realm, at the 2nd level, the collection range was 4 meters. If I were to reach the 6th or even the 8th level, or perhaps break into the innate realm, wouldn't the collection range surpass 100? This was splendid news. Corpses outside the city were generally buried shallowly, though there were also many deep pits. The bodies taken by the authorities within the city were inaccessible to him, and he could not collect them. However, if the collection range were to expand, he might even collect through walls. Upon returning to the city, Chen Mu visited the headquarters of the Didao gang, located in Chongping-Fong. With the conflicts between the Qingxi gang and the Shuelang gang concluded, it was expected that the Didao gang would soon take action. Indeed, it was not long before Huang Feiyong, returning from a meeting at the Didao gang's main office, summoned the assembly. Esteemed members, the leader has issued a command. We shall mobilize tonight. Huang Feiyong proclaimed, addressing the crowd. Our target this time is to seize Chonglu Street. Seize Chonglu Street. Seize Chonglu Street. The fervent cries of the gang members filled the air. Capturing Chonglu Street would yield considerable profits. In the world of gangsters, who is not driven by the allure of wealth, Chen Mu remained calm, observing the throng from a corner. With Huang Feiyong now acting as the proxy leader, his appearances in the gang had diminished. Should Huang Feiyong officially assume the role of leader, Chen Mu would find little reason to attend. Thus, for both personal and professional reasons, he felt compelled to support Huang Feiyong in solidifying his position within the Didao gang. As night fell, the Didao gang members, distributed across various markets, mobilized in unison, charging towards the Shuelang gang. Huang Feiyong led the charge, accompanied by the Didao gang forces from Chongping-Fong at the forefront. Kill! Slay these wretched wolves. The streets echoed with battle cries, and blood splattered everywhere. Huang Feiyong wielded a long knife, his muscular arms exuding a fierce aura. As none from the Shuelang gang could withstand his blade, they were either cleaved apart or left with shattered bones. Chen Mu also grasped a long knife, following closely behind Huang Feiyong. Mastering the spirit snake step, he navigated through the chaos with ease, evading attacks and remaining untainted by the bloodshed around him. He occasionally struck with his blade, though with measured force, primarily providing protection for Huang Feiyong. Given Chen Mu's current strength, he could easily cleave an opponent in two with a full-force strike. However, revealing his prowess too soon would be detrimental. The Didao gang was not the Didao sect. Possessing a genius identity in an underground gang was not necessarily advantageous. Huang Feiyong had cautioned him against such revelations. Suddenly, a chilling rush of wind accompanied by a series of dull thuds pierced the air. Several Didao gang members screamed in agony, crashing against the wall. The sound of breaking bones unmistakable. From within the ranks of the Shuelang gang, a lean yet muscular figure emerged, brandishing a beetle nut iron rod, his wild hair flowing as he lunged at Huang Feiyong. Sun Kuei. Huang Feiyong's pupils constricted as he shouted, swinging his long knife to meet the attack. With a fierce clash, the knife and iron rod collided midair, sparks flying. In an instant, the two engaged in a brutal melee, devoid of technique. Each strike aimed directly at the opponent's vital points. Sun Kuei, the ferocious staff-wielding member, was a minor leader of the Shuelang gang. Previously, when Xing Yong oversaw Chongping-Fong, two factions had been embroiled in conflict for several years. Now, under the leadership of Huang Feiyong, their momentum has intensified. One, a descending tiger, the other, a frenzied rod. As they clashed, their strengths appeared evenly matched. However, Chen Mu discerned that in terms of combat prowess, Sun Kuei far surpassed the rest. Mastering the art of the frantic rod, he was on the cusp of true mastery. Huang Feiyong, trained in palm techniques rather than swordsmanship at the Falling Cloud Martial Arts School, was able to contend with Sun Kuei due to his youthful vigor and audacity in battle. Of course, years spent in the gang life had honed his ability to wield a knife with precision and ferocity. If one were to draw a comparison, Huang Feiyong was fierce and ruthless, while Sun Kuei was mad and reckless. Both were undaunted by the specter of death in their fighting styles. Ultimately, the outcome seemed equally poised. In the past, when Xing Yong was present, he and Huang Feiyong had vanquished Sun Kuei. Now, with Xing Yong gone, swish. Chen Mu's long blade thrust forth at a most opportune moment, the tip piercing Sun Kuei's right flank, producing a ghastly wound from which blood gushed forth. Staggered by the blow, Sun Kuei's complexion turned ashen. Ignoring his injury, he swung his rod toward Chen Mu. Having successfully struck, Chen Mu had already retreated to a safe distance from Sun Kuei. Swish. Seizing the moment, Huang Feiyong unleashed a decisive slash, the gleaming blade cutting into Sun Kuei's chest. Blood erupting as it shattered ribs and sent Sun Kuei reeling backward. Swish, swish, swish. Huang Feiyong relentlessly pursued, his blade glinting coldly as he unleashed a flurry of strikes upon Sun Kuei, the final blow slicing across Sun Kuei's neck. Thud. A crimson spout erupted as a gruesome head was hoisted high. Before the severed head could touch the ground, Huang Feiyong grasped it firmly, raising it before the surrounding combatants. Proclaiming loudly, Sun Kuei is dead. Sun Kuei is dead. Chen Mu followed suit, echoing the declaration. Sun Kuei is dead. Sun Kuei is dead. Chapter 12. New cards. Memory cards. Sun Kuei is dead. The members of the Big Blade Gang shouted one after another. Within mere moments, the entire street resonated with their thunderous voices, shaking the very core of those who heard. The Blood Wolf Gang, already demoralized and on the defensive, were struck with fear and began to flee. With Sun Kuei's demise, what was there left to fight for? Preserving their lives became the priority. We have won. The members of the Big Blade Gang rejoiced in exultation. The objective of this skirmish had been to seize territory, to claim Changli Street. This was not merely a gang war. The retreating Blood Wolf Gang mattered little. The goal was to take Changli Street. In the midst of their celebration, old Zhou raised his fist triumphantly, shouting, "Long live the Tiger Chief! Long live the Tiger Chief!" Others followed suit, their faces alight with fervor, gazing at Huang Feiyong with a mixture of adoration, respect, and envy. Xingyong, the leader, had battled Sun Kuei for several years without gaining any advantage. Yet, upon Huang Feiyong's ascension, he struck decisively, severing Sun Kuei's head in his very first act. Who could contest such a feat? Long live the Tiger Leader! Long live the Tiger Leader! The synchronized chants echoed through the long street. Huang Feiyong, drenched in sweat and gasping for breath, his chest heaving, also displayed a glint of excitement in his eyes. However, those close to him understood the true nature of his triumph. His ability to slay Sun Kuei was largely due to Chen Mu's excellent support. Without Chen Mu's assistance, victory would have been unattainable. Reflecting on this, Huang Feiyong turned to Chen Mu. Long live the Tiger Leader! Chen Mu, beaming with joy, joined the chorus. Once the clamor subsided, the crowd began to clear the battlefield. Fortunately, there were no fatalities on the Big Knife Gang's side, though 5 were severely injured and around 10 sustained lighter wounds. In contrast, 6 members of the Blood Wolf Gang, including Sun Kuei, lay dead. In compensation, Chen Mu collected 6 cards, 3 energy cards, 2 stamina cards, and 1 strength card. The haul was modest, yet it mattered not. As the Big Knife Gang had more personnel deployed than just this group, others from the market were seizing the opportunity to claim territory. Casualties were inevitable. Indeed, when Chen Mu rushed to the various battlegrounds, all fighting had ceased, leaving a scene strewn with corpses. Corpse detected. Would you like to collect? Yes. Corpse detected. Would you like to collect? Yes. Whether concealed or separated by walls, he continued to gather the fallen. After traversing a considerable distance, Chen Mu amassed 31 cards. Most of these were energy and stamina cards. He also acquired 3 strength cards and 1 training card, valid for a year and a half. The most delightful surprise was a new card, the memory card. As its name suggests, this card recorded the memories of the deceased's life, albeit limited to the last 3 years, which brought Chen Mu immense joy. The fallen, known as Ji Gang, a minor leader of the Blood Wolf Gang, had unexpectedly acquired a combat skill 2 years prior, the Shattered Gold Palm. This offensive martial technique had finally come into his possession. Although it was not obtained through a skill card and could not be directly replicated, it still filled him with delight. With the training card in hand, mastering the technique would prove effortless for Chen Mu. As dawn approached, darkness continued to envelop the earth. In a secluded alley, Chen Mu moved swiftly, gliding along the ground like a serpent. Swish, swish, swish. Utilizing the moonlight, he scaled walls with ease, entering an uninhabited courtyard. Creaking, he gently pushed open the unlocked door, stepping into the dimly lit room. With a flick, a fire starter ignited. Bathed in a hazy glow, Chen Mu made his way directly to a corner of a desk. Shifting aside a cabinet, he crouched down and, after a moment of probing in the corner, extracted a loose stone brick. Setting the brick aside, he reached into the wall cavity and retrieved a small parcel. Upon unwrapping it, his eyes were immediately drawn to 5 silver ingots, followed by a stack of silver notes, with a tome resting at the bottom. The cover bore the bold inscription Shattered Gold Palm. With the precious manual in hand, a smile crept onto Chen Mu's lips. This was a formidable offensive martial technique. According to Ji Gang's memories, Shattered Gold Palm was remarkably powerful. If the internal cultivation method for breaking through realms constituted the core of a faction, then martial skills represented the swords and blades of the various powers. Possessing internal energy without the knowledge of martial arts would at best leave one in a state of invincibility. To establish a firm footing and instill fear in others, one must be equipped with martial skills, and Shattered Gold Palm was precisely such a skill. Ji Gang had concealed it primarily because Shattered Gold Palm was the unique technique of the Blood Wolf Gang's leader, with only 3 individuals in the gang capable of mastering it. If Ji Gang were to learn it, he could never explain its origin. Stealing martial arts secrets is a grave taboo in any faction. Carefully rewrapping the parcel, he returned the extracted stone brick to its original position, repositioned the cabinet, and exited the room, closing the door behind him as he departed the small courtyard. Upon returning home, The first rays of sunlight broke through the clouds. Chen Mu utilized an energy card, invigorated as he counted the silver notes. In addition to the 5 ingots, he found a total of 3,500 taels of silver, an unexpected windfall. With this fortune, he could procure a decent sword. Chen Mu pondered this. A sword forged from iron rods inherently possessed limitations. He planned to allocate 1,000 taels to Huang Feiyang, enabling him to learn cloud rolling technique sooner. The remainder would be saved, aside from the funds needed to purchase a sword. He had just perused the manual and was eager to practice shattered gold palm. After a thorough reading, he discovered that the requirements for mastering this palm technique were quite steep. To cultivate it, one would either need to acquire specific secret medicines to soak their hands in day and night, stimulating the tendons, bones, and skin to complete the hand-washing process, a venture that would cost a significant sum. As a set of secret medicine was priced at 300 taels of silver, or one must already be a martial artist with internal energy to accomplish the hand washing through their internal force. Compared to the former, the latter method not only inflicted less pain, but also consumed less time. As a mere minor leader, Ji Gang had not cultivated internal methods and was not a martial artist, thus rendering him incapable of performing the internal washing of hands. The 3,500 taels he had in the parcel were evidently intended for his cultivation. Consequently, all of it had fallen into Chen Mu's hands. In the room, Chen Mu silently recited the contents of shattered gold palm, channeling his internal energy to flow between his hands, enveloping every inch of his tendons, bones, and flesh. The use of the cultivation card required an entry-level mastery of martial skills, and the first step was to wash the hands. Chen Mu, employing his internal energy to cleanse his palms, began his endeavor at dawn and persevered until nightfall, continuing through to the early hours. Without a moment's respite, he utilized an energy card, meticulously following the techniques detailed in the manual, complemented by illustrations, as he executed each palm technique in the spacious room. The gusts of palm wind swirled around him, again and again. When the first light of dawn pierced the darkness, a tremor coursed through Chen Mu's form. His palms transformed into an inky blackness under the impetus of his internal force, impervious to any blade. He had successfully entered the realm of the shattered gold palm. Chapter 13. The Revenge of the Blood Wolf Gang. With the initiation of the shattered gold palm, he was now able to utilize the cultivation card. In a flash, the card transformed into a stream of light and surged into his body. Instantly, Chen Mu's consciousness transcended into an ethereal realm, enveloped by an invisible membrane of light. His awareness manifested as a diminutive figure, tirelessly practicing the shattered gold palm day and night, repeatedly. As reality melded with this experience, his palms, along with a considerable portion of his forearms, muscles, tendons, bones, and flesh, underwent a baptism and metamorphosis through the formless power, gradually fortifying. When all ceased, Chen Mu opened his eyes. Under the flow of internal energy, his palms gleamed with a dark luster as he gently pressed them against the table. A distinct palm print immediately manifested. With this imprint, the shattered gold palm had truly become his own. The cultivation card had consumed a year and a half. Yet in reality, only 2 breaths had passed. Such is the advantage of extraordinary talents. One word, exhilarating. In the lair of the Blood Wolf Gang, the formidable leader, Wu Sihai, wore a grim expression, his eyes ablaze with malice. In a raspy voice, he inquired, "Have you ascertained the details?" "Yes," replied Wei Qi with reverence. "There are 2 prominent subordinates under Xiahong. One is Yu Baoliang, and the other, Huang Feiyang, who has recently ascended to leadership. Since the death of his wife 13 years prior, Yu Baoliang had remained a solitary figure, indulging in a carefree existence. Huang Feiyang, having just wed his childhood sweetheart, had a cousin who also joined the Big Knife Gang. However, investigations revealed that since assuming leadership, Huang Feiyang's cousin had grown exceedingly arrogant, only attending the gang sporadically while spending the majority of his time reveling outside the city." "Excellent," Wu Sihai mused, his eyes glinting with murderous intent. "Yu Baoliang is surrounded by many, making him an unsuitable target. Huang Feiyang is currently in a position of strength, and his followers are numerous. If Xiahong perishes, that cousin of his will surely incite a fury. The demise of a petty tyrant will hardly raise concern among others." "I understand," Wei Qi responded solemnly. "Remember, after eliminating the target, dispose of the body in the territory of the Green Snake Gang." "Indeed." Wei Qi bowed respectfully. With that, Wu Sihai waved his hand, and Wei Qi retreated with deference. "Xiahong." Within the confines of the room, Wu Sihai sat immobile, his jaw clenched, a tumult of hatred and murderous intent swirling within him. Just as Sun Kuei was to Xing Yong, the adversary of Wu Sihai, the leader of the Blood Wolf Gang, was none other than Xiahong of the Big Knife Gang. For over a decade, 2 individuals have been at odds, harboring a deep-seated animosity akin to a vast ocean. This time, the Green Serpent Gang and the Blood Wolf Gang have initiated a gang war, resulting in significant casualties among Wu Sihai's subordinates. Out of 7 minor leaders, only 2 remain, Wei Qi and Sun Kuei. Unexpectedly, the Dedeo Gang soon launched an assault, leading to Sun Kuei's demise at the hands of Huang Feiyang. In an instant, Wu Sihai is left with but a single subordinate, Wei Qi, and has lost a third of his territory. Although the vacant positions for minor leaders could be filled from below, the resentment brewing within Wu Sihai is not easily quelled. The lost territory represents a substantial financial blow. His old rival, Xia Hong, commands a robust force, while Wu Sihai is left with merely 1 subordinate, and any newly appointed minor leaders will have limited loyalty. How could Wu Sihai not harbor hatred? Yet, despite his animosity, Wu Sihai remains composed. Following 2 fierce battles, the Blood Wolf Gang cannot afford a third. A repeat engagement could jeopardize the very existence of the gang. Thus, even though Wu Sihai's heart seethes with rage, his targets for retribution are not the likes of Yu Baoliang or Huang Feiyang, but rather those surrounding them. The death of a lowly gang member would provoke little retaliation from Xia Hong, even if he were aware of Wu Sihai's involvement, as it would compel him to suppress Huang Feiyang to avoid a catastrophic fallout. As for Huang Feiyang's fury, it is of little consequence. After all, he is merely a cousin, not the murderer of his wife. Unfortunately for Chen Mu, he has been singled out as the target for Wu Sihai's vengeance. At a commonplace tavern in Changpingfeng, the air is filled with jubilation. Congratulations, Boss Hu. Boss Hu is formidable. The spacious hall hosts 10 tables laden with feasting, as members of the Dedeo Gang gather. With all but the severely injured present, they raise their cups high, exulting in Huang Feiyang's official ascension to leadership. Thank you, brothers. I shall forego further words. Let us drink. Huang Feiyang, beaming with joy, raises his cup and downs it in one go. Excellent. Come drink. The crowd echoes his call, raising their cups in unison. Chen Mu, blending into the throng, sips his drink. With Sun Kuei eliminated and Chang Lu Street secured, Huang Feiyang's position as a minor leader is solidified. Now officially appointed by the Grand Leader, Xia Hong. In less than a month, his transition from acting leader to official status is among the fastest recorded in the Dedeo Gang. I had hoped to draw Brother Feiyang to my side for assistance. But who would have thought, just days later, he has attained the same status as I. Ha! Booms Yu Baoliang, seated at the same table. Indeed, Boss Feiyang is truly remarkable. I always said that Brother Feiyang would eventually become a leader. See, my predictions have come to pass. You're merely a backseat driver. Your insights are lackluster. The laughter of the crowd fills the air. Chen Mu remains silent, yet the smile upon his face does not wane. Although these individuals are mere drinking companions, they still hold some significance for Huang Feiyang, who has just ascended to the position of leader. Undoubtedly, the most valuable ally among them is Yu Baoliang, another small-time leader who poses no competition to Huang, as their territories are adjacent. Their amicable relationship allows for mutual support and shared burdens. Yu Baoliang is also astute. His willingness to join in the revelry indicates his desire to cultivate a rapport with Huang Feiyang. This dynamic is distinct from the previous hierarchical relationship, leaning instead towards mutual assistance and upliftment. Thus, without the need for old Zhou's subtle hints, Chen Mu poured a glass, held it in hand, and stood to toast Yu Baoliang. Boss Yu, I am drinking to you. Please feel free. Saying this, he downed the drink in one go. It cannot be casual. It must be finished. Yu Baoliang rose and, lifting his glass, drank it all. Excellent. Old Zhou applauded. Huang Feiyang raised his glass and proclaimed, Come, everyone. Let us drink together. Cheers. After satisfying their appetites and thirsts, the group dispersed. Chen Mu accompanied the inebriated Huang Feiyang home, along with 3 henchmen who resided on the same street. As the night breeze blew, Huang Feiyang suddenly dashed to a corner and began to vomit. Chen Mu hurried a few steps forward, positioning himself upwind. Abruptly, he sniffed the air, his eyes widening. There was a scent of blood, rich and potent. Had someone nearby met their demise? With this thought, Chen Mu turned to Huang Feiyang, saying, Brother, I have matters to attend to and will return later. Huang Feiyang, gasping, did not respond, merely raising his hand slightly. Chen Mu understood, and then addressed the 3 burly men waiting nearby. Uncle Hao, Brother Zhong, Uncle Xia. Could you please escort my brother home? What trouble could that be? One of the men waved his hand. Eru, if you have something to do, go ahead. Indeed. We are not strangers here, the other 2 chuckled in agreement. With a smile, Chen Mu clasped his fist in a gesture of gratitude and turned to leave. Once he rounded a corner, he quickened his pace, following the direction of the blood scent, hastening towards Chapter 14, a new breakthrough, the 3rd layer of the future. The moonlight illuminated the earth. In the southern cloud prefecture, the outer city lay mostly silent. The eastern district was no different, apart from a few bustling streets. The rest was shrouded in darkness and tranquility. Chen Mu swiftly navigated the alleys, aided by the moonlight, with the celestial wolf guiding him. He had no fear of losing his way. He simply moved forward. Before long, Chen Mu arrived at the entrance of a sizable estate, halting at the gate. Bathed in the moonlight, he noticed a plaque hanging above the door, and his pupils constricted. It read, Falling Cloud Martial Arts Academy. The intense scent of blood emanated from within the very place where Huang Feiyong trained. Not rushing inside, Chen Mu stood at the closed gate, straining to listen. After a considerable time, without hearing any sounds from within, he lightly tapped his toes and scaled the tall courtyard wall. As the scent of blood intensified upon hitting the ground, Chen Mu advanced cautiously, soon encountering a lifeless body lying at the corner. He approached slowly, contemplating whether to collect the corpse. Yes, he continued onward. Yes, he pondered again. Yes, yet again. Corpses. Corpses. Everywhere he looked, there were remains. While he traversed the area, he remained acutely aware of his surroundings. Yet, apart from the deceased, there was not a single living soul. In the vast martial arts hall, within both the inner and outer courtyards, 39 individuals lay lifeless. Among them was even the esteemed master of the Falling Cloud Martial Arts Hall, Luo Zhongyun, along with his 4 disciples, each a formidable warrior. Luo Zhongyun himself was a master of the 8th level of the acquired realm. It was unimaginable that he too had perished, albeit his demise was not particularly gruesome. A gaping hole marred his chest, exposing bones, organs, and flesh within. Had someone struck him with a single punch, piercing through front and back? What level of cultivation could achieve such a feat? Luo Zhongyun, being an 8th level practitioner, had undoubtedly mastered his martial arts to a remarkable degree. It seemed unlikely that even a 9th level adept could accomplish such an act. A congenital expert? A chill ran down Chen Mu's spine. Indeed, a practitioner of innate strength could easily shatter a human body with a single blow, instantly claiming Luo Zhongyun's life. Was the assailant an innate warrior? Chen Mu decisively turned to leave. Somehow, Luo Zhongyun had drawn the ire of a congenital martial artist, leading to the demise of his entire family. Chen Mu dared not intervene, nor could he afford to. Who knew if that congenital warrior might return unexpectedly? Thus, despite the allure of several treasures within the hall, Chen Mu did not linger. Retreating was the wisest course. Exiting the martial arts hall, he hastened his pace. Winding through the alleyways, he circled around several times to ensure no one was trailing him before making his way back home. Upon his return, he found Miao Xiuxiu attending to Huang Feiyong, who had already succumbed to deep slumber, snoring thunderously. Chen Mu refrained from disturbing them and entered his own room. Without lighting a lamp, he retrieved the dozens of cards he had collected. Energy cards, stamina cards, power cards. The majority were energy or stamina cards, with only a few power cards. After examining them all, Chen Mu left 5 cards on the table. Among these 5, 2 were skill cards while 3 were internal energy cards. The internal energy cards reflected cultivation levels of 4.5 months, 2.5 months, and 1 month. A card indicating 4.5 months of internal energy cultivation? This card must have originated from Luo Zhongyun. Only an 8th level practitioner like him could possess such a wealth of internal energy. This also suggested that the higher the cultivation level, the greater the efficacy of the collected cards, at least in the case of internal energy cards. The 2 skill cards recorded the internal cultivation technique, cloud rolling technique, and an auxiliary technique known as dispersing cloud formula. The former can cultivate inner strength and transcend realms, while the latter conceals one's aura and hides one's cultivation. Both are invaluable assets. The cloud rolling technique is the treasured martial art of the Falling Cloud Martial Arts School, which Huang Feiyong has long aspired to master. However, acquiring this knowledge not only demands a significant expenditure of silver, but also requires the endorsement of Luo Zhongyun. Luo Zhongyun has stated that he will teach the cloud rolling technique, and only with his approval can Huang Feiyong learn it. Furthermore, even if he is permitted to study it, he may only grasp the first 3 levels of the technique, unless he is formally accepted as a disciple of Luo Zhongyun. Only then can he access the subsequent inner power methodologies. For instance, the skill card that Chen Mu currently possesses, salvaged from the corpse of one of Luo Zhongyun's disciples, contains the entirety of the 6th level of the cloud rolling technique. This technique surpasses the everlasting spring technique by leaps and bounds. Should I consider transitioning to the cloud rolling technique? As Chen Mu utilized the card, he comprehended the intricacies of the 6th level of the cloud rolling technique that emerged in his mind, pondering aloud. The everlasting spring technique and the cloud rolling technique not only coexist harmoniously, but also enhance each other's efficacy. Upon comparing the 2 inner power methodologies, Chen Mu was pleasantly surprised. What am I waiting for? It is time to transition. The greatest concern when switching techniques is conflict. as such a shift would necessitate starting the cultivation anew. Fortunately, the balanced and harmonious nature of the everlasting spring technique allows it to integrate seamlessly with most inner power methodologies, thereby facilitating enhancement. This will save Chen Mu a considerable amount of time. Without further ado, he resolved to simultaneously channel both inner power techniques, substituting the cloud rolling technique for the everlasting spring technique. Within his dantian, his inner strength surged forth, coursing through his meridians. Transitioning techniques involves a complete overhaul, and during this process, his meridians felt a subtle pressure accompanied by faint pain. Sweat rapidly beaded upon Chen Mu's forehead as he remained seated, his aura in disarray. Mist rising from the crown of his head. A quarter of an hour passed, then 2, then 1 hour, and after nearly 3.5 hours, his aura shifted from chaos to stability. After another half hour, Chen Mu opened his eyes and exhaled a stream of energy. It was accomplished. The transition of his inner power methodology was successfully completed. The inner strength within his body had fully transformed to embody the attributes of the cloud rolling technique, fluctuating with an ethereal quality, continuous and unyielding. It could be both firm and gentle, heavy and cool, perfectly illustrating the ever-changing nature of clouds. With the transition to the cloud rolling technique, the required inner strength for breakthroughs should be reduced, right? Taking a deep breath to steady his mind, Chen Mu retrieved the most potent inner strength card and silently invoked its power. In an instant, the inner strength card dissipated into a stream of light, surging into his body. As he sensed the newfound inner strength within him, Chen Mu activated the cloud rolling technique, pushing back against his bottleneck. He endeavored to ascend from the second level of the acquired realm to the third. The blood within him flowed swiftly, and Chen Mu felt as though he could hear the sound of rushing water. Waves of inner strength propelled the operation of the technique, stimulating every corner and cell of his skin, flesh, tendons, and bones. Again and again, he pressed forward, tirelessly. Suddenly, Chen Mu's body trembled, and every pore opened wide, releasing a torrent of energy that coalesced into a mist, enveloping him. With a powerful exhale, Chen Mu rose and performed the shattered gold palm 3 times within the confines of his room. As he channeled his internal force, the surrounding mist swirled and coalesced, becoming visible clumps, thick and resembling blood mist. With a decisive clap, Chen Mu concluded his practice and slowly exhaled a breath arrow, piercing through the viscous fog and shooting over 3 meters away. The blood flowed like a river, the energy condensed like blood. The third level of postnatal. Chapter 15. Mutual transmission of martial arts at the third level of postnatal. His explosive power, resilience, endurance, and physical strength had all increased several-fold compared to the second level. If injured, his wounds healed at an accelerated pace. In this realm, his blood could autonomously control its boiling state, stimulating his physique to temporarily unleash greater strength. The cloud rolling technique indeed surpassed the eternal spring technique by a significant margin. A mere internal energy card from 4 months prior had directly enabled Chen Mu to achieve this breakthrough. Had he continued to practice the eternal spring technique, even utilizing all 3 internal energy cards would not have sufficed for a breakthrough. Now that he had entered the third level of postnatal, Chen Mu felt increasingly composed, silently clenching his fists. It was getting closer. He had advanced another step towards the innate. Sun Jindong, await your reckoning. The night before last, Chen Mu had once again awakened with a furious roar. Fortunately, he was alone at home. It was worth noting that Sun Kuei was already dead. Should Chen Mu continue to shout about avenging himself on the Sun Thief, others might find it peculiar and think too much. He had already used 2 of his internal energy cards. The third level of postnatal was still insufficient. After a brief rest, he used an energy card to restore his vitality completely, then retrieved the remaining 2 internal energy cards, using them in succession. 2 additional energy spheres emerged within him, slowly rotating as they pushed against his limits. However, the breakthrough from the third level of postnatal to the 4th level presented a small hurdle. In the 9 levels of postnatal, there was a threshold every 3 levels. To surpass this threshold required not only abundant internal energy, but also relentless honing day and night. In short, it demanded considerable time investment. Chen Mu's 3 months of combined internal energy cultivation could not yet propel him past this barrier. With a deep breath, he ceased his practice and exhaled an energy arrow, calming his breath. After a moment, he retrieved the skill card for the scattered cloud technique and silently activated it. The card transformed into a stream of light and surged into his body. Soon, Chen Mu grasped the essence of the scattered cloud technique, mastering this auxiliary martial art. As the scattered cloud technique gradually activated, the energy emanating from Chen Mu immediately diminished, dropping from the 3rd level of postnatal to the 2nd level, and then to the 1st level. Success. Compared to the transformation of his martial arts, Concealing his aura and hiding his cultivation level was far simpler. With a deep breath to calm his mind, Chen Mu concluded his practice, rose to light a candle, and sat at the desk by the window, taking out several sheets of white paper, preparing ink, and picking up a brush to write. Write down the contents of the first 3 layers of cloud roll technique on paper. As dawn broke, Miao Xiuxiu rose to wash up and proceeded to the kitchen to prepare breakfast. Moments later, Huang Feiyang, yawning, also got up and made his way to the courtyard to splash his face with cold water. As he stood up, he glanced through the open window and saw Chen Mu engrossed in writing, which piqued his curiosity, prompting him to approach. "Tiger, what are you writing so early?" Chen Mu did not respond, his hand moving swiftly as he inscribed the final paragraphs onto the paper. Only then did he set down his brush, pick up several sheets of white paper that had dried, containing the first layer of the cloud roll technique, stack them together, and hand them to Huang Feiyang. "What is this?" Huang Feiyang asked, puzzled as he took the papers. Upon closer inspection, his eyes widened in astonishment, his expression transforming into one of excitement. This is the first, second, and third layers of the cloud roll technique." Chen Mu pointed to the remaining papers on the table and said softly, "Brother, memorize them and then burn the papers. If you encounter anything unclear while practicing, feel free to ask me." Huang Feiyang's hands trembled, his eyes brimming with exhilaration. Taking a deep breath to calm himself, he leaned closer to Chen Mu and whispered nervously, "Where did you get the cloud roll technique?" "Of course, from the Falling Cloud Martial Arts School." Chen Mu glanced toward the kitchen and lowered his voice. "When I returned last night, I had some business to attend to. On my way back, I passed by the Falling Cloud Martial Arts School and caught a whiff of blood. Out of curiosity, I climbed over the wall to take a look, only to discover that everyone inside had perished, including Luo Zhongyun." "What?" Huang Feiyang gasped, but quickly covered his mouth, his eyes wide with horror. "They're dead?" Swallowing hard, he released his hand, struggling to mask his shock as he whispered, "Are you saying the Falling Cloud Martial Arts School was exterminated? The master is dead too?" "But the master is at the 8th level of the post-heaven realm." Luo Zhongyun was no ordinary figure. He held considerable fame in Nanyun Prefecture, especially in the outer city, where he was respected by numerous post-heaven experts. The leaders of the Big Knife Gang, Blood Wolf Gang, and Green Snake Gang would greet him with utmost courtesy. Such a formidable expert has actually perished. "Just the 8th level of the post-heaven realm," Chen Mu replied calmly. "There are at least 100 people in the city who could kill Luo Zhongyun. Not to mention those outside the city. To kill Luo Zhongyun directly, one only needs to be at the 9th level of the post-heaven realm or possess exceptional skills at the 8th level. However, to pierce through Luo Zhongyun's chest and back with a single punch, one must be of the innate realm." This, however, was something Chen Mu refrained from voicing. Informing Huang Feiyang that the Falling Cloud Martial Arts School had been wiped out was one matter, as the origin of the cloud roll technique required an explanation. But Huang Feiyang opened his mouth to argue, yet after a prolonged moment, he found himself at a loss for words. As Chen Mu aptly remarked, in the eyes of others, the martial arts master Hachong is indeed an unattainable figure. However, when one broadens their perspective to encompass the entirety of Nanyun Prefecture, it becomes evident that within the inner city alone, there exists a plethora of individuals possessing comparable cultivation levels. In Nanyun Prefecture, only those who have ascended to the innate realm garner universal admiration. Luo Zhongyun, evidently, has yet to reach that pinnacle. Upon contemplating this, Huang Feiyang let out a sigh, only to be invigorated moments later, whispering excitedly, "Regardless, I can now cultivate the cloud rolling technique." "Thank you, Huzi." He then inquired, "By the way, the cloud rolling technique you acquired at the martial arts hall last night, was it the original manuscript kept by the master, containing the entire content?" "Not quite," Chen Mu replied, shaking his head. "I obtained it from a disciple of Luo Zhongyun, and it only includes the first 6 layers of the mental methods. In addition to the cloud rolling technique, there is also the scattering cloud formula. If you wish to learn this martial art, I'll write it down for you shortly." No need. Huang Feiyang quickly waved his hand. "I don't require the scattering cloud formula for now. You can keep it. However, I intend to pass on the remaining cloud palm to you, as the master and the others have perished. The cloud rolling technique, remaining cloud palm, scattering cloud formula, along with a sword technique known as the cloud shaking sword, constitute the entirety of the martial arts repertoire of the Falling Cloud Martial Arts Hall, forming a cohesive system." While Luo Zhongyun was alive, those who paid to learn martial arts naturally refrained from disseminating the knowledge privately. Now that they have all perished, Huang Feiyang can pass it on to whomever he desires. Chen Mu initially intended to decline, as he already possessed the shattered gold palm, which is of a significantly higher grade than the remaining cloud palm. Yet, considering the number of individuals who would learn the remaining cloud palm without the risk of leaking secrets, he nodded in agreement. Alright. As long as I can acquire another cultivation card, mastering the remaining cloud palm will be effortless. Chapter 16. Acquiring a special skill card again. Learning a structured martial art becomes exceedingly effortless when one has already mastered two. The four techniques, cloud rolling technique, remaining cloud palm, scattering cloud formula, and cloud shaking sword, of the falling cloud martial arts hall, have been partially mastered by Chen Mu, who is already familiar with the cloud rolling technique and scattering cloud formula. At this moment, learning the remaining cloud palm took him less than 15 minutes to grasp the fundamentals. Huang Feiyong watched in astonishment, exclaiming, "A genius is indeed a genius." It is worth noting that he had spent over half a month to merely begin learning the remaining cloud palm. Chen Mu, on the other hand, accomplished it in a mere quarter of an hour. Genius. Only a genius could account for such a disparity. It was at this moment that Huang Feiyong truly understood the chasm between ordinary individuals and geniuses. They are fundamentally two different existences. Having grasped the basics of the remaining cloud palm, Chen Mu chose not to delve deeper into it. There was no need to squander precious time on arduous practice for something that could be resolved with a cultivation card in mere moments. Instead, he opted to explore the city further. During his exploration, Chen Mu discovered that after surpassing the third tier of the postnatal realm, his picking range had notably expanded once more. From the previous 4 meters, it had now extended to 8 meters. The picking range for the second tier of the postnatal realm was 4 meters, while that for the third tier reached 8 meters. The fourth level is approaching. How vast is its scope? Chen Mu expressed his anticipation. He wandered through the 4 districts of the outer city once more and collected 4 cards, 2 stamina cards, 1 energy card, and 1 strength card. The strength card, when utilized, invigorates one's physique, engendering immense power. Although he did not conduct a subsequent test, Chen Mu estimated that with continuous use of the strength card, the resultant physical prowess would undoubtedly exceed 4,000 pounds. Thus, even when merely considering raw physical strength, it remained superior to the realm of attainment. The third level attained 3,000 pounds. The efficacy of the strength card is indeed commendable, with a greater quantity. Its power remains boundless. As the sun dipped low, Chen Mu returned to the eastern district, embraced by the evening glow, making his way back to Chongping Square. Suddenly, quickening his pace, he darted into a narrow alleyway. The serpent step technique unfurled, allowing him to traverse swiftly, vaulting over high walls and vanishing from sight. Where did he go? Wei Qi, who had pursued into the abandoned alley, wore a frosty expression as he surveyed his surroundings. The 2 burly men trailing behind him also bore grim visages, their countenances dark. "Little brat, has he discovered us? Isn't that Chen fellow a mere hothead?" Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The sound of slicing wind erupted abruptly. Before the 2 men could sense the impending peril, 5 flying needles struck each of their heads with lethal precision. Thud, thud. With 2 muted thumps, the men fell to the ground without uttering a single cry. How is this possible? Wei Qi's pupils dilated upon witnessing the instant collapse of the 2 men, a chill running down his spine. Without hesitation, he turned to flee. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. 10 flying needles swiftly soared towards Wei Qi's legs. Swish. Chen Mu's figure flickered, closely trailing behind, weaving left and right, leaving behind afterimages as he leaped down from the wall, lunging toward Wei Qi. "Spare my life," Wei Qi cried out in desperation. Bang, bang. Chen Mu raised his hands and struck both of Wei Qi's shoulders with tremendous force. The sound of cracking bones echoed as his overwhelming strength propelled Wei Qi backward. A gust of wind surged. Amidst Wei Qi's wails, he was sent flying several meters back, crashing against the wall with a resounding thud, leaving cracks in its wake. Uffed. In excruciating pain, Wei Qi spat out a mouthful of congealed blood, his body leaning forward. Swish. Chen Mu evaded the splatter of blood, extending his right hand to grip Wei Qi's neck, lifting him off the ground with a slight exertion. Wei Qi immediately struggled to breathe, his pallid face growing even more ashen. With both scapula shattered, he was utterly incapable of mounting a counterattack. His legs, pierced by the needles, were rendered numb, as if severed. "Spare me." Wei Qi gasped out the words with great difficulty. "Who are you? Why are you following me? What is your purpose?" Chen Mu maintained a calm demeanor, loosening his grip on Wei Qi's neck slightly. Panting heavily, Wei Qi gasped, rolling his eyes. "We are members of the Bloodwolf gang. We've been tailing you to avenge Boss Wu. We intend to retaliate against Xiahong. You are Huang Feiyong's cousin. Killing you will provoke Huang Feiyong, and incidentally, we plan to discard your body in the territory of the Green Snake Gang to ignite a war between the 2 factions." Wei Qi's words came in fits and starts as he pleaded once more. "Everything I say is true. I can serve as your undercover agent." Crack. Chen Mu crushed the bones of Wei Qi's neck with a powerful grip. Wei Qi's eyes rolled back, struggling for breath and desperate to survive. The light in his eyes swiftly faded. His head sagged, and he slipped into death. Corpse found. Retrieve it? Chen Mu responded with a curt yes, and released his grip, allowing Wei Qi's body to slump to the ground. Wu Sihai, the overlord of the Blood Wolf gang, was targeted by the Big Knife gang, which seized the opportunity of the Blood Wolf and Green Snake gangs' losses in their recent conflict to launch a sudden assault and seize territory. Retaliation by the Blood Wolf gang was expected. However, the choice of target was perplexing. It was an insignificant low-ranking gang member. The sole reason was that Huang Feiyang was his cousin. Huang Feiyang had recently risen to leadership and was riding a wave of momentum. Killing Huang Feiyang would incur grave consequences, but eliminating Chen Mu was quite different. It would serve as a vent for frustration, discussed Xia Hong, and even sow discord between Huang Feiyang and Xia Hong. It was a merciless strategy. Had I been a reckless, ordinary gang member, this scheme might have truly succeeded. Exhaling deeply, Chen Mu steadied himself. He then lifted Wei Qi's body and approached the corpses of 2 other burly men, removing their belts. He bound the 3 bodies together. With one hand grasping Wei Qi's corpse and the other holding the 2 men, Chen Mu vaulted over the wall, leaving the alley behind. Following a route from Ji Gang's memory card, he evaded nearby residents, swiftly gliding to an abandoned courtyard, halting beside a desiccated well. Setting down the 3 bodies, he searched each one, retrieving a few ounces of silver coins. Earlier, when he had pushed aside a large square stone covering the well, a stench of decay wafted up from its depths. Prepared for this, Chen Mu held his breath, lifted the 3 bodies, and sequentially cast them into the well before sliding the stone back into place. This dry well had been discovered by Ji Gang over 2 years prior and was an ideal site for disposing of bodies. The courtyard had been deserted for decades, overrun with weeds, making it exceedingly unlikely for anyone to discover the corpses within the well. Moreover, Chen Mu had ensured that the 3 victims bore no external wounds to avoid blood dripping. Wu Sihai had chosen Wei Qi as a target, and Wei Qi was the executor. Now that Wei Qi was dead, Wu Sihai would inevitably face the same fate. The leader of the Blood Wolf gang was also a martial artist. Yet Chen Mu had already gathered intelligence regarding the martial cultivation levels of the leaders of the Blood Wolf, Big Knife, and Green Snake gangs. Wu Sihai was merely at the second stage of postnatal cultivation. At this level, Chen Mu was fully capable of dealing with him, but only under the cover of night. With that, Chen Mu departed from the courtyard used for disposing of bodies. On the way home, Chen Mu reached into his pocket to inspect the 3 newly acquired cards. Energy card, strength card, special skill card. Another special skill card? Chapter 17. Consequences are to be born. The skill card records martial prowess. Not merely martial techniques, but also internal cultivation methods. However, with the inclusion of the term special, it signifies abilities pertaining to the physical faculties. The last card granted him an extraordinary sense of smell, the wolf's scent of the moon. This time, it pertains to visual acuity, night vision. Among the deceased Wei Qi and his companions, was there someone inherently capable of night vision? Chen Mu pondered. Most individuals in ancient times suffered from night blindness, primarily due to a deficiency in vitamins. Consequently, once darkness fell, they seldom ventured outdoors. Yet, amidst the populace, a few exceptional individuals possessed innate night vision, long-range sight, or heightened senses of smell, taste, hearing, and even a sixth sense. Such individuals are rare, yet they have always existed. Chen Mu was evidently fortunate this time, having encountered one of them and thus acquiring the ability of night vision. This ability holds significant utility. Although Chen Mu did not suffer from night blindness, his nocturnal outings were often illuminated solely by the clear moonlight when the moon was high above. If clouds obscured the moonlight, he too would be rendered blind in the dark. Now, with the gift of night vision, he could venture out freely at night. As night fell, in Changdefeng, Wu Sihai, his belly protruding after a hearty meal, was picking his teeth and swaying as he exited a tavern. "Take care, Master Wu," said the tavern keeper, bowing at the entrance as he bid farewell. "Do come again." Wu Sihai grunted in acknowledgement, stepping down the stairs. Behind him followed 4 burly men, all engaged in the same tooth-picking and belching. A few diners who were about to enter the tavern quickly stepped aside, waiting for Wu Sihai and his entourage to pass before murmuring among themselves as they entered. The tavern keeper, stationed at the door, greeted them with enthusiasm, his tone much warmer than when bidding farewell to Wu Sihai. Wu Sihai and his companions indulged freely in their repast. It was a wonder he could muster such warmth. The main street of Changdefeng bustled with activity, even at night. Shops lining the road remained open, their doors aglow. Red lanterns hung high, illuminating the thoroughfare like street lamps. Pedestrians moved about, vendors shouted their wares. As Wu Sihai and his 5 companions ambled along, the crowd instinctively parted to make way for them. Suddenly, "Wu Sihai?" leading the group, halted, raising his hand. You all can disperse now. I haven't drunk too much tonight, and I can find my way back on my own. Yes, boss. The 4 men responded with a clasp of their fists. They then turned, exchanging jovial banter as they departed, one mentioning a hot spring, another speaking of a brothel, while yet another remarked that his hands were feeling a bit restless. Wu Sihai listened intently, showing no visible reaction. After taking a few steps forward, he turned into a narrow street, then entered a small alley, twisting and turning until he arrived at a secluded corner, halting beneath a willow tree. What is it? Wu Sihai suddenly spoke, his tone calm. The master wishes to know the whereabouts of Luo Xiaoyu. Have you any news? A deep voice resonated from behind the willow tree. None, Wu Sihai replied. Since Luo Zhongyun's demise, Luo Xiaoyu has vanished. His disappearance is precisely why you are required to search for him. Otherwise, what purpose do you serve? The low voice snapped coldly. The master has decreed that Luo Xiaoyu must be found. It is an order from above. This command must be fulfilled. If you fail, you are well aware of the consequences. Wu Sihai fell silent. In the dark corner less than 10 meters away, Chen Mu remained equally quiet, though a flicker of surprise stirred within him. Luo Xiaoyu? Luo Zhongyun. Suddenly, it dawned on him that Luo Xiaoyu was indeed the son of Luo Zhongyun. Chen Mu did not know Luo Xiaoyu personally. After the extermination of the Luoyun martial arts school, he had presumed that Luo Xiaoyu had perished alongside the others. Little did he expect that while seeking out Wu Sihai to eliminate future threats, he would stumble upon this unexpected revelation. The sole survivor of the Luoyun martial arts school, Luo Xiaoyu, was still alive. However, he had evidently gone into hiding. Listening to Wu Sihai's conversation with the figure behind the willow, it appeared that Luo Xiaoyu harbored some secret, one that the powerful individual behind them desired. Chen Mu was naturally curious about the nature of Luo Xiaoyu's secret, yet he bore no intention of probing further. The individuals responsible for the downfall of the Luoyun martial arts school were born warriors of remarkable strength. Such caliber of individuals sought after treasures that were far beyond Chen Mu's reach. Should he attract their attention, he would not even comprehend the manner of his demise. Moreover, it could implicate Huang Feiyong and Miao Xiuxiu. Conversely, the master referenced in Wu Sihai's dialogue piqued Chen Mu's interest. This master was evidently not a mere leader within the Blood Wolf gang. Rather, it must belong to another faction. The Great Knife Gang was out of the question. Perhaps the Green Snake Gang? Or the Southern Hungry Tiger Gang? Or even the Northern Flying Dragon Gang? Contemplating these possibilities was amusing. Wu Sihai, the prominent figure of the Blood Wolf Gang, was in truth an undercover agent from another organization. How intriguing. Remember, you have only 10 days. The deep voice from behind the willow tree barked. Within this span, Luo Xiaoyu must be found. Otherwise, you shall bear the consequences. With that, a sudden rustling accompanied by the sound of rushing wind echoed as the interlocutor departed swiftly. Wu Sihai remained stationary, silent, while Chen Mu also refrained from movement, patiently biding his time. After a moment, Wu Sihai muttered a curse under his breath, his expression darkening as he stepped out from beneath the tree and retraced his steps. Upon returning to the alley, Chen Mu, who had been closely following, unleashed 10 flying needles. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Who goes there? Wu Sihai, walking ahead, suddenly sensed danger. Instinctively sidestepping to the right to evade 8 of the needles, though 2 managed to strike his arm, embedding themselves painfully. Damn it! Wu Sihai gritted his teeth and let out a low growl, refraining from counterattacking. Instead, he launched himself forward in a desperate sprint. Caught in an ambush and unaware of his assailant's strength, flight was his best option. Unfortunately, with a swift motion, Chen Mu darted forth like a serpent. Hot on his heels, Wu Sihai sensed the futility of escape and, with a resolute roar, summoned all the internal energy from his dantian, channeling it into his hands. He turned to face his pursuer and struck out fiercely. Bang! The collision of fists produced a dull thud. A crack echoed as blood mist erupted from Wu Sihai's arm. Fractures spread across his right arm, originating from his fist. His palm and wrist shattered, as if his entire limb were on the verge of bursting apart. Before Wu Sihai could utter a cry of agony, he found himself propelled backward by immense force. Chen Mu followed closely, relentless in his assault. Bang, bang, bang. 3 more strikes landed, the ferocity of the shattered gold palm pulverizing Wu Sihai's arm bones and ribs, sending him crashing against the wall. Chen Mu then transformed his hand into a claw, seizing Wu Sihai by the throat. Who was the master behind you? Chen Mu inquired in a low voice. Wu Sihai gasped for breath, his eyes glazing over, his mouth tightly shut. Quite loyal, aren't you? Chen Mu remarked coldly, dismissing further conversation. With a decisive grip, he crushed Wu Sihai's neck, ending his life. Body discovered. Would you like to collect? Chapter 18. A life of unfettered success is truly exhilarating. Yes. Chen Mu replied inwardly, retrieving a card. Wu Sihai had mistakenly believed that his silence would spare him. He had overestimated his own importance. Chen Mu's curiosity about Wu Sihai's master and faction was merely that, curiosity. Whether Wu Sihai divulged information or not held little consequence. Using intimidation? A futile endeavor. Grasping Wu Sihai's lifeless body, Chen Mu navigated through a series of narrow alleys, evading others until he reached a secluded spot to dispose of the body. He cast Wu Sihai's remains into a dry well, covering it with stones to conceal any trace. Upon returning to Chongping Fong, he retrieved the newly acquired card along the way, a cultivation card. As a martial artist, Wu Sihai's card was highly sought after. Though Chen Mu's primary desire had been an internal energy card, nevertheless, the cultivation card was still valuable. Despite its 1-year limit, it sufficed for advancing his cloud-shattering palm. Indeed, this proved true. Back at home, Chen Mu activated the cultivation card, and within 2 breaths, he elevated his proficiency in cloud-shattering palm from novice to an accomplished level. It is worth noting that Huang Feiyong had spent half a year on the same technique, achieving only modest progress. A life of unbridled success is truly exhilarating. News of the annihilation of the Luoyun martial arts school spread throughout the eastern district, causing quite a stir. To the denizens of the lower strata, Luo Zhongyun was seen as a formidable master, renowned and powerful. The reputation of the Falling Cloud Martial Arts Academy is quite commendable, as long as one offers sufficient silver. One can master the first 3 tiers of both the Canyun Palm and the Wanyun skill. Over the decades, the number of those who have cultivated the Wanyun skill has reached nearly 80, if not 100, with most expressing profound gratitude towards Luo Zhongyun. However, in a single night, the academy was annihilated, provoking a sense of lamentation. Yet, the news of Luo Xiaoyu's survival seems to have eluded everyone, as Chen Mu observes. Was it intentionally concealed? Speculation aside, this matter is beyond Chen Mu's involvement. He chooses instead to diligently collect cards, a more prudent course of action. He roams the city and visits 2 mass graves outside the city every few days. Though he manages to gather some cards, their quantity remains limited. The opportunity he had previously to acquire multiple inner strength and skill cards in the mountain ravine was indeed an exception. Nevertheless, Chen Mu remains undeterred. With a transient population exceeding 10,000 in Nanyuan Prefecture, it is almost inevitable that someone will perish every couple of days. On one particular afternoon, as Chen Mu returns from the mass graves, he walks along the road leading back to the city when suddenly, a figure dashes out from the nearby forest, fleeing in a state of disarray. Instinctively, he halts, and then 2 more figures emerge from the woods, in pursuit of the first. The disheveled figure clearly belongs to the martial world, while the pursuers are clad in fiery garments, wearing feathered hats, and brandishing tiger-headed knives, exuding an aura of dominance. Are these individuals from the Jinwu Division? Chen Mu's pupils constrict slightly. The Jinwu Division is a brutal institution established by the Great Zhou Court, specifically targeting the martial factions. Their duty is to oversee the entire martial realm, apprehending fugitives, bandits, and notorious criminals. The crimson uniforms and fierce tiger knives are standard gear for the Jinwu guards. In contrast, the city constables handle brawls, petty thefts, and civil disputes, while the Jinwu guards are tasked with serious crimes. When a murder occurs on the streets, the bodies are typically taken by them, and Chen Mu often arrives a moment too late. If he could enter the Jinwu Division, his card-collecting ability would reach its fullest potential. Firstly, he would gain access to various murder scenes, allowing him to approach the corpses closely. Secondly, the information channels within the Jinwu Division are unparalleled. The significance of information cannot be overstated. If he joined the Jinwu Division, Chen Mu would no longer need to roam tirelessly. He would have subordinates reporting murder cases and locations of discovered bodies. Gang conflicts, vendettas, and street brawls would all be known to him at the earliest opportunity. Alas, to gain entry into the Jinwu Division, one must first possess a pristine background. As a member of a gang, Chen Mu is immediately disqualified without the need for review, unless recommended by an insider. This, evidently, is unrealistic. Moreover, it seems the minimum requirement to serve as a guard in the Jinwu Division is to have reached the 4th level of acquired strength. Chen Mu recalls relevant information in his mind and cannot help but click his tongue. Only those at the 4th level can serve as guards, and that is merely the lowest rank of iron guards. Those at the 1st to 3rd levels of acquired strength can only be classified as laborers within the Jinwu Division. Indeed, it is the toilers who lack the privilege to don the fiery attire, and even less so to wield the fierce tiger blade. At my current level of cultivation, should I enter the Jinwu Division, I would merely be a laborer, slightly superior to the most menial of servants. Contemplating this, Chen Mu shook his head, dismissing further thoughts. He resumed his journey, altering his course slightly to follow the 3 figures amidst the escape and pursuit. with the officers of the Chen Mu division personally intervening. The odds of survival for the fleeing individual were grim. If that person were to perish. Taking a deep breath, Chen Mu steadied his mind, activating the heavenly wolf's scent to trace the scent from afar. He walked for half an hour when a sudden whiff of blood wafted toward him. Pinpointed by the heavenly wolf's scent, a spark of joy ignited in his eyes as he halted, waiting patiently in the wilderness for a quarter of an hour, ensuring no one was watching before employing the spirit serpent step to swiftly pursue the scent of blood. Before long, he entered a mountain gorge. Discover corpse. Do you wish to collect? Yes. From a distance of 7 or 8 meters, he retrieved a card and promptly turned to leave, having not even laid eyes on the corpse. The card in hand rendered the visibility of the body inconsequential. He swiftly exited the mountain, distancing himself completely before examining the card. A cultivation card, valid for 3.5 years. The deceased possessed considerable prowess. Chen Mu felt a surge of excitement, but refrained from utilizing it immediately. Upon returning to the city and entering his home, he finally activated the cultivation card to practice the shattered gold palm technique. As the consciousness transformed into a miniature figure, it repeatedly executed the palm technique. An ethereal membrane enveloped his form, stimulating and enhancing the bones of his hands. When he ceased, the realm of the shattered gold palm had ascended from mere proficiency to a state of consummate mastery. With this level of the shattered gold palm, once activated, his palms became as dark as coal, impervious to blades and fire alike. In Changde Square, the lair of the Blood Wolf gang, a burly man, bald with a full beard, inquired of one of Wu Sihai's confidants, "Where has Boss Wu gone? It has been 3 days, and he has yet to return." "Who knows?" replied the questioned man, puzzled and bewildered. "That night, after Boss dismissed us, he mentioned he was heading home, and we left. We have no idea where he went." In the hall, a dozen individuals, some seated and others standing, furrowed their brows at this news. As the leading figure, Wu Sihai's whereabouts were typically known to his subordinates. However, this time was unusual. 3 days had passed without a trace of him. Not only Wu Sihai was missing, but the remaining lieutenant, Wei Qi, had also not made an appearance. Something was amiss. Chapter 19, New Card, Equipment Card. Night. Dark clouds shrouded the sky, obscuring the moonlight. In the darkness of Nanyun City, a significant portion lay in silence. In Chongping Square, Chen Mu was on the verge of slumber when a sudden scream echoed from afar. The resounding cries pierced the night, followed closely by roars and shouts of battle, shattering the stillness. Chen Mu sprang from his bed, donned his clothing, opened the door, and stepped outside. Simultaneously, Huang Feiyang, from the back room, emerged and, upon hearing the commotion from Chen Mu's direction, urgently called out, "Tiger, do not go out. This racket is likely a vendetta from the underworld." The sound seemed to be emanating from the neighboring Chonglong Square. Chen Mu nodded. "I will assess the situation, brother. Rest assured, I shall remain at a distance, merely observing from the periphery." With that, he sprang forward, leaping onto the rooftop. As he traversed the rooftops with remarkable speed, Huang Feiyang, about to scold him, swallowed his words as Chen Mu vanished from sight. The next moment, astonishment washed over his face. Could Tiger truly see in the darkness? In the blink of an eye, Chen Mu had disappeared. Despite the finesse of his lightness skill, if he were unseen, it would be of little consequence. Clearly, Chen Mu was unaffected by such limitations. With his night vision activated, the inky blackness transformed into a translucent shade of lavender before his eyes, allowing him to see as clearly as in daylight. Soaring across the rooftops, employing his serpent step, he soon approached the source of the roars and cries of battle, an inn within Chonglong Square. At that moment, the front door of the inn lay shattered, and the back courtyard was wide open. 2 factions clashed inside and outside the inn. One group, clad in the garb of disciples from a martial sect, was outnumbered but boasted formidable strength, while the other, seemingly a caravan escort, was larger in number yet less skilled. The disciples were all martial artists, whereas the escort, despite their numerical superiority of over 30, had already lost 7 or 8 members to the onslaught of the sect disciples. As Chen Mu crouched on the rooftop, observing from a distance, 2 more from the escort fell in the courtyard. "Retreat!" A booming voice rang out at that moment. A burly man from the escort shouted indignantly, "Everyone, fall back with me." The clash of weapons erupted, sending forth a shower of sparks. The remaining members of the escort hastily retreated from the inn, fleeing into the street, while 7 martial artists from the sect pursued them. Seizing the opportunity, Chen Mu leaped down from the rooftop, employing his serpent step to navigate among the fallen bodies. "Body discovered. Would you like to collect?" "Yes." "Body discovered. Would you like to collect?" "Yes." A total of 13 cards were collected. Several members of the escort had perished within the inn, and Chen Mu overlooked none. With the cards in hand, he swiftly departed, Just as he had arrived via the rooftops, he made his exit the same way. Throughout his journey, no one obstructed him, for the tumult at the inn failed to attract the attention of any martial artist from the city's influential factions. Regarding the Dedeo gang, it is indeed true that Changlongfang is their territory, but this pertains to the underground forces that collect protection fees on the streets. In matters of vendetta, neither Yu Baoyong, who oversees Changlongfang, nor the leader of the Dedeo gang would dare to intervene. When two factions clash, Yu Baoyong naturally hears the commotion, yet he is too intimidated to emerge. Others are even more reluctant. Upon returning home, he was greeted by Huang Feiyong, who engaged him in a lengthy discourse. Chen Mu entered his room to examine the cards he had collected: energy cards, stamina cards, internal power cards, and equipment cards. Upon completion of his inspection, he discovered a particularly valuable internal power card that would enhance his internal cultivation over a span of 2 months. Another card, the equipment card, brought him unexpected joy. As the name suggests, the equipment card encompasses various gear, items, and even elixirs. Items of significant value left behind on corpses could be retrieved and sealed within the equipment card. With a silent incantation, Chen Mu activated the equipment card, releasing its seal to obtain the items within. At that moment, he found himself in possession of a peculiar leather item, resembling an oversized facial mask, a human skin mask. The contents of the retrieved equipment card were, astonishingly, a mask that allowed for disguise. Although it bore the name of human skin, the materials used in crafting this mask were not human dermis, but rather the hide of exotic beasts, special woods, and precious minerals, making it exceedingly valuable, far beyond the reach of ordinary individuals without thousands of taels of silver. Chen Mu had indeed stumbled upon a treasure. In the world of martial arts, the ability to disguise oneself is invaluable. While transformation requires specialized cultivation techniques, he had already acquired the means for disguise. Satisfied, he toyed with the human skin mask, nodding in approval. After a brief moment, he carefully stored it away. He then utilized the internal power card, which conjured internal energy within him, prompting the operation of the Yun Cloud technique, striving to break through to the 4th level of postnatal cultivation. However, the threshold from the 3rd to the 4th level proved to be quite formidable. The internal power card, with its 2 months of cultivation energy, was exhausted without yielding success. Undeterred, Chen Mu was not disheartened, as he anticipated this outcome. It was merely an internal power card. If 2 months was insufficient, then perhaps 3, 4, or 5 months would suffice. Provided he amassed enough internal power cards, he was confident he could achieve a breakthrough. The following day, the violence at Changlongfang from the previous night sparked discussions throughout several markets. However, the bodies were swiftly removed by the authorities early in the morning. This was precisely why Chen Mu, fully aware of the risks, had ventured to the inn to investigate the previous night. Arriving too late would mean missing the opportunity to collect cards from the corpses. Fortunately, upon advancing to the 3rd level of postnatal cultivation, his retrieval range expanded to 8 meters, allowing him to collect cards as long as the bodies were within an 8-meter straight line, eliminating the need for close proximity. Should he break through to the 4th level, this range would increase even further. With a clear goal and motivation, Chen Mu continued to wander throughout the city. Alas, luck is a finite resource. The morning yielded no rewards, nor did the afternoon. As dusk approached, Chen Mu returned to Changpingfang. Upon entering the gate, he encountered 2 members of the Dedeo gang. "Erhu, you have returned?" One of the men, upon seeing Chen Mu, hastily stepped forward and whispered, "Erhu, where have you been? Tiger Boss has sent us to find you." "My brother is looking for me," Chen Mu inquired, puzzled. "Is there something amiss?" "The Qingxi gang has come seeking vengeance," the other burly youth replied in a hushed tone. Just after noon, the Qingxi gang suddenly crossed over and ambushed Tiger Boss. "What?" Chen Mu exclaimed, alarmed. "Is my brother unharmed?" Fortunately, Tiger Boss had made significant advancements in his martial arts, enhancing his strength considerably. During the ambush, he was accompanied by 6 individuals, though he sustained some injuries. They were superficial and not life-threatening. The burly youth continued. "Tiger Boss sent us to inform you of this matter and advised you to refrain from going out in the coming days to avoid being ambushed by the Qingxi gang." "I understand." Chen Mu sighed with relief and asked, "Do you know who led the ambush against my brother?" Chapter 20, Pinnacle of Mastery. Su Chong. The leader of the attack was Su Chong, a minor leader of the Qingxi gang, known by the moniker Viper. In Changpingfang, the Dedeo gang's base, Huang Feiyong had his arms bandaged, his waist and abdomen similarly wrapped. His face was pale as he spoke in a low tone. This Su Chong is notorious for his rashness and lack of foresight, yet his martial talent is commendable. His claw technique is highly refined, and these wounds on my body are the result of his venomous strikes. Huang Feiyong bore 4 bloody holes in each of his arms, alongside claw marks that had torn through the skin, exposing flesh and nearly reaching the bone. Although not critical, the injuries were severe on a superficial level. For the next month and a half, he would be unable to engage in combat, assuming a standard healing pace. I will take care of him tonight, Chen Mu stated calmly. Since the Qingxi gang had initiated their retaliation, it was unlikely they would strike only once. Given that Su Chong enjoyed taking the lead, it was imperative to deal with him first. By the way, who is Su Chong's superior? The leader of the Qingxi gang is Liang Feng. Huang Feiyang replied without hesitation. He then added, but do not confront Liang Feng. I have heard that his cultivation is quite formidable. Approximately at the 3rd level of acquired strength. Rest assured, I will exercise caution, Chen Mu replied with a smile. Brother, focus on your recovery. By the way, I will procure some ointment for you. There's no need. I have already applied medicine to these wounds, Huang Feiyang refused. Upon hearing this, Chen Mu did not press further. The ointment Huang Feiyang had applied was merely ordinary. To expedite recovery and regenerate flesh, one would require premium supplies, which, regrettably, were financially out of reach. Although Huang Feiyang's monthly salary as a minor leader had risen to 100 taels of silver, it barely covered his sustenance and the cost of medicinal herbs for cultivation. Premium ointment was simply beyond his means. However, while Huang Feiyang lacked the funds, Chen Mu did not. From the trove concealed within Ji Gang's memories, Chen Mu procured 3,500 taels of silver, of which he expended merely 800 to acquire a finely crafted sword, leaving the remainder untouched. Initially, he intended to allocate 1,000 taels to Huang Feiyang for martial arts training at the Falling Cloud Martial Arts School. However, the school met a tragic end. Yet fortune favored him when he discovered a card for the rolling cloud technique. Before darkness fell, Chen Mu made a trip to the inner city Jishir Hall, spending 500 taels on 5 medicinal plasters. Each plaster cost 100 taels. While exorbitant, their renowned efficacy justified the price. Upon seeing them, Huang Feiyang felt both the sting of expense and a swell of gratitude, inquiring about the source of Chen Mu's funds. Chen Mu deflected with a vague response, attributing it to his master. With the plasters already procured, there was no turning back. As night descended, Chen Mu donned his nocturnal garb and equipped himself with several items before heading towards the territory of the Green Snake Gang, specifically to the street overseen by Su Chong. Upon arrival, he seized a member of the gang and extracted information regarding Su Chong's residence and current whereabouts, hurrying to a narrow alley. Su Chong, despite lacking intellect and possessing a volatile temperament, was also quite lecherous. Each night, he sought the company of women, and any virtuous women who fell under his gaze rarely escaped his clutches. This night was no exception. As dusk settled, Su Chong made his way to the home of a woman he had taken a fancy to during the day. Just as Chen Mu approached, Su Chong emerged from a humble abode, having just concluded his sordid business. Damn woman, being with me is your fortune from 8 lifetimes. He cursed, fastening his belt as he swaggered down the alley, devoid of any gang members. Su Chong bore an air of arrogance. As a minor leader, he was expected to have a few trusted aides, yet he did not. His impulsive nature often left his subordinates battered, prompting them to seek alliances with other leaders. Su Chong, indifferent to their intentions, spent his days practicing martial arts when not engaged in violence. In certain respects, he was somewhat uncomplicated, but his simplicity bore no relevance to Chen Mu. Suddenly, without the sound of a slicing wind, 10 flying needles erupted towards Su Chong as he rounded a corner. The attack was wholly unexpected. Upon sensing the danger, he barely had time to raise his arms to shield his face. The needles pierced his arms, embedding themselves entirely. Before he could utter a sound, a flash of sword light abruptly filled his vision. The sharp tip of the sword accurately penetrated his throat, piercing through his trachea. With his arms still raised in defense, Su Chong's eyes widened in shock, his body freezing in place as the light in his gaze extinguished in a mere breath. Discover corpse. Would you like to collect? Yes. Chen Mu retracted his sword, flicking away the blood before turning to depart. Su Chong's body thudded heavily to the ground. Unhindered, Chen Mu intended to eliminate not only Su Chong, but also his superior, Liang Feng. If time permitted, the other leaders of the Qingxi gang would also become targets. As he walked, he reached into his pocket to examine the newly acquired card, an enhancement card. It had a duration of 2 years. Su Chong, it seemed, was not as insignificant as he appeared. A smirk graced Chen Mu's lips as he activated the card in the open. This particular enhancement card was aimed at the spirit snake steps. Over the span of 2 years, he would train relentlessly. Within 2 breaths, Chen Mu's mastery of the spirit snake steps ascended to an extraordinary level. This marked his first achievement in elevating a martial art to such a pinnacle of excellence. In a swift motion, Chen Mu shifted right, then back, followed by a leftward movement, advancing 10 meters forward. In a single breath, he transformed his position 4 times, covering a distance of several meters. Upon halting, a long trail of shadows echoed his movements. The lightness of his skill, now at an extraordinary level, endowed him with exceptional characteristics, making the task of eliminating Liang Feng considerably more straightforward. However, upon arriving at the street where Liang Feng resided, after capturing a member of the Qingxi gang and inquiring about Liang Feng's current location, Chen Mu did not act immediately. Instead, he retrieved a human skin mask and covered his face. In a swift motion, he rubbed it, transforming his visage. At the entrance of a tavern, Liang Feng emerged, accompanied by 4 gang members, belching as they exited. As he walked, he picked his teeth, inquiring whether there had been any developments from the Dao gang. "No, boss. Nothing unusual for now," one of the members replied. "Nothing?" Liang Feng's brow furrowed in concern. Was the silence a sign of restraint? Suddenly, a fierce gust of wind rushed towards him. In that moment of contemplation, Liang Feng's heart raced, and instinctively, he sidestepped while pushing one of his followers forward. With a swift motion, a sharp blade sliced through the neck of the unfortunate follower, who emitted no sound. His head fell away from his body. The glint of the sword flashed ominously. The chilling intent of the strike did not dissipate. After severing the follower's neck, the blade seemed to possess a will of its own, curving back towards Liang Feng. Liang Feng evaded once more, but this time he was only partially successful, as the razor-sharp blade pierced through half of his cheek. Yet, the very next moment, the blade pivoted and severed through Liang Feng's neck. Amidst a spray of blood, his head was sent soaring into the air. Chapter 21. The Wrath of the Qingxi gang. A martial artist's realm does not solely define their combat prowess. A warrior's strength encompasses various elements, including their level, techniques, martial skills, weaponry, combat awareness, and experience, among numerous internal and external factors. To evaluate a martial artist's capability, one must consider their overall combat strength. Chen Mu executed the unparalleled Spirit Serpent Step, complemented by the masterful heart-piercing sword, launching a surprise attack on the unprepared Liang Feng. Although the latter sensed the impending danger and managed to evade, it was merely a fleeting respite. The third-tier post-heaven realm was no match for the innate third tier. Neither his control over his physical form nor his mental response was sufficient to withstand, let alone retaliate. In the end, Liang Feng never glimpsed Chen Mu's visage. He could not even discern whether Chen Mu was male or female, for as Chen Mu circled around him, the Spirit Serpent Step rendered him only capable of perceiving afterimages. Thus, Liang Feng, despite possessing considerable skills, found himself bereft of any opportunity to employ them. The same fate befell his 3 subordinates, who, like Liang Feng, failed to discern Chen Mu's appearance before being engulfed by the glimmer of the sword, blood gushing from their necks, collapsing almost simultaneously. Body discovered. Would you like to collect? Yes. Body discovered. Would you like to collect? Yes. With 5 cards in hand, Chen Mu turned to depart. Only after he had distanced himself did astonished gasps and screams erupt upon the street. Liang Feng had been dealt with. The spoils included 2 energy cards, 1 stamina card, 1 strength card, and 1 inner power card equivalent to a month and a half of cultivation. Quite satisfactory. Next on his list was Zhang Baohua. Like Liang Feng, he was a prominent leader of the Green Serpent Gang, possessing a second-tier post-heaven realm. Following the same pattern, Chen Mu hurried to the street under Zhang Baohua's charge, capturing a member of the Green Serpent Gang to ascertain his current whereabouts, which led him to a gambling den. Just as Su Chong was known for his lasciviousness, Zhang Baohua was notorious for his gambling. Chen Mu made his way directly to the smoke-filled gambling hall, locating Zhang Baohua, who was vociferously shouting. Surrounded by 6 gang members, Chen Mu did not hesitate. As one of the subordinates attempted to block his path, he swiftly executed the Spirit Serpent Step, circumventing the obstacle and closing in on Zhang Baohua, simultaneously thrusting his sword. So swift, Zhang Baohua, fixated on the gambling table, only felt a sudden chill creep up his back, a surge of dread washing over him, before a sharp pain struck his neck, plunging him into darkness. A piercing sword tip penetrated Zhang Baohua's neck, spilling a fountain of blood across the gambling table. As Chen Mu withdrew his sword, he made a sweeping motion. 3 distinct sounds echoed, and 3 lines of blood erupted forth. Body discovered. Would you like to collect? Yes. For cards acquired. Not all of Zhang Baohua's trusted aides were eliminated. 3 remained, frozen in shock as Chen Mu strode away. Silence enveloped the gambling den for a moment before chaos erupted. Someone's dead. Boss Zhang is dead. It's over. Who was that? The one who just struck? Why does he look so familiar? I think I feel the same way. In the alleyway, Chen Mu moved swiftly towards his next target, the lair of Wang Gui, the head of the Green Snake Gang. He reached into his pocket to examine the newly acquired cards, 2 stamina cards, 1 strength card, and 1 inner strength card representing a month's cultivation. Liang Feng and Zhang Baohua, Both martial artists had perished, making it possible for him to collect the inner strength card. However, these cards were insufficient for Chen Mu to break through the fourth stage of acquired strength. Thus, he needed to take the initiative. He proceeded as usual, heading to Wang Gui's territory to capture a member of the Green Snake Gang and extract information regarding Wang Gui's current whereabouts. Upon learning that Wang Gui was entertaining guests at home, Chen Mu made his way there directly. The esteemed guests might choose to avoid confrontation. However, a few wandering souls did not intimidate Chen Mu, especially since he was currently donning the visage of another. Arriving at Wang Gui's residence, he climbed over the wall and followed the sounds of laughter and conversation. Utilizing the spirit snake step, he moved undetected past the servants he encountered. Approaching the open hall, he continued forward without hesitation, entering the room. "Who goes there?" questioned Wang Gui, holding a wine glass, his gaze shifting towards Chen Mu with a look of confusion. "Is this another visitor for Brother Wang?" A burly man beside him inquired. At that moment, Wang Gui's pupils suddenly constricted as he exclaimed, "Wu Sihai, what brings you here in the dead of night?" In response, Chen Mu surged forward, unleashing his inner strength as he dashed towards Wang Gui, closing the distance to 5 meters in an instant. His blade, glinting coldly, sliced through the air, aimed directly at Wang Gui's neck. With a hint of forewarning, Wang Gui barely managed to evade the attack by shifting to the right. Although Chen Mu's piercing strike missed its target, he swiftly adjusted his wrist, propelling the blade towards Wang Gui once more. Blood sprayed forth as Wang Gui, unable to dodge a second time, felt the icy grip of danger. His face paled, and his body turned cold, brain screaming for him to escape, but his body betrayed him, failing to respond to his commands. Consequently, Wang Gui could only watch in horror as the blade obscured his vision, culminating in a sharp pain to his neck, plunging him into unconsciousness. His severed head flew through the air. "Discover corpse. Do you wish to collect?" "Yes." With the card in hand, Chen Mu swiftly retreated. Utilizing the spirit snake step, he flickered once and exited the hall, then vanished into the darkness with another graceful motion. Inside the room, the guests stood frozen, their eyes wide with disbelief. It happened too quickly. From the moment Chen Mu entered, to the instant he decapitated Wang Gui and finally departed, merely 3 breaths had passed. They were utterly unable to react, especially as Wang Gui had mistakenly referred to Chen Mu as Wu Sihai, believing him to be his adversary. Yet, right before their very eyes, Chen Mu had severed Wang Gui's head with a single stroke. Liang Feng, Zhang Baohua, and Wang Gui, 3 prominent leaders, have met their untimely demise in swift succession. The news rapidly reached the headquarters of the Qingxi gang, causing an immediate uproar. Bang! Han Qing, the leader of the Qingxi gang, slammed his palm onto the table, shattering it into pieces, exuding an aura of malevolence as fury ignited in his eyes. "Is Li Xiangyang seeking death?" he bellowed. "Summon all our forces. We shall wage war against the Blood Wolf gang." "Yes," responded the 2 angry hall masters, clasping their fists in acknowledgement before hastily departing to gather their men. "Leader, I sense something amiss," interjected Li Wenzhong, furrowing his brow. Though Wu Sihai possesses considerable strength, eyewitnesses described the assailant's lightness of foot as extraordinary, reaching a pinnacle of skill. When did Wu Sihai acquire such capability? Moreover, disregarding his agility, the consecutive assassinations of our 3 leaders is highly unusual. The Blood Wolf gang should be recuperating just like us, perhaps retaliating against the Dideo gang at most, rather than instigating such chaos. "Enough," Han Qing shouted, cutting him off. Regardless of whether Wu Sihai has lost his mind, he is indeed responsible for the deaths of Liang Feng, Wang Gui, and Zhang Baohua. The loss of 3 prominent leaders demands retribution from Li Xiangyang. Chapter 22, Breakthrough. The 4th layer of the postnatal realm. Li Xiangyang, the leader of the Blood Wolf gang, now faced the grim reality of losing half of the 6 principal leaders of the Qingxi gang. How could Han Qing not be enraged? In his fury, Han Qing dismissed any counsel. Li Wenzhong, merely a strategist and a longtime confidant of Han Qing, understood that only through venting could the leader regain composure. How to vent? Through bloodshed. The bodies of Liang Feng, Wang Gui, and Zhang Baohua remained unburied. Under Han Qing's furious leadership, the Qingxi gang crossed the border and invaded the territory of the Blood Wolf gang. By the time Li Xiangyang received the news and rushed to the scene, Han Qing had already slaughtered 2 of the Blood Wolf gang's leaders, 9 minor leaders, and a hall master. Han Qing, with an enraged roar, Li Xiangyang, enveloped in a surge of energy, leaped forward, traversing several meters in an instant to confront Han Qing. His dark hand shattered the air, producing a thunderous sound. Whoosh! Bang! The sharp whistle mingled with a violent explosion, releasing a powerful wave of energy that sent members of the Blood Wolf gang and Qing Shi gang sprawling to the ground or retreating in haste. Han Qing, who had withstood Li Xiangyang's formidable strike, found himself compelled to retreat 5 steps, his hands trembling and his face ashen. The 9th layer of the postnatal realm. Han Qing's voice was low and gravelly, laced with disbelief. No wonder you dared to orchestrate an attack against my Qing Shi gang. You have achieved a breakthrough. As the words left his lips, he stomped the ground, leaving a distinct footprint that shattered the bluestone surface beneath him. Utilizing the rebound, he propelled himself towards Li Xiangyang with ferocity. Bang, bang, bang. Li Xiangyang's eyes blazed with fury as he unleashed his attack without mercy, his internal energy surging and causing his garments to flutter. Those around them could do nothing but retreat. Only 2 days away from achieving the 8th level of cultivation, Han Qing withstood the onslaught. Although his realm was 1 level lower, his combat prowess was formidable, especially when driven by fury, fighting recklessly and without regard for his life. Li Xiangyang, though filled with anger, maintained clarity of mind. Confronting the frenzied Han Qing, he countered while striking. What ambush? You were the one who led your men to attack first. Li Xiangyang, what a grandiose pretense you put on. Han Qing shouted as he launched a savage assault. Wu Sihai has slain 3 leaders of my Qing snake gang. Was that not your command? Boom, boom, boom. The force swept through, sending debris flying. Li Xiangyang unleashed a flurry of strikes. Upon hearing Han Qing's outcry, he furrowed his brow and retorted, Wu Sihai? Was he not reported missing? I have never given the order for him to attack your Qing snake gang. Crash. A sound of bones fracturing echoed as Li Xiangyang struck Han Qing's chest, breaking 2 ribs and propelling him backward uncontrollably. Li Xiangyang then halted, coldly asserting, though I, Li Xiangyang, am not a virtuous man, my words carry weight. 1 is 1. And 2 is 2. If I commanded Wu Sihai to attack you, I would not shy away from acknowledging it. Stopping his retreat, Han Qing, blood trickling from the corner of his mouth, gasped as his expression shifted rapidly. After a moment, he spoke in a low tone, Are you speaking the truth? The truth or falsehood had become irrelevant. Disguised as Wu Sihai, the disheveled Chen Mu, mingling among the chaotic battle, smirked slightly while listening to the exchange between Han Qing and Li Xiangyang. His aim to incite a conflict between the Qing Snake Gang and the Blood Wolf Gang had been achieved. Wandering through the crowd, he collected over 30 cards. Among them a cultivation card with a 2-year limit, and 3 additional inner strength cards with cultivation durations of 2.5 months, 1.5 months, and 2 months respectively. Coupled with the 3 inner strength cards obtained from slaying Wang Gui and Liang Feng, he had amassed enough to break through. With this in mind, Chen Mu decisively withdrew from the fray, slipping into an alley, exiting the Blood Wolf Gang's territory, and returning to Chongping Fong. Back at home, he informed Huang Feiyang that he had dealt with Su Chong and Liang Feng. He then retreated to his room, retrieving the inner strength cards. One by one, he activated them, feeling waves of inner strength manifest within him, propelling the rolling cloud technique into motion, surging against his bottleneck. 1 card, 2 cards, 3 cards. Upon using the 5th inner strength card, totaling 7 months of cultivation, a peculiar sound resonated within him as he successfully shattered the threshold from the 3rd to the 4th level of postnatal cultivation. The blood within surged, its flow accelerating instantaneously. Skin, flesh, tendons, and bones underwent a comprehensive enhancement and transformation. Chen Mu sat in stillness, as mist began to rise from his head and body. The tumultuous vitality coursed through him, igniting his physique with heat. After a while, the mist dissipated, his energy calmed, and his breathing stabilized. With a swift movement, he stood and took a step within the room, not channeling inner strength, yet delivering a simple punch. With a whoosh and a bang, the punch resonated, echoing like thunder. The 4th stage of the postnatal realm was achieved. Chen Mu exhaled slowly, calming his excited heart. At the 4th stage, his physical strength alone was sufficient to shatter the air. With an explosive sprint, even without the aid of lightness skills, he could keep pace with a galloping steed. As for endurance, it varied from person to person. Among the 3 major factions, the Qing Snake Gang, the Blood Wolf Gang, and the Big Knife Gang, only the high-ranking leaders at the Hall Master level possessed this realm. The 4th, 5th, or even 6th stages of the postnatal realm were reserved for them. As for the gang leader, they were at least at the 7th stage. It was only recently that Chen Mu learned that Li Xiangyang, the leader of the Blood Wolf Gang, had broken through to the 9th stage of the postnatal realm. Knock. Knock, knock. The door was rapped upon. Tiger, are you asleep? Huang Feiyang called anxiously from outside. Not yet, Chen Mu replied, gathering his breath and walking over to open the door. What's the matter, brother? There was a brutal clash on the streets between the Qing Snake Gang and the Blood Wolf Gang. Li Xiangyang and Han Qing, both gang leaders, personally entered the fray. It is said that the conflict arose when members of the Blood Wolf gang assassinated 3 high-ranking officials of the Qing Snake gang, including Liang Feng. You are me. Before Huang Feiyang could finish, Chen Mu calmly interjected, acknowledging, it was I who used the human skin mask given by my master to impersonate Wu Sihai, a prominent figure in the Blood Wolf gang, and assassinated Liang Feng and the others, which triggered the renewed conflict between the Qing Snake gang and the Blood Wolf gang. I was present at the scene and counted the numbers. Both factions suffered significant casualties. 2 high-ranking officials were killed, along with 1 hall master. Brother, you could suggest to Boss Ye that he persuade the gang leader to take this opportunity to seize more territory. Huang Feiyang stood there, mouth agape, astonished. His eyes were fixated on Chen Mu, filled with shock, disbelief, and yet a sense of relief and joy. It's true, having just received the news. He had speculated that the instigator of the conflict between the Qing Snake and Blood Wolf gangs was likely Chen Mu. That's why he hurried back to inquire. The result confirmed his suspicions. Indeed, it was Chen Mu. Overwhelmed, Huang Feiyang found himself speechless, his mind slightly foggy. After a moment, he took a deep breath to steady his emotions and cautiously asked, Tiger, what stage are you currently at? The 3rd stage of the postnatal realm. Chen Mu understated his accomplishment. Having just broken through as a martial artist a few months prior, if he were to speak the truth, it would not merely classify him as a genius, but as a prodigy. Nevertheless, upon hearing this, Huang Feiyang's mouth fell open again, his face a mask of astonishment. The 3rd stage of the postnatal realm. In such a short time, you've reached the 3rd stage. A genius, Huang Feiyang murmured in a daze. Almost as if in a dream. Is this what it means to be a genius? Chen Mu's lips twitched slightly as he cleared his throat, and said, Brother, if you have any questions about your training in the cloud rolling skill, feel free to ask me. That is essential. Huang Feiyang took a deep breath, rubbing his face with both hands to compose himself. However, tonight was not the time. He needed to seek out Boss Ye. Just as you mentioned, this was a prime opportunity to seize territory. Huzi, you stay home and keep watch. I estimate I won't return until dawn. Off you go. Chen Mu nodded, reminding him to bring a few companions along the way. Rest assured, Huang Feiyang, already turning away, raised a hand and departed swiftly. Chen Mu watched his figure vanish at the entrance, and suddenly, a card appeared in his hand. The final inner force card. Upon immediate use, the card transformed into a stream of light, penetrating his body. The newly acquired inner strength set the Yun Cloud technique into motion. Soon, this surge of energy was fully absorbed. 2 months' worth of cultivation could hardly propel the Yun Cloud technique to the 5th level of postnatal mastery. Chen Mu estimated that at least 10 months of cultivation would be required for such a breakthrough. Inner force cards need not be stored, but cultivation cards could be temporarily kept. He had fully grasped the pinnacle of the Spirit Snake step, and now, his aim was to elevate the combat skill Shattered Gold Palm to the same realm of excellence. However, the 2-year limit on cultivation cards was evidently insufficient. It would likely take 5 or even 6 years to ascend from mastery to the pinnacle. The conflict between the Blue Snake gang and the Blood Wolf gang, 2 factions freshly embroiled in battle, had resulted in significant losses. Several of their top leaders had perished. In such circumstances, the Big Knife gang seized the opportunity to claim territory, advancing their plans with remarkable ease. The Blue Snake gang and Blood Wolf gang offered little resistance, swiftly retreating. Throughout the entire process, only 3 individuals met their demise. Chen Mu collected 3 cards, an energy card, a stamina card, and a strength card. There were no inner force or skill cards among them, but Chen Mu had anticipated this. The expansion of the card collection range was far more gratifying than the cards themselves. 16 meters. Upon breaking through to the 4th level of postnatal mastery, his collection range extended to 16 meters. This distance allowed him to collect cards even from across buildings. However, deaths were not a daily occurrence. After consecutive battles, both the Blue Snake gang and the Blood Wolf gang chose to retreat, having suffered significant casualties. The Big Knife gang, having seized their territory, recognized when to withdraw, refraining from further pressure. To force the Blue Snake and Blood Wolf to unite against the Big Knife gang would be an unwise endeavor. Chen Mu also refrained from impersonating Wu Sihai once more. Being at the 4th level of postnatal mastery still placed him among the lower-tier martial artists. Not only could he not contend with Sun Jindong, but even the leaders of several gangs posed a threat he could not face. If encountered, he would have no choice but to flee. Thus, Chen Mu resumed his aimless wandering through the streets, making a point to visit the outskirts mass grave every 3 days. The number of cards he collected remained scant. On this particular day, returning to the city from the western suburbs, he passed through a street when suddenly the sounds of commotion reached his ears. Were there martial artists clashing in the streets? Chen Mu, filled with excitement, swiftly made his way through the crowd. Upon hearing the murmurs, He realized the source of the commotion was a dapper young gentleman who had cornered a lady and was persistently pursuing her. The Guo family was indeed overbearing. The young lady from the Li family had explicitly expressed her disinterest, yet he continued to harass her. Who could blame him, though? The Li family simply could not compare to the Guo family. Moreover, this Guo Jinluan was a direct descendant of the Guo family. Despite being the fifth in line and possessing mediocre martial prowess, his spoiled demeanor made it clear that the Li family could not afford to offend him. It was simply a matter of fortunate birth. The surrounding crowd whispered among themselves. Chen Mu calmly observed the scene, where a flamboyantly dressed, strikingly handsome young man with lewd eyes was teasing a beautiful maiden. Guo Jinluan, the fifth young master of the Guo family? Few dared to confront him. Given that the Guo family was one of the three prominent clans in Nanyuan Prefecture, a martial lineage with a history spanning over a century, boasting multiple innate masters within its ranks. As a member of the Guo family, one is naturally held in high regard. However, the offspring of great families, even if chosen for meticulous training, would seldom engage in such debauched behavior as publicly harassing women. Guo Jinluan was evidently a discarded scion. Suddenly, a flash of sword light erupted at the side of the street. As Guo Jinluan continued his relentless teasing of the maiden, a figure lunged forth from behind, slipping past Guo Jinluan's two bodyguards, and thrust a sword into the young man's back. A piercing scream erupted from the maiden as a spray of warm blood splattered across her face. "Young master, you seek death." The two bodyguards, jolted awake, bellowed as they drew their blades to retaliate against the assailant, a masked young man. With a flicker of movement, the masked figure swiftly wielded his sword. The strikes, though not particularly intricate, resonated with an inexplicable vibrating force. With two muted thuds, the guards' weapons were knocked from their grasp, injuring their wrists in the process. In the next moment, the sword flashed again, and the guards' necks erupted in fountains of blood as they collapsed to the ground. Just before they hit the ground, the masked man sheathed his sword and turned to depart. The street descended into chaos, and the masked figure, blending into the crowd, vanished in an instant. This was surely going to lead to a major incident. Who was that person? How dare he attempt to assassinate Guo Jinluan in broad daylight? Has he lost his mind? Why does he seem somewhat familiar? What? You recognize him? But he was masked. How could you identify him? No, I meant the sword technique. The style he employed was remarkably familiar. Indeed, it was the cloud-dispersing sword. No doubt about it. It belongs to the Luo family of the Falling Cloud Martial Arts School in the Eastern District. The assailant is from the Falling Cloud Martial Arts School? No way. But that school has been exterminated. The speaker's words abruptly halted. Exchanging a fleeting glance with his companion, their expressions shifting, he lowered his head and swiftly departed. The few pedestrians who overheard their conversation, too, dared not linger and hurried away. Chen Mu was also on the move, however. He approached the three corpses to retrieve the cards before turning to leave. A tremor stirred within him. Was the masked man employing the cloud-dispersing sword? Could he be Luo Xiaoyu, the sole survivor of the Luo family after the massacre of the Falling Cloud Martial Arts School? He had brazenly slain Guo Jinluan in broad daylight. Was it possible that the Guo family had orchestrated the annihilation of the Falling Cloud Martial Arts School? Chapter 24. A bounty of 100,000. Luo Zhongyun had fallen at the hands of innate martial artists, and the Guo family boasted more than one such adept. The massacre at the Falling Cloud Martial Arts School had been executed with little commotion, indicating a vast disparity in strength between the factions. If the Guo family had indeed been responsible, it would be entirely plausible. They possessed the power to accomplish such a feat. Yet, what could have provoked the Guo family to obliterate the Falling Cloud Martial Arts School? As Chen Mu pondered while walking, he considered whether Luo Zhongyun or Luo Xiaoyu had offended a descendant of the Guo family, or if the Falling Cloud Martial Arts School possessed something of value that the Guo family coveted, leading them to resort to extermination in a bid for acquisition. Naturally, Chen Mu understood that a massacre could also serve to maintain secrecy. Only the dead could keep their silence. Unless someone shared his unique ability to retrieve cards, a certain probability existed for them to acquire a memory card, regardless of the reasoning. The destruction of the Falling Cloud Martial Arts School was undoubtedly linked to the Guo family. Luo Xiaoyu's public assassination of Guo Jinluan had shattered any facade of cordiality. He reached into his pocket to examine the three newly acquired cards, an inner strength card, another inner strength card, and an equipment card. The two inner strength cards represented 2 months and 1 month of cultivation, respectively, while the equipment card yielded a bottle of nourishing essence pills. Did Guo Jinluan consume nourishing essence pills as if they were mere candies? Chen Mu's mouth twitched at the thought. It was no surprise, given his noble lineage, that even a discarded wastrel from a prestigious family would indulge in such elixirs without a second thought. Nourishing essence pills, known for enhancing one's internal strength, were considered significant treasures, even at the lowest grade, specifically targeting acquired martial artists. A single pill could be valued at 60 to 70 taels of silver. The crux of the matter was that ordinary martial artists had no access to such items. They lacked the means to procure them, while the black market offered these goods. Discerning their authenticity was a challenge. Chen Mu himself possessed over 2,000 taels, yet could not acquire them. Fortunately, he had managed to retrieve a bottle through the equipment card. Upon returning home, Chen Mu unscrewed the cap and counted. 9 nourishing essence pills remained. In terms of value, they amounted to at least 500 taels of silver. After inhaling their fragrance, he replaced the cap. With the inner strength cards in hand, he had no need for the nourishing essence pills. It was important to note that consuming elixirs did not guarantee complete absorption. The absorption rate, efficiency, and conversion varied from person to person. Those prodigies who cultivated at an accelerated pace often achieved remarkable results from a single pill, while others might absorb only 30%. They could absorb 90 or even 100%. This phenomenon was precisely what was referred to as innate talent. Taking medicinal pills requires time for digestion. How can it compare to the inner strength card, which allows for absorption within mere seconds? The efficiency is unequivocally 100%. Therefore, these 9 Peiyuan pills would be better suited for Huang Feiyang. The inner strength card is a matter of utmost secrecy and cannot be shared. The Peiyuan pills, however, bear no such consequences. Huang Feiyang possesses commendable martial talent, yet he lacks the resources for cultivation. Previously, he was financially constrained, and now his funds remain limited, primarily allocated for purchasing tonics to nourish his vitality. These 9 Peiyuan pills might enable Huang Feiyang to break through and attain the status of a formal martial artist. As night fell and Huang Feiyang returned, Chen Mu called out to him, "Brother, take these medicinal pills." Chen Mu said, while handing over a porcelain vial containing the Peiyuan pills. "Oh." Huang Feiyang instinctively took it, then, realizing what it was, exclaimed in astonishment. "What did you say? Medicinal pills? This vial contains 9 Peiyuan pills." Chen Mu replied, "I already have some. This is the surplus. So feel free to use them for your cultivation." Peiyuan pills? Huang Feiyang's eyes widened, gripping the vial tightly. "Where did you get these, Tiger? Did your master give them to you?" "Yes," Chen Mu nodded. The fictitious master had proven to be quite useful. "All right." Huang Feiyang took a deep breath to steady his emotions and nodded vigorously. "Then I shall accept them. Please convey my gratitude to your master. If he ever pays a visit, Tiger, be sure to inform me in advance so I can host him properly." "Absolutely," Chen Mu replied readily. "A visit? That would be a distant dream." With the Peiyuan pills given to Huang Feiyang and 2 inner strength cards utilized, Chen Mu activated the cloud rolling technique, enhancing his own cultivation level. The following morning, Chen Mu set out early, wandering the streets. With Luo Xiaoyu having killed Guijinluan in public, retaliation from the Guo family was inevitable. Indeed, at each market's entrance, Chen Mu spotted the wanted poster for Luo Xiaoyu. Within just one night, he had made it onto the government's wanted list. The bounty was a staggering 100,000 taels of silver. That's quite a sum, he mused. Of course, considering the Guo family's influence, which has spanned over a century, 100,000 taels is hardly substantial. This amount is merely an opening gambit. Do you think the Luoyun martial arts school will be eradicated by the Guo family? Otherwise, why would Luo Xiaoyu have killed Guijinluan? Hush, keep your voice down, or you'll get us both in trouble, murmured the crowd gathered around the notice board. Chen Mu stood quietly to the side, observing without comment. Yet internally, he pondered whether Luo Xiaoyu's public assassination of Guijinluan was not a deliberate act. Was the intent to let others know that it was the Guo family responsible for the downfall of the Luoyun martial arts school? To tarnish the Guo family's reputation? Luo Xiaoyu was acutely aware that, given his strength, he could not contend with the Guo family. A covert assault to eliminate 1 or 2 young heirs of the Guo family poses no significant challenge. However, once the Guo family mobilizes, escape will be impossible. Hence, tarnishing the Guo family's reputation serves as a form of retribution. The more Chen Mu contemplated, the more feasible this notion appeared. As for the bounty of 100,000 taels of silver, indeed, it holds merit. Those wandering the martial world often possess limited financial resources. Such individuals would not shy away from seizing an opportunity for extra income. Yet, for 3 consecutive days, no one succeeded in locating Luo Xiaoyu. The reward posted in the announcement board escalated from 100,000 to 200,000. However, the truth remained that he could not be found. With the vastness of Nanyuan City and its population exceeding hundreds of thousands, the number of individuals grateful to the Luoyun Martial Arts School over the decades is no fewer than 80, if not 100. With their support, Luo Xiaoyu's resolute concealment became nearly impenetrable. What astonished everyone was that on the 4th day, the Jinwu division made its move. Clad in crimson armor and wielding fierce tiger blades, a squad of 10 Jinwu guards, led by an officer of the Copper Division, traversed the streets with a half-human-tall black hound in tow. The giant black dog sniffed the air as it walked, its unusually large ears occasionally perking up and twitching. The Guo family had surprisingly persuaded the Chen Mu division to dispatch personnel to search for Luo Xiaoyu. From a distance, Chen Mu observed this procession, silently mourning for Luo Xiaoyu. The hound raised by the Chen Mu division was evidently extraordinary, belonging to a category of exotic beasts. There was no escaping for Luo Xiaoyu. With a swift motion, Chen Mu leapt forward, trailing behind the Chen Mu division. Should Luo Xiaoyu perish, he might be able to acquire the Danyang sword, a remarkable martial skill. He followed closely, and to his surprise, many others trailed behind as well. Unsurprisingly, those from the Guo family naturally accompanied the search. Thus, the Chen Mu guards led the way, followed by a throng of over 100 people, a grand procession weaving through the streets. They eventually halted at the entrance of a courtyard situated along a bustling alley. Woof. Chapter 25, Innate Martial Arts. Woof, woof, woof. The blackhound's barks escalated from warnings to urgent cries. Suddenly, it lunged forward, crashing through the tightly shut courtyard gate. The fugitive was attempting to flee. The leading Chen Mu guard, a dark-faced man, swiftly scanned the courtyard and spotted a figure scaling the wall in escape. Without hesitation, he gestured commanding, "Pursue." As his voice echoed, he sprang into the air, leaping onto the wall and then onto the rooftop in pursuit. With a clatter, other Chen Mu guards either ascended the rooftops or dashed through the courtyard, racing along the alleyway. The 100-odd martial artists following suit emulated their actions, some climbing rooftops while others sprinted through the streets. The formation quickly dispersed, moving rapidly to chase the fleeing Luo Xiaoyu. With agility, Chen Mu employed his lightness skill to ascend the rooftop, keeping close behind. When he set out that morning, he had donned a human skin mask, transforming into an ordinary middle-aged man. At this moment, a group of scattered martial artists traversed the rooftops, unconcerned with the presence of one more. Woof, woof. On the ground, a colossal black hound pursued the occasionally descending Luo Xiaoyu with astonishing speed, weaving through alleys, corners, and pathways. No matter where Luo Xiaoyu attempted to conceal himself, the beast could effortlessly locate him. With the black hound leading the way, the others followed with ease. The incessant barking echoed through the air. Damn it! Damn it! Damn it! Luo Xiaoyu's face contorted with rage, his eyes ablaze with hatred. As he ran, he suddenly turned and charged at the black hound. The black-faced man on the rooftop, Chen Kong, changed his expression, about to speak, when, whoosh, 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 a flurry of diamond-shaped throwing darts shot through the air. It was Luo Xiaoyu. He rushed toward the black hound, unleashing a barrage of darts that fell in a net-like formation, puncturing the hound's flesh with several audible thuds. The black hound let out a whimper and collapsed forward, stirring up dust as blood, dark as ink, streamed from its wounds. Poison. Luo Xiaoyu, you seek your own demise. Chen Kong on the rooftop's eyes turned crimson in an instant. With a dull thud, Chen Kang's aura erupted, propelling him like a released arrow through the air. Descending upon Luo Xiaoyu, a gleaming white blade flashed from his waist, carving a semicircle in the air as it aimed to cleave Luo Xiaoyu. Clang, clang, clang. The long sword in Luo Xiaoyu's hand vibrated incessantly, successfully parrying the onslaught. The two engaged in a fierce struggle within the narrow alley. Meanwhile, other guards from the town martial division arrived from behind, spreading out to encircle Luo Xiaoyu. Luo Xiaoyu was finished. He had brought this upon himself by slaying the town martial division's tracking hound. There was no choice. If he did not kill, he could not escape or evade. Look over there. Is that Guo Jinyan from the Guo family? Why is he here? Obviously, Guo Jinyan is the brother of Guo Jinluan, sharing the same mother. How could he not come? On the walls and rooftops, a multitude of wandering martial artists whispered among themselves. Chen Mu stood upon the roof, listening to the dialogue, and turned his gaze toward Guo Jinyan, who stood atop a tree, clad in white attire, his handsome face shadowed with a somber expression. Between his brows, he bore a striking resemblance to Guo Jinluan. Guo Jinyan, the second young master of the Guo family, was at the 8th level of the acquired realm. In his early 20s, Luo Xiaoyu, not much older, was 25 or 6, at the 7th level of the acquired realm. In Nanyang Prefecture, both were regarded as promising young talents. However, Chen Kong, entangled with Luo Xiaoyu, was under 30 and a copper-rank guard of the town martial division, also at the 8th level of the acquired realm. In his fury, Luo Xiaoyu was utterly outmatched, retreating in defeat. With Chen Kong alone, the situation was dire, compounded by the presence of Guo Jinyan. Luo Xiaoyu was doomed, his fate sealed. Alas, what a pity! The murmurs of the onlookers arose, and Chen Mu, hearing the whispers, gazed into the distance in silence. Guo family and the town martial division are not mere bystanders in this realm, and they are not easily dealt with. Regardless of the sympathy one might feel for Luo Xiaoyu, at this moment, no one would dare to step forward to offer assistance. That would be courting death. Who wishes to perish while living well? A thunderous crash reverberated. On the ground, Luo Xiaoyu was sent flying by a kick from Chen Kong, crashing into the wall and tumbling into the rubble. Coughing up a mouthful of congealed blood, Luo Xiaoyu, pale and covered in dust, struggled to rise, half crouching on the ground, gasping for air. In truth, you need not face death. Chen Kong, exuding a fierce aura, approached step by step, his tiger blade glinting ominously, and coldly remarked, "But since you dared to slay the tracking hound, do not blame us, for this is a consequence of your own actions." Luo Xiaoyu, tilting his head, spat a bloody mouthful at Chen Kong and retorted scornfully, "Is this the level of hypocrisy displayed by your town martial division? How utterly disgusting. And when did the town martial division become subservient to the great families? You represent the imperial court. You are the royal guards of Emperor Zhou. How could you allow yourselves to be led around by a local family? If your superiors were to learn of this, would they not come personally to extinguish you? You, Luo Xiaoyu." Chen Kong was about to retort when Guo Jinyan shouted from above, descending gracefully from the treetop. With a somber tone, he asserted, "Regardless of your myriad of excuses, the fact remains that you have slain a member of the Guo family. Taking a life demands retribution." And today, Luo Xiaoyu turned sharply towards the slowly approaching Guo Jinyan and spat out another mouthful of blood, mocking, "Ah, what a fine sentiment of retribution. When your Guo family annihilated my Falling Cloud martial arts school, why did you not personally drink poison to accompany my father and the others to their graves?" Before Guo Jinyan could respond, Luo Xiaoyu sprang to his feet, channeling his internal energy, and declared loudly, "Esteemed heroes of the martial world, the Guo family destroyed my Falling Cloud martial arts school to seize a primordial martial art. I, Luo Xiaoyu, hereby announce, whoever can assist me in escaping this city today shall receive this primordial martial art." The echo of Luo Xiaoyu's proclamation lingered in the air, reverberating with fervor. Those standing on rooftops and walls widened their eyes in astonishment and excitement. A primordial martial art. The Falling Cloud martial arts school possesses a primordial martial art? No wonder. Chen Mu's heart surged with tumultuous emotions, realizing the underlying cause of the calamity. It was baffling how the Falling Cloud martial arts school could be eradicated. It was all for the sake of a primordial martial art. Lacking the innate strength yet possessing the primordial martial art. If this information were to spread, would it not incite greed and lead to attempts at theft? Ordinary treasures of gold and jewels would not entice the Guo family. Yet, primordial martial arts are scarce even among the Guo family. Do not heed his fabrications. After a brief silence, Guo Jinyan, maintaining a stern expression, declared, "My Guo family already possesses primordial martial arts. Why would we covet another's? Luo Xiaoyu is merely slandering my family in a desperate attempt to escape. His heart is deserving of punishment." Before he could finish his words, an arrow suddenly pierced the air, aimed at Guo Jinyan. Chapter 26, A Bountiful Harvest, and a Special Skill Obtained. With a swift backflip, Guo Jinyan evaded the arrow. However, this arrow served as the clarion call, swiftly followed by a barrage of flying darts, locust stones, sharp spikes, and shattered tiles. The air was filled with the whistling of various concealed weapons, all targeting Guo Jinyan's team and the Chen Mu division led by Chen Kong. Scattered around, more than half of the over 100 wandering cultivators perched on rooftops and walls launched their assaults. Dozens joined forces to support Luo Xiaoyu. Sympathy and lamentation aside, offending the Guo family or the Chen Mu division was tantamount to courting death. Yet, when tangible benefits and innate martial arts were at stake, the situation shifted dramatically. Men die for wealth, just as birds perish for food. The allure of an innate martial art was sufficient to spur these cultivators into action. The sheer number of attackers left everyone astounded. "Ha ha!" Luo Xiaoyu laughed heartily and turned to flee. "Thief, do not escape!" Guo Jinyan bellowed, leaping forward with great agility. Swoosh! 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 Fragments of tiles and locust stones were hurled toward him, forcing Guo Jinyan to defend himself as he descended to the ground. Chen Kong faced a similar fate, intercepted by flying stones, shattered tiles, and darts. Though these were wandering cultivators, those who could thrive in the martial world possessed considerable strength. Being struck by locust stones would not be fatal, but it surely inflicted harm, not to mention the poison darts. In that instant, both groups found themselves immobilized, helplessly watching Luo Xiaoyu escape into the distance, flanked by a dozen wandering cultivators. "Pursue!" Chen Kong roared, unleashing his internal energy as he sped after Luo Xiaoyu. The cultivators who had thrown the locust stones and tiles followed suit. Their assistance was commendable, but they were not tasked with covering the rear. If Luo Xiaoyu truly vanished from sight, where would they acquire the innate martial arts? Thus, Luo Xiaoyu led the charge, with the wandering cultivators trailing behind, followed by Chen Kong and Guo Jinyan, each commanding their respective teams. Nearly 200 individuals raced through the rooftops and alleys, heading toward the city gates. Chen Mu lagged behind. Before pursuing, he passed by the carcass of a massive black dog. Discovered a corpse. Would you like to collect it? Yes. Indeed. He could obtain a card. With a swift motion, Chen Mu sprang onto the rooftop, leisurely following the large group ahead. He reached into his pocket to inspect the newly acquired card. Skill card special. Another special skill card. He silently invoked its power, and the card transformed into a stream of light, coursing into his body. In an instant, Chen Mu gained a new ability, wind listening. This bestowed him with extraordinary hearing. Within a certain range, as long as the wind flowed, he could hear all sounds and discern their precise locations. A skill commonly referred to as listening to the wind and distinguishing positions. Not only can one discern positions, but by quieting the mind and listening intently, one can even perceive the heartbeat and breath of the target. As for the extent of this range, that remains to be tested. However, at this moment, it suffices for tracking Luo Xiaoyu. With a singular focus on escape, Luo Xiaoyu is aided by dozens of wandering practitioners, while Chen Kong and Guo Jinyan lead their own group, engaging in intermittent skirmishes. In the heat of battle, casualties are inevitable, leaving behind a trail of lifeless bodies. Chen Mu trails behind, drawing near to these corpses. Corpse discovered. Do you wish to collect? Yes. Corpse discovered. Do you wish to collect? Yes. Ahead. The chaos of combat continues, resulting in more fallen. Meanwhile, Chen Mu tirelessly gathers cards. Inner strength card. Power card. Inner strength card. Skill card. Experience card. As he pursues, he inspects and discovers a new type of card. Experience card. As the name suggests, this card allows one to gain a variety of experiences, such as combat experience. The deceased warriors, having endured hundreds or even thousands of battles, leave behind their accumulated wisdom. Chen Mu instantly reaps the benefits. While cultivating combat awareness is often innate, combat experience can be acquired through practice. A martial artist with only technical prowess but lacking experience may only exert 30% of their full potential, whereas a seasoned warrior can unleash 200% of their strength. The wandering practitioners are particularly adept in this regard. Chen Mu lingers at the rear of the group, delighting in his haul. Clang, clang, die, die. The cacophony of screams, roars, and clashing weapons fills the air as nearly 200 individuals engage in a chaotic melee. The scene resonates with shrieks and gasps as the crowd scatters in panic. Leading the charge, Luo Xiaoyu is solely focused on fleeing. Yet he finds himself cornered at the city gate. The defenders on the walls, armed with bows and arrows, halt the advancing throng, picking off wandering practitioners one by one, forcing others to retreat and abandon Luo Xiaoyu. Capture him. Chen Kang's face turns ashen as he draws his blade and charges at Luo Xiaoyu. Guo Jinyan, no longer a mere spectator, unsheaths his sword to attack Luo Xiaoyu. The two unite against a single target. Realizing escape is futile, Luo Xiaoyu boldly confronts the onslaught of Chen Kong and Guo Jinyan. Drawing a secret manual from his robes, he twirls his sword in a dazzling display. Swish, swish, swoosh. Ignoring his own peril, he envelopes the manual in a swirl of sword light, shredding the entire tome to pieces. Ha! Despite being pierced by blades, Luo Xiaoyu bursts into laughter. Though he only manages a few chuckles before vomiting a copious amount of congealed blood, his body sways precariously. In the next moment, with a thud, he collapses to the ground, uttering weakly with his last strength, perhaps in the next life. As those words escape his lips, his body convulses once before he breathes his last. At the city gate, a profound silence descends. The remaining wandering practitioners, not far away, witness Chen Kong and the Chen Mu division, along with Guo Jinyan and the Guo family, alongside the city defense team. Everyone gazed silently at the lifeless body of Luo Xiaoyu sprawled on the ground, their expressions a tapestry of emotions. He was dead, slain by the blades of Chen Kong and Guo Jinyan. Yet, in his final moments, he had reduced the text that chronicled the innate martial arts to mere fragments. These remnants now danced in the air, carried by the wind, each piece no larger than a flake of dandruff. Collecting them all was futile. Even if one managed to gather them, reconstructing the original work would be impossible. One could only say that Luo Xiaoyu was ruthless. In the heavy silence, Chen Kong sheathed his sword and turned away, emitting a cold exhalation as he strode off. The scattered wandering cultivators of the martial world quickly dispersed, vanishing from sight. Guo Jinyan remained motionless, his countenance dark and tempestuous, his gaze so intense it seemed it could squeeze water from stone. Take the body away, he barked, his voice rigid. Forcing a smile, he approached the captain of the city guards to express his gratitude for the intervention. Several members of the Guo family sheathed their weapons and advanced to retrieve the corpse. Observing this, Chen Mu lowered his head and walked slowly, edging closer from the side. Soon, he encountered a prompt. Discover corpse. Do you wish to collect? Yes. The card was in hand. Chen Mu continued onward, veering into a nearby shop. Moments later, he emerged, striding forth with purpose. His pocket now contained a new card, an ability card. Upon silently invoking its power, he acquired a martial technique, the cloud-dispersing sword. Notably, it was the cloud-dispersing sword at the level of mastery. To his astonishment, the cloud-dispersing sword was indeed an innate martial art. Those outside were aware that the cloud-dispersing sword comprised 9 techniques, with 81 variations. However, mastering it to the pinnacle of perfection would grant the ability to execute the 10th sword technique. This elusive 10th sword represented the quintessence of innate martial arts. Chapter 27, Breakthrough. Postnatal 5th level. Thus, the shattered text Luo Zhaoyu had just destroyed contained the cloud-dispersing sword? Did they fully document the secrets of the 10th sword? As Chen Mu pondered while walking, he realized that the secret of the 10th sword of the cloud-dispersing sword would remain unknown, as long as it was not recorded. Mastering a martial technique to the level of perfection was exceedingly difficult. Even the most rudimentary techniques posed significant challenges. As for those of lesser caliber, merely entering the realm of proficiency was the utmost limit. Clearly, Luo Zhongyun could not wield the 10th sword of the cloud-dispersing sword. Even if he could, its potency would be negligible. An innate martial art requires the accompaniment of innate true qi to unleash its formidable power. With a consummate postnatal cultivation level and profound internal strength, one could execute a move or two. However, even Luo Zhongyun could not achieve this. Chen Mu, at present, was equally incapable. Therefore, he resolved to apply the acquired cultivation card to the shattered gold palm. The mastery level of the cloud-dispersing sword was already sufficient. Thanks to Luo Zhaoyu's demise, Chen Mu had reaped a bountiful harvest. He had managed to collect 6 internal strength cards, with cultivation durations of 1 month, 1.5 months, 2 months, 2.5 months, 2 months, and 1 month, respectively. 3 training cards, valid for 1 year, 2 years, and a year and a half respectively. 3 skill cards, inscribed with the martial arts techniques of Mountain Splitting Fist, Killing Blade Technique, and Grass on the Wind. Among them, Mountain Splitting Fist represents the entry-level mastery, Killing Blade Technique signifies a profound understanding, while Grass on the Wind embodies the pinnacle of skill. Additionally, there are numerous stamina cards, energy cards, and strength cards. A bountiful harvest. Upon returning home, Chen Mu eagerly employed the training card, instantly elevating Golden Palm to the zenith of perfection. Next came the internal energy cards, one after another. Energy surged within him, propelling cloud rolling skill to break through to the 5th level of postnatal cultivation. During this process, his physique was further reinforced, particularly his internal organs, which were meticulously nurtured by the enveloping energy, gradually growing robust. When he finally paused, his organs resonated in harmony, and Chen Mu heard a thunderous sound, akin to distant thunder, emanating from within. The organs thundered, 5th level of postnatal cultivation. Another breakthrough. There were still 2 internal energy cards remaining, one for a month of cultivation and another for 2 months. After a brief respite, Chen Mu continued to use these cards, generating energy anew, further advancing his cultivation. Soon, Sun Jindong, await my arrival. Chen Mu exhaled, calming his breath and centering his energy. 5th level of postnatal cultivation. Just a step away from the innate realm. Without lingering at home, Chen Mu set forth towards the outskirts of the city. Upon reaching the mass graveyard, a quick assessment confirmed that his range had indeed expanded once more. 24 meters. From the 16 meters of the 4th level of postnatal cultivation to the 24 meters of the 5th level. Though the expansion was modest, any growth was a cause for celebration. He continued to break through to the 6th, 7th, and 8th levels, aiming for a collection range that could extend to 100 meters. The incident involving Luo Zhaoyu's encirclement and subsequent destruction of innate martial arts had stirred discussions throughout the city. The annihilation of the Luoyun martial arts school was known by all factions in Nanyuan Prefecture. Speculations about the perpetrator abounded. It was only through Luo Zhaoyu's uproar that the public learned the culprit was the Guo family. Their motive was to seize the innate martial arts. The reputation of the Guo family plummeted. Although no one dared to speak openly, whispers of disdain and mockery circulated widely. They dared to act, yet shied away from acknowledgement. The death of a spoiled scion was met with denial, sheer hypocrisy. It is understandable. After all, they belonged to a prominent family. To admit it would be to wear the label of a bandit. At home, Huang Feiyang, having completed his training, wiped his sweat with a towel and remarked that while the Zheng and Pan families had also engaged in such deeds, publicly, none would admit to it. How could the Guo family possibly confess? The three leading families of Nanyuan Prefecture, aside from the Guo family, included the Zheng and Pan families, each boasting innate masters among their ranks, their numbers not limited to one. Indeed, Chen Mu pondered for a moment, nodded, and casually inquired, "Brother, how is your cultivation progressing? What effect has the Peiyuan pill had?" "Quite well. I have successfully broken through," Huang Feiyang replied, striving to suppress the smile tugging at his lips, though his eyes sparkled with delight. "Broken through?" Upon hearing this, Chen Mu looked up at Huang Feiyang, his face alight with joy. "Really? Brother, you have become a martial artist?" He extended his hand, saying, "Come, let us clash palms." Huang Feiyang complied, and the two struck palms together. As they exchanged internal energy, Chen Mu swiftly sensed the faint, familiar aura coursing through Huang Feiyang's meridians. Indeed, it was internal energy. Excellent. Chen Mu withdrew his hand, exhilarated. The Peiyuan pill truly works wonders. Indeed, I owe it all to you, Huzi, for providing me with the Peiyuan pill, Huang Feiyang reflected. Without it, I would have needed at least another 6 months to achieve this breakthrough. Now, with just 5 Peiyuan pills, it has become a reality. The Peiyuan pill merely assists. Your innate talent is equally crucial, Chen Mu remarked. What talent? I am just an ordinary person. Huang Feiyang waved his hand dismissively. For those at the first to third levels of innate ability, as long as the martial arts techniques are sound and the pills are sufficient, most can break through and become martial artists. It is not as simple as that, Chen Mu chuckled, choosing not to pursue the matter further. Now that you are a martial artist, you must not neglect your martial skills. I have just learned a technique called killing blade technique, which is particularly suited for group combat. Brother, wait a moment while I write it down for you. Wouldn't that be inappropriate? Huang Feiyang hesitated. There is nothing inappropriate about it. It is not an exceptional martial art. Chen Mu replied, moving to the desk to pick up a brush and begin writing on a sheet of paper. What I mean is, you have given me so much already, Huang Feiyang expressed, feeling overwhelmed. I do not know how to express my gratitude. Is it too much? Chen Mu casually responded. Between brothers, expressing thanks feels overly formal. Huang Feiyang opened his mouth to speak, but ultimately fell silent. Indeed, they were brothers, closer than blood relatives, and uttering thanks would be an affront to their bond. The gratitude remained etched in their hearts. The killing blade technique comprised simple moves with limited variations. Yet each strike was lethal. It was easy to grasp and not difficult to master, although its upper limit was confined to the level of proficiency. Chen Mu personally guided Huang Feiyang, offering direction, and after half a day's practice, Huang Feiyang successfully entered the initial stages. The rest would come through gradual experience and accumulation. With Huang Feiyang's breakthrough into a martial artist, the two conferred and decided to keep this news from others for the time being. Becoming a formal martial artist was one of the prerequisites for assuming the position of a chief. However, each faction had a limited number of chief positions available. The Dedeo gang had 5 chiefs, and currently, there were no vacancies. If Huang Feiyang aspired to become a chief, he would have to carve out his own territory. Alternatively, he could eliminate one of the existing 5 chiefs. Kill Xiahong. Chapter 28, Candidates for Chief. Perhaps that would be best avoided. To seize power by any means necessary was the mindset of a ruthless individual. While Chen Mu and Huang Feiyang navigated the gang life, their principles remained more steadfast than those of the majority. Huang Feiyang previously served as the acting leader, appointed by Xiahong. This act of patronage is indeed a kindness. Huang Feiyang harbors a greater ambition to expand his territory and ascend to the position of the supreme leader. The structure of the Dedeo gang differs somewhat from that of other factions. The current gang leader, Guantong, is a mere 30 years old, with a martial prowess of the 8th level of acquired mastery. 8 years prior, the former leader passed away due to severe injuries, and Guantong assumed the role of the new leader. Yet many of the senior figures and hall masters below him were discontented, resorting to various schemes to undermine him. At that time, Guantong's own cultivation was only at the 6th level of acquired mastery. However, he proved to be a man of remarkable strategy, eliminating some, winning over others, and successfully consolidating his position as gang leader. Subsequently, he initiated reforms. The original Dedeo gang operated similarly to other factions, with senior and junior leaders wielding significant power, only required to remit 30% of their monthly earnings. The orders of the gang leader necessitated the cooperation of the senior leaders, while the rank-and-file members recognized only the senior and junior leaders. As for the gang leader, merely a mascot. Following Guantong's reforms, power was centralized. Financial resources and manpower were systematically allocated. The monthly stipends for senior and junior leaders became fixed, akin to those of the ordinary members, with rewards only available during skirmishes with rival factions. However, should someone venture to expand territory and seize a domain, Their autonomy would greatly increase. They would only need to remit half of the collected earnings, with the remainder at their discretion. Recruitment of personnel could also be undertaken independently, albeit under the supervision of headquarters. Yet, acquiring territory is no simple feat. The majority perish in the process. Huang Feiyang is acutely aware of this. Thus, he resolves to continue his cultivation, striving to grow stronger. Should he reach the third level of acquired mastery, his chances of seizing a territory would significantly improve. However, what neither Chen Mu nor Huang Feiyang anticipated was the change that would occur 3 days after their discussion. That afternoon, Xiahong convened all the junior leaders, including Huang Feiyang and Yu Baoyang. I have called you here today to announce an important matter. Xiahong began amicably. Recently, we have seized considerable territory from the Qingxi gang and the Blood Wolf gang. After deliberation, both factions have agreed to cooperate, relinquishing this territory and consolidating it into Chongningfang. From now on, Chongningfang will belong to our Dedeo gang. I am honored by the leader's trust to manage Chongningfang. The affairs here will be entrusted to others. Upon hearing this, Yu Baoyang questioned in confusion, "Boss, are you implying that you are stepping down from your position as a senior leader?" A burly man nearby retorted brusquely, "Boss is merely relocating, not resigning. He will still be a senior leader at Chongningfang." Indeed, Xiahong replied with a smile, "With the addition of a large territory, the gang has decided to create a new senior leader position. The new senior leader will succeed me in managing this area, and he will also be your superior. Xiaolao, may I accompany you?" Upon hearing this, Yu Baoyang promptly spoke up. "In any case, I am a solitary individual. It matters not where I go." Huang Feiyang wished to concur, but was interrupted. "Not for the time being." Xiahong shook his head. "The Longningfang area is vast, with many streets. It will take time to consolidate our presence there. You are not from that region, and thus will inevitably face constraints. The leader intends to transfer personnel from the neighboring 2 districts. Furthermore, while the Qingxi gang and Blood Wolf gang have agreed to relocate, the transition has not been smooth and may take a month or so. During this interim, if any of you manage to break through and become a formal martial artist, you could succeed me as the chief leader. Otherwise, a new chief leader will be dispatched from headquarters." At this point, Xiahong chuckled. This thought had only just occurred to him. Should one of his subordinate leaders achieve a breakthrough, they could take his place. However, such occurrences are rarely so fortuitous. A breakthrough within a month? Yu Baoyang shrugged, exasperated. "If I could break through, I would have done so long ago." "Feiyang, can you achieve a breakthrough?" Turning to Huang Feiyang, he intended to jest, unaware that Huang Feiyang, with a serious expression and a hint of bashfulness, raised his hand and said, "Actually, I just happened to break through." "Oh, you've broken through, have you? What? You broke through?" Yu Baoyang was taken aback, rising to his feet and staring intently at Huang Feiyang, incredulously exclaiming, "Feiyang, you've become a martial artist? Impossible." The burly man widened his eyes, also standing, and directly confronted Huang Feiyang. "How could you have possibly broken through? How long have you been training?" The others, upon hearing this, were similarly astonished, their gazes shifting to Huang Feiyang. How long had he served as a subordinate leader? If he were to become a martial artist and take over from Xiahong, that would be quite extraordinary. Well, Xiahong, both surprised and pleased, clapped his hands and approached Huang Feiyang, saying, "Feiyang, show us your skill." "Very well." Huang Feiyang began to channel his inner energy, filling his arms with power. In the next moment, his skin radiated a bronze sheen, the unmistakable sign of having reached the first level of acquired talent. "Haha, well done." Xiahong laughed heartily. Yu Baoyang also wore a broad smile, patting Huang Feiyang on the shoulder. "Brother Feiyang, remarkable indeed. You've broken through to become a martial artist. By the way, Feiyang, is the inner strength technique you're practicing the cloud rolling technique?" "Yes." Huang Feiyang concluded his practice, his skin returning to its normal hue. "Last month, I learned the cloud rolling technique at the Martial Arts Academy. If it weren't for the Guo family, I would be quite formidable." Yu Baoyang interjected. "Many practice the cloud rolling technique, yet few achieve the breakthrough to become martial artists. Your success, Brother Feiyang, indicates your exceptional talent." Indeed, Xiahong nodded in agreement. "It would be best for Feiyang to succeed me. Wait here, I shall report this matter to headquarters immediately." "Boss Xia." Upon hearing this, Huang Feiyang quickly clasped his fists and respectfully bowed to Xiahong. Xiahong raised his hand and strode away. Yu Baoyang and the others congratulated him, while only the burly man wore a grim expression, lowering his head as his lips moved silently. Without uttering a word, he turned and swiftly departed, making his way to a particular location, the street where the headquarters of the Blade Gang is situated. He knocked on the door with a firm rap. The courtyard gate swung open, revealing a lean man. "Brother Yang, what brings you here?" Sun Gang greeted warmly. "Come in, let's talk inside." "Boss Sun, trouble has arisen." The bald man entered, closed the door behind him, and spoke rapidly. Xia Hong has stepped down from his position as the leader, and someone has taken his place. What? Sun Gang's expression darkened, and he exclaimed, Who? Who has intervened? It's not from the headquarters, it's from our side. A minor leader named Huang Feiyang. He has just broken through to become a martial artist. Chapter 29. You're a martial artist? Huang Feiyang. Sun Gang's mind raced as he recalled the individual. He was the one who temporarily filled the position of minor leader after Xing Yang's demise at Changpingfeng. Indeed. The bald man nodded. After the recent takeover of Chonglu Street, Huang Feiyang has now ascended to the rank of minor leader. With his recent breakthrough to martial artist status, he is now qualified to succeed Xia Hong as the leader. Xia Hong favored him and has already gone to the headquarters. Damn it! Sun Gang clenched his fists, a flicker of rage igniting in his eyes, though it vanished as quickly as it appeared, leaving behind an expression of urgency. The position of leader is limited. Each role has its designated occupant. With Xia Hong's reassignment, his influence would be paramount. If he were to recommend someone, the likelihood of success would increase significantly. Had his father still been alive, there would have been no fear. His father was once a home master. But he fell in battle 6 years ago. Time has a way of cooling relationships, especially those that have long since faded. Sun Gang had only just managed to break through to martial artist, and had been awaiting the opportunity to claim the position of leader. As for the role of minor leader, he held it in contempt. Moreover, he dared not venture out to seize territory. This wait had extended over 3 years. And now the Blade Gang had expanded, creating a new market and a new leader's position. For this opportunity, Sun Gang had been treating people to meals and drinks, expending considerable sums. Had it not been for Huang Feiyang, the new leadership would have surely belonged to him. What relatives does Huang Feiyang have? Sun Gang inquired. His fists clenched, his teeth gritted. Ideally, someone who might be susceptible to coercion or theft. It seems he has a younger brother. The bald man understood immediately and pondered. Huang Feiyang has been married for a short time, and his wife is an honest woman who used to sell tofu, and still does. However, his younger brother is also part of the gang and has a rather peculiar temperament. Since Huang Feiyang assumed the role of temporary minor leader, he has been elusive. Does he merely take money without contributing? Sun Gang's eyes sparkled with interest. Not exactly, the bald man clarified. Huang Feiyang's brother is usually absent but participates in battles alongside the likes of Qin, Shi, and Xuelang. He is known to be quite fierce and often leads the charge. Humph, Sun Gang scoffed, his eyes narrowing as he coolly declared. In that case, we shall capture him. Brother Yang, I must trouble you to keep a close watch on their movements, he added. Absolutely, the bald man replied, clasping his fists in agreement. Huang Feiyang was poised to ascend to the position of the chief, and Chen Mu soon received the news. Although they had previously agreed to conceal Huang Feiyang's status as a martial artist for the time being, the opportunity that lay before them was too precious to overlook. To continue hiding such information now would be foolish. The position of chief was a rare opportunity that might not arise again for years. If Huang Feiyang were to become the chief, Chen Mu would undoubtedly find his own endeavors considerably easier. Should Huang Feiyang rise to become the leader of the gang, the benefits would be even greater. Thus, Chen Mu was more than willing to lend his support and, if necessary, provide a gentle nudge in that direction. In stark contrast to the promising news about Huang Feiyang, Chen Mu set out early that morning, only to return in the evening without having found a single card. As he passed through Chonglong Alley, he suddenly halted in his tracks. In the blink of an eye, he quickened his pace, darting into a narrow alleyway. After taking a few steps, he turned around and came to a stop. Do you brothers have business with me? Chen Mu calmly inquired, fixing his gaze on the 4 burly men who had been trailing him for half a street. Judging by their attire, they were all members of the Broadsword Gang. Little brother, is it? One of the stout men stepped forward, cupping his fists in a gesture of respect. Our big brother has a matter he wishes to discuss with you. Who is your big brother? Chen Mu pressed further. You'll find out once you come with us. The stout man replied with a smile. Apologies, but I do not know your big brother. If you cannot clarify, then I must decline your invitation. Chen Mu's lips curled into a slight smile. That's not for you to decide. The stout man's demeanor shifted as his eyes grew cold. Seize him. We'll take him back first. The 3 men behind him grinned menacingly and advanced towards Chen Mu. Are you brothers really resorting to violence? Chen Mu raised an eyebrow. The rules of the Broadsword Gang state that members must not harm one another. Are you prepared to break those rules? Enough with the nonsense. The stout man barked, lunging at Chen Mu. Just remember, you initiated this. Chen Mu chuckled softly as he met their advance. Bam! Crack! Bang! Ah! It hurts. It hurts. My arm is broken. My arm is broken. After a series of dull thuds, 3 of the men fell to the ground, howling in agony, their arms hanging limply at their sides. The stout man, possessing considerable strength, proved to be somewhat more challenging. Chen Mu exerted extra effort to dislocate his arm and shatter his leg bone, forcing him to kneel. Now, tell me, who is your big brother? Chen Mu inquired calmly once more. You initiated the attack. I am merely responding. Fail to answer, and I shall break another bone. Speak twice, and I'll tell you. I'll tell you. One of the men hastily replied. It's boss Sun Gang. He sent us to kidnap you. Kidnap me? Chen Mu questioned with confusion. Why would he want to kidnap me? Also, who is Sun Gang? The four men hesitated momentarily. Then, the stout man sighed. Sun Gang is from headquarters, and he is also a martial artist. He seeks to contend for the position of the new chief. But your brother Huang Feiyang. Understanding dawned upon Chen Mu, and his eyes glimmered with insight. It became clear that this Sun Gang was a rival of Huang Feiyang, who, feeling uncertain about his chances against Huang Feiyang, had devised a plan to threaten the big brother using Chen Mu as leverage. If Chen Mu were still his original self, perhaps he could have truly succeeded. Unfortunately, you must accompany me to the headquarters. As Chen Mu spoke, he took a few steps forward, reattaching the severed arm of a burly man, then said, Go find my brother and inform him that I have gone to the headquarters. He should not attempt to flee. The others, follow me. Huh. Yes. The man whose arm had been restored, in a state of astonishment, hurriedly nodded in agreement. I will go at once. Internally, he marveled at the gravity of the situation. Chen Mu was actually taking them to the headquarters to report. Indeed, it was a report. As members of the Dao gang, it was merely an act of kidnapping, not murder. Chen Mu would not go so far as to silence anyone. However, bringing someone to the headquarters to lodge a complaint could indeed drag Sun Gang down as well. To act against one's own kin and engage in kidnapping was a violation of the gang's rules. Chen Mu, accompanied by the three burly men, arrived at the headquarters shortly thereafter. Huang Feiyang, Sun Gang, Xia Hong, and several other prominent figures, including the gang leaders, had all gathered. The leader of the Dao gang, Guantong, was also summoned. Respectfully addressing the leader, Chen Mu bowed with a fist salute and recounted the ordeal of his abduction, concluding with, Fortunately, my martial skills are commendable, otherwise, I would have already been captured. I earnestly request the leader to arbitrate. Huang Feiyang gritted his teeth and knelt before Guantong on one knee. Sun Gang, how dare you? Xia Hong exclaimed furiously. How could you dare to kidnap your own brother? This is utterly insidious and ruthless. Leader, such a person must be severely punished. If we do not impose a penalty, will it become permissible for everyone to resort to underhanded tactics when displeased with one another? Let us adhere to the gang's regulations. Aside from one elder who remained silent, the other leaders and prominent figures voiced their agreement in support. Sun Gang's face turned pale as he lowered his head, suddenly exclaiming, I acknowledge my wrongdoing. I accept the punishment. But this Chen Mu, he idles about daily, rarely seen, only taking money without contributing. It is evident that Huang Feiyang has been indulgent of him. If such a person were to ascend to a leadership position, enough. Guantong, who had remained silent until now, raised his hand to interrupt, disregarding Sun Gang, his gaze now fixed upon Chen Mu, his eyes shimmering with intrigue. You are a martial artist? Chapter 30. Special approval from the leader. A martial artist? As Guantong's words fell, the crowd fell into stunned silence. Huang Feiyang was astonished. The leader could actually discern Chen Mu's cultivation level. Xia Hong and several other prominent figures and leaders were bewildered, and then swiftly horrified. Chen Mu is a martial artist. Chen Mu appeared to be no more than 16 years old. Could it truly be possible? Sun Gang blurted out, his gaze toward Chen Mu filled with shock, horror, and a profound disbelief. How could he possibly be a martial artist? How old is this kid? Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Chen Mu remained silent, raising his gaze to meet Guantong's. Be silent. Guantong pointed at Sun Gang, rendering the agitated man momentarily speechless. Although you have concealed your aura exceptionally well. As Guantong smiled and pointed towards the brawny man, it became evident that Iron Bull possessed innate strength, with a single arm capable of exceeding 500 pounds. He was not a martial artist, yet no one could subdue him. This realization dawned upon Chen Mu, who acknowledged his earlier oversight. When he had disarmed the brawny man, he had indeed noted that the latter's strength far surpassed that of the other three. However, for Chen Mu in the present moment, this formidable strength was merely a minor detail. Guantong had not determined Chen Mu's cultivation based on mere aura. Rather, he had used the brawny man as a reference point. Reflecting on this, Chen Mu clasped his fists in salute, recognizing the leader's discerning eye. He was indeed a recent breakthrough into the realm of martial artists. It's true, exclaimed the assembled crowd, momentarily struck with astonishment, except for Huang Feiyang. The notion of breaking through to martial artist status was not particularly remarkable, as the majority present were also postnatal martial artists. However, what stood out was Chen Mu's identity and his age, being under 16 and hailing from the lower ranks. These two factors combined indicated that only exceptional talent could lead to such a breakthrough. The adage of being impoverished in literature yet affluent in martial prowess was not mere talk. For a commoner to achieve the status of a martial artist, one must possess extraordinary innate talent. Although Chen Mu had Huang Feiyang as a cousin, how long had it been since Huang Feiyang had ascended to his position? A prodigy. In an instant, the crowd recognized Chen Mu's remarkable talent. Sun Gang gaped, staring blankly at Chen Mu, his mind somewhat bewildered. Huang Feiyang was a martial artist. And so was Chen Mu. The two brothers were both martial artists. How ironic that he had sent people to abduct Chen Mu. Feiyang, you two brothers are impressive, Xia Hong exclaimed, returning to reality and unable to contain his admiration. Indeed, especially young Chen. He is extraordinary. Congratulations. Various leaders and hall masters chimed in. As for the brawny man and his companions, they lowered their heads, not daring to utter a word, secretly relieved that they had not been excessively harsh during the abduction of Chen Mu. Otherwise, they would have faced dire consequences. Chen Mu, as a martial artist, could have retaliated and killed them. At most, Guantong would have merely penalized Chen Mu with a few months' worth of wages. Judging by Guantong's current expression, it seemed he held Chen Mu in high regard. Excellent. Guantong applauded, smiling. I never expected our great blade gang to have such a youthful prodigy. Not bad. Chen Mu replied without false modesty, smiling back. All credit goes to my master's teachings. However, he insists there's no pride in my accomplishments thus far. Only after breaking through to the innate stage within a year can one truly be called a genius. Guantong was left speechless. The others, including Huang Feiyang, were simultaneously astonished and rendered momentarily speechless. Although it was somewhat surprising that Chen Mu had a master, the notion of breaking through to the innate stage within a year was truly astonishing. Innate martial artists were not as common as wildflowers in the fields come spring. In the vast Nanyuan prefecture, the known innate martial artists could be counted on two hands. If Chen Mu were to break through the innate realm within a year, or even within 4 years before turning 20, he would undoubtedly be deemed a genius, a prodigy worthy of the illustrious potential dragon list. The Great Zhou encompasses 19 paths, each governing several states, and each state containing numerous prefectures. With such vast territories and a population in the millions, only 108 young martial artists have managed to ascend the potential dragon list, and each one of them is an extraordinary talent. It has been decades since anyone from the South Cloud Prefecture has made it onto the list. Could Chen Mu achieve this? Coughing lightly to stabilize his thoughts, Guantong continued, Brother Chen Mu, having already broken through as a martial artist, patrolling the streets may be somewhat inappropriate. Therefore, I propose you take on the role of inspector, overseeing the conditions on the streets and reporting directly to me regarding any matters. As for your remuneration, it will be according to the standards of the chief. Inspector, overseeing the streets? Has such a position ever existed since the establishment of the Dideo gang? The others present were taken aback, astonished. Yet, those who could rise to the rank of chief or hall master were not fools. It was evident that Guantong had created this position specifically for Chen Mu. He would be solely responsible for street oversight, which, in essence, meant allowing Chen Mu to roam the streets while enjoying the benefits of a chief's status. Sun Gang had previously reported that Chen Mu was merely pocketing money without contributing. Now, it seemed Guantong had explicitly granted approval for him to do just that. Realizing this, Sun Gang felt faint and dizzy. Meanwhile, Huang Feiyang was overjoyed, excitedly calling out to Chen Mu, Tiger, why don't you thank the chief? Thank you, chief. Chen Mu clasped his fists in respect towards Guantong. Haha. As long as one possesses talent, the gang will always provide support. Guantong laughed heartily. Brother Chen Mu, there is no need for excessive concern. Simply focus on your cultivation. I eagerly await the day you break through to the innate realm. Congratulations. I, Old Wang, wish Inspector Chen an expedited breakthrough to the innate realm. Many others, including Xia Hong, offered their congratulations. Chen Mu expressed his gratitude, having become an inspector without any obligations. This gesture from Guantong reflected goodwill. It was an appreciation, but more so, it likely served to curry favor with Chen Mu's master. Anyone who could proclaim the possibility of breaking through to the innate realm within a year must themselves possess at least innate capabilities. Of course, Guantong might not fully believe it. However, in comparison to befriending a potential innate master, the modest remuneration of a chief was trivial, merely 500 taels of silver per month. Chen Mu acknowledged his identity as a martial artist and intentionally highlighted his master's existence, yielding unexpectedly positive results. Even if Guantong were to discover the non-existence of this master in the future, it would not matter, for by then, Chen Mu would have already achieved innate status. At this moment, he felt little fear, though he could not defeat Guantong at the 5th level of postnatal cultivation. If Chen Mu wished to leave, Guantong would not be able to stop him. A farcical event unfolded as Sun Gang was sentenced to 3 years of monthly fines and suffered a fracture to his left arm, while Chen Mu ascended to the position of Inspector General. In the wake of this, Huang Feiyong seized the opportunity to become the new leader, taking over from Xia Hong and establishing his dominance in the territories of Chongping and Chongluang. These two pieces of news swiftly circulated within the gang. How remarkable! In such a short span, Huang Feiyong has already risen to the rank of leader. His younger brother is even more formidable, having become a warrior at the tender age of 15 and assuming the role of Inspector General. One might wonder, what exactly does this Inspector General do? Is it not evident? They indulge in revelry and merriment on the streets, engaging in feasting and enjoyment, all while relishing the privileges that come with being a leader? By the heavens, why is such fortune not bestowed upon me? Ah, the injustice!